A sharpened blade hangs 10 feet above our boy, casting a cold shadow over his final moments. Looking up with those weary green eyes, he feels a darkness looming over his very soul. He remembers standing tall with a blade of his own, back before everything went south. Now, pinned under the wood, he's left dumbfounded by how his life reached this pathetic dead end. The crowd whispers about Eon's fall, but they know speaking up means losing their own heads. Up on the balcony, Duke Hallis watches the show, relishing the downfall of a former peer. The commoners realize the only way to survive this era is to stay quiet and stay out of sight. As war consumes the continent, the execution of a noble is just another grim spectacle for the masses. Crows circle the gallows, calling at the scent of death that has become far too common lately. This cycle of bloodshed began in the east, where the Red Knight turned the world into a hellscape. The noble house of Marbus finally crumbles, leaving our boy as just another victim of this trash-tier war. Eon stares blankly, his green eyes reflecting the absolute. High above the square, the strong whisper amongst themselves, proving that power allows them to do as they wish. For the commoners watching from the shadows, every single day is a desperate gamble just to stay alive. They stand frozen and sweating, knowing that speaking up would only put their own necks on the line. Pinned under the heavy wood, Eon prepares for his final grim dance with death in the public square. A cold, calculating gaze watches the scene, relishing the moment the gates of the abyss finally swing open. Count Alan de Sylvester smirks, satisfied that his long-standing rival is finally being erased from the world. The blade hangs ready in the air as the signal is given for the show to finally commence. The crowd's uneasy murmurs fill the air as they witness the final moments of a once great noble house. Our boy stands there in silence, his back turned to the world that has already abandoned him. Count Alan de Sylvester grows impatient, demanding to know why the grim spectacle hasn't started yet. Eon's legs begin to wobble under the crushing weight. Eon's legs begin to wobble under the crushing weight of despair as he grips the cold steel. His hands tremble violently, the reality of his situation finally sinking in as he holds the blade. Pinned against the wood, the victim waits for the shadow of the blade to take their life. The Count lets out a trash-tier laugh, mocking the boy and ordering him to just cut the rope. Every step toward the edge feels like a mile, as he trudges forward with a heavy heart. He looms over the mechanism, the thick rope representing the thin line between life and a bloody death. Eon raises the knife with a hollow expression, forced to trigger the descent into the abyss. The crowd watches in absolute horror as the tension finally reaches a breaking point. Count Alan de Sylvester just leans in with a trash-tier smirk, savoring every second of the misery. With a final, desperate motion, our boy slices through the rope, sealing a fate he never wanted. The heavy blade drops with a sickening thud, echoing like a butcher's cleaver through the silent square. Warm crimson splatters across Eon's face, turning his pale skin into a macabre canvas of guilt. He stands there dumbfounded, the metallic stench of iron filling his lungs as the reality sets in. His hands are stained forever, the cold steel slipping from his grasp as he realizes what he's done. Every drop on the floor feels like a lead weight, anchoring him to this nightmare of his own making. He forced himself to cut the ties between his father and the living world just to survive. As the head of Rune von Marbus rolls away, the legacy of his house is officially severed. Leon accepts his grim new identity as the son of a dead man and a cold-blooded kinslayer. His eyes reflect the hollow weight of a boy who just butchered his own blood to survive. In this world, being a patriarch means more than just surviving. It means becoming a nation's pillar. The title carries a heavy burden, marking him as a high-ranking aristocrat responsible for his people's fate. As the old saying goes, the crown is a heavy burden that only the strongest can truly bear. Years pass, and our boy transforms into a stoic leader, ready to face the crushing weight of authority. The room is thick with tension as his advisors watch their new ruler with a mix of expectation. Leon officially takes his seat as the head of House Marbus, though the shadows of his past remain. One vassal shouts that House Sylvester is encroaching, demanding a swift and decisive military response from the ruler. The other nobles join the fray, desperate for Leon to finally make a move before their enemies strike. One of the old-timers insists that our boy finally give the council a straight answer. Leon has had enough of their constant bickering and shuts the conversation down immediately. He stands up and tells the room he requires more time to ponder their demands. The vassals are dumbfounded, claiming this delay only spells disaster for their once great house. Ignoring their desperate pleas, Leon turns his back on the political circus and walks away. As he wanders the halls, he reflects on the bloody demise of his father, Rune. It is a heavy crown for a kid who became the patriarch at only 14 years old. He remembers when House Marbus was feared for necromancy, a reputation now lost to time. Our boy suddenly stops in his tracks when he reaches the portraits of his parents. He looks up at them, silently acknowledging the ghosts of the mother and father he lost. He looks up at them, silently acknowledging the ghosts of the mother and father he lost. Leon wonders what his parents would have him do in their place during these dark times. He knows the dead can't speak, yet he's still desperate for a shred of guidance. Our boy walks toward the heavy doors, obsessed with restoring his family's lost glory and prosperity. He stops and glances up at the legacy he is desperately trying to uphold. This is Wellen von Marbus, the legendary figure who started the entire bloodline. He was the founding progenitor and the only true necromancer the continent had ever seen. Leon recalls how the house first rose to prominence through absolute dominance on the battlefield, but since those glory days, the lineage has failed to produce another master of the dark arts. This lack of power sent the family fortune spiraling down a path of pathetic, trash-tier decline. Leon lets out a heavy sigh, feeling the crushing weight of a dying legacy on his shoulders. Leon reaches for the handle, haunted by the memory of being forced to end his own father's life. He enters the private study, the heavy door creaking as he steps into the sanctuary of his ancestors. Our boy approaches the desk, his eyes fixed on the ancient records. Our boy approaches the desk, his eyes fixed on the ancient records that hold his family's dark secrets. He places a weary hand on the chronicles, desperate to find a way to save his failing house. He thinks of Wellen, the legendary progenitor who once wielded magic like a lethal, world-ending tempest. Back then, the Marbus name meant an unstoppable death march of undead legions that crushed every single foe. In just 2 months, Wellen had subjugated the entire eastern region, standing as the continent's undisputed sovereign. Legend says he struck a forbidden pact with the dark being Marbus to unlock the ultimate mysteries of death. This unholy union birthed the Necronomicon, a dread tome containing the absolute secrets of high-tier necromancy. Leon stares at the book, wondering if he has the strength to reclaim that terrifying, the leader-like power. Leon stares at the Necronomicon, the legendary tomb that once made his family the sole masters of death. He carefully flips the ancient pages, hoping to find a spark of hope within the forbidden text. Suddenly, our boy freezes when a mysterious voice echoes through the room, addressing him as the young patriarch. He is completely dumbfounded that a telepathic message could even reach him inside this high-tier anti-magic field. Leon scans the empty office, cautiously asking the unseen entity to reveal its true identity. A sinister red aura swirls around him, as the voice promises it poses no threat to his kin. Before he can react, a massive ritual circle erupts beneath his feet, surging with overwhelming, ancient power. He grits his teeth, trying to keep his composure as the heavy pressure of the magic weighs him down. Sweat beads on his face while he looks up, sensing a presence far beyond any trash-tier human mage. Towering over him is the dark being Marbus itself, the very source of his family's dark and bloody legacy. Leon finds himself in a strange void, wondering whether the abyss he has been transported to this time. The massive beast asks if his predecessor kept its existence a secret, making Leon realize it means his father. The dark being Marbas confirms it felt the mana thread connecting them snap, signaling that Rune is finally gone. It growls in frustration, admitting, looking down at our boy, the entity demands to know who exactly delivered the killing blow to its contractor. Leon's throat twitches as he prepares to admit the cold truth about the man who ended his father's life. He stands tall and confesses that he, the son of the house, was the one who did the deed. The beast lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very foundations of the mental space they inhabit. Even as the pressure threatens to crush him, Leon holds his ground while the dark being prepares to strike. The creature snarls, asking one last time if this puny human truly killed its legendary oathbound partner. Leon doesn't flinch as he confirms he is exactly the person the beast is looking for. With eyes glowing with a grim resolve, our boy admits he was the one who murdered his father. The massive entity looms over him, demanding that he repeat that impossible claim one more time. The creature snarls in disbelief, questioning if a mere human truly slew its legendary oathbound contractor. Without a hint of hesitation, Leon repeats the cold. He takes full ownership of the deed, accepting the weight of the blood currently staining his soul. The dark being's eye glints with a terrifying light as it processes the sheer audacity of this young noble. Suddenly, the beast lunges forward, its primal fury threatening to tear Leon's very consciousness apart. Despite the overwhelming pressure, our boy stands firm while the mental landscape begins to warp and scream. The memory of the ritual knife and the blood on his hands flashes back, grounding his grim determination. Leon is barely holding on as the weight of his sins starts to manifest physically around him. The beast claims that while Leon cut the rope, he isn't the true killer of his father. Our boy stays silent, knowing the truth is far more complicated than simple guilt or innocence. The dark being lets out a dark chuckle, intrigued by the boy's refusal to deny the blood on his hands. It senses something terrifyingly familiar yet deeper, an abyssal aura lurking right beneath Leon's noble exterior. The creature is stunned that a mere child could harbor such a massive suffocating reserve of magical force. As he takes a step, the very ground ripples with the weight of his dark, burgeoning power. Standing atop a mountain of spectral corpses, Leon's presence begins to eclipse the ancient dark being's own shadow. The entity is completely dumbfounded, realizing the situation has spiraled far beyond its initial expectations. It sees the legendary progenitor's spirit in him, fearing Leon might actually surpass the house's greatest ancestor. The ancient entity clears its throat, preparing to drop some heavy lore on our boy. It finally introduces itself as Marbus, the namesake of the very house Leon now leads. Turns out he is one of the 72 dark being of the abyss who ditched the underworld for humanity. He was actually the lifelong friend of Wellen, acting as the original source for the family's necromancy. Leon remains unfazed, admitting that he recognizes the legendary creature from the old family tales. He knows this beast was the one who taught their progenitor the forbidden secrets of the dark arts. The dark being confirms his identity, explaining he is now bound to the Necronomicon. The dark being confirms his identity, explaining he is now bound to the Necronomicon despite his former power. Our boy calls him the Black Lion, recalling how his ancestors claimed this magic was in their blood. The entity stares back with glowing eyes, acknowledging the deep, ancestral connection between them. However, Leon is still skeptical, wondering how such a powerful being ended up in this pathetic state. Leon asks point blank if the legendary beast simply decided to forsake his family in the end. The dark being looks down, wondering what on earth gave our boy such a ridiculous notion. Leon points out that since their progenitor Wellen, House Marbus has failed to produce anyone worth a. He views this pathetic lack of talent as a clear sign that the entity has completely abandoned them. The Black Lion prepares to set the record straight, staring right through the young patriarch's soul. He explains the real problem is that Leon's kin were all too weak to provide a fitting vessel. Our boy is left dumbfounded, questioning what exactly the dark being means by needing a fitting vessel. The entity reminisces about Wellen, noting that no one else even held a candle to his sheer talent. This lack of a proper host was just the This lack of a proper host was just the first omen of the bloodline's inevitable, trash tier decline. Leon falls silent, processing the harsh truth about his ancestors' failures while planning his next move. Leon nods and decides to take the ancient entity's word for it since the truth is finally out. Our boy admits that the weak suffering defeat during times of war is just an unchanging universal law. The dark being asks if that cold logic is truly how he came to terms with his father's execution. Leon bluntly replies that it makes no difference because there was nothing special about his father's pathetic passing. He pauses for a moment, clearly weighing the heavy burden of his family's trash-tier legacy and his future. Looking the dark being in the eye, he asks for a favor, assuming some loyalty remains to his house. The entity just scoffs at the request, making it clear that a dark being never deals in petty favors. He explains that favors are for the weak, so they must refer to their business as a pact. Leon doesn't even blink, immediately pivoting to propose a formal deal to obtain the forbidden power of necromancy. The dark being's gaze intensifies, intrigued by the young patriarch's willingness to trade everything for a bit of strength. Leon gets straight to the point, asking if the entity actually has the juice to grant him power. The dark being just huffs, mocking our boy for having the audacity to question the ruler of the abyss. It stares him down, wondering if this kid's potential is even worth the legendary weight of such power. Leon doesn't flinch, arguing that a talentless peon wouldn't even survive a conversation with a lofty dark being. Most trash-tier humans would have their mana drained and minds shattered just by standing in this presence. Since he's still breathing insane, Leon figures he must possess at least a modicum of true potential. The dark being actually seems impressed, noting that the young patriarch isn't just talk, and possesses genuine grit. It reminds him once more that there are no favors here, only a binding and dangerous pact. Leon agrees, confidently stating that he definitely has something valuable to offer the dark being in exchange. The ancient entity watches him closely, ready to see if the boy is truly cut from the same cloth. The ancient entity erupts into a booming laugh, clearly finding our boy's bow. It finally agrees to the pact, officially addressing Leon as the ruler of the necromancer's bloodline. Leon doesn't even blink, simply asking what kind of steep price the dark being intends to demand. The beast lets out a wicked, toothy grin, savoring the moment before dropping the heavy truth. It growls that the cost for this power will be nothing less than every facet of his being. Our boy takes a silent second to process the weight of losing his soul to this monster. Instead of fear, a smirk grows as Leon claims he'd gladly surrender his meager existence for strength. Even the legendary dark being flinches, clearly dumbfounded by the sheer madness and resolve in the kid's eyes. Meanwhile, the remaining vassals of the house gather in a cold, tense room to discuss their future. One of the elders clears his throat, preparing to address the grim reality they all now face. Korchal kicks off the meeting by bringing up Leon, clearly ready to play some dirty politics. He claims the young patriarch is basically a figurehead with zero authority to make the big calls. The room goes quiet as the vassals realize they're witnessing a blatant power grab in real time. Asserting his status as the closest kin, Korchal prepares to shove the kid aside for the family's sake. He offers to take full charge as the house steward, waiting for the vultures to chime in. One trash-tier vassal immediately agrees, calling our boy a mere pup who isn't even of age yet. He insists that leaving the fate of their house to an unworthy child is a recipe for disaster. Korchal looks satisfied, thinking he successfully convinced the room that Leon is completely useless. But then, a moustachioed elder speaks up, reminding everyone that Leon is the only direct blood descendant. He warns that violating the laws of lineage is a dangerous precedent that could destroy them all. Virtual snaps that tradition is useless if their entire bloodline is about to be erased from history. He reminds the room that the Sylvester armies are currently marching to tear their house apart. Korchal admits he won't die for a clueless kid and plans to prioritize his own skin first. Suddenly, the mouse-sheet elder slams the table, calling them all ungrateful jack. Suddenly the moustachioed elder slams the table, calling them all ungrateful jackals for betraying the ruler. He declares that he won't stand by while Kerchel tries to steal our boy's rightful inheritance. The elder silently begs the ruler rune for guidance, determined to protect the Marba's legacy. Kerchel just smirks, finding the old man's sudden burst of backbone to be quite amusing. He acknowledges that the young patriarch actually has one loyal dog left in this den of vipers. Virtual stares him down, demanding the elders speak plainly about what he's actually trying to achieve. He questions if that loyalty is enough to save a house that's already halfway in the grave. Virtual mocks the old man, claiming he is far too dull to see that the game is already over. As he steps forward, the sheer weight of his presence begins to suffocate the remaining loyalists in the room. He addresses the elder with a sickeningly fake warmth, calling him a dear friend, while preparing the killing blow. Kerchel leans in close, offering what he calls sage advice, while subtly asserting total dominance over the broken man. Suddenly, a dark and menacing Mona begins to seep from his hand. Sending a chilling message to everyone present, he drops the act entirely, asking if they really thought he gave a single about their pathetic opinions. The elder breaks into a cold sweat, finally realizing that every single move was part of Kerchel's twisted design. Virtual warns him to choose his next words carefully, reminding him that his family's lives are on the line. He turns to the rest of the trash tier nobles, declaring they are all gathered for a single grim purpose. It is time to make a dirty choice, one he claims is the only way to save their house. Kerchel tells the elder not to block their survival, and simply let his superior wisdom take its course. The broken vassal realizes he was just a pawn and begs the ruler rune for some mercy. Meanwhile, our boy Leon stands before the massive dark being Marbas, who looms over him like a living nightmare. Leon doesn't even flinch, meeting the ancient dark being gaze with the stoic intensity of a true Marbles leader. The dark being admits things are going well, though there is one major problem with their current soul contract. As dark mana swirls around them, Leon listens as the beast explains the consequences of their new bond. Because the subject of the pact changed, the dark being explains his true power is now being severely curtailed. It sneers that Leon's father was naive, but at least the old man had a decent mana pool. Our boy realizes that dark being need to suck mana from their contractors just to keep their powers active. He bluntly asks the beast what it expects him to do to solve this little energy crisis. The beast snaps its claws, deciding they need to be stingy with Leon's mana for the time being. With a burst of dark energy, the massive dark being shrinks into a tiny fluffy ball of fur. Leon admits the logic makes sense, even if he is looking at a literal puffball now. Our boy can't help but remark that the terrifying dark being now looks like a common, adorable house pet. The dark being snaps back, threatening to shred Leon's face if he ever calls it adorable again. Leon isn't intimidated at all, simply noting that a pet that bites won't do for his needs. Ignoring the sass, the small beast starts walking off and tells Leon it's time for them to depart. It reminds our boy of his goal to reach the same heights as the legendary Wellen von Marbas. To reach that level of power, the dark being suggests Leon must literally retrace the founder's ancient footsteps. Leon considers the proposal, realizing that following the old path is the only way to true strength. Under the pale moonlight, the dark being declares they are heading straight for the hidden hall of the Marbas progenitor. It warns our boy that the journey is lethal, questioning if he actually has the stomach to risk his life. Leon is just dumbfounded, wondering why this little puffball keeps doubting his resolve after everything he has endured. The dark being simply shakes its head, clearly unimpressed by Leon's words as it prepares to move out. It decides to lead the way, challenging its young contractor to keep up if he is truly capable. They venture deep into the dark woods, where the heavy atmosphere of the family's ancient legacy begins to settle. Leon recognizes the area as the Mist Woods, a place steeped in the history and secrets of House Marbas. The dark being confirms his suspicion, noting the forest acts as a lethal labyrinth for anyone lacking their specific bloodline. Our boy recalls his father's words about how only the rightful patriarch is permitted to enter the secret hall. Turns out every previous head failed the trial, because they lacked the most fundamental requirement of all. The dark being explains that only those wielding the abyss's purest black mana can pierce through this lethal fog. With a simple gesture of its paw, the little puffball begins to manipulate the surrounding ancient energy. They reach the hall's entrance, and the dark being tells our boy it's finally time to start the trial. As they descend into the cold darkness, the weight of his ancestors' failures hangs heavy in the air. A spectral voice echoes through the halls, granting the young descendant permission to tread where many have died. Every step deeper into the stone labyrinth feels like walking directly into the jaws of a waiting beast. Suddenly, the dark being stops and warns Leon that he must face the upcoming horrors entirely on his own. It flashes a smug grin, clearly curious to see if the new patriarch is actually cut from different cloth. Before leaving, the puffball offers one final tip, insisting he must obey the Necronomican's every command at all times. The doomed book pulses with a sinister light, its central eye watching Leon's every move with eerie hunger. Dark being Marbus snickers, promising this path leads straight to the ultimate reward of necromancy. The cold stone floor beneath them feels like a graveyard for those who failed before. Our boy marches forward, while the floating book and the smug puffball follow his lead. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes through the hall, making Leon freeze in his tracks. He peers into the oppressive darkness, sensing that something is lurking just out of sight. Green flames erupt from a nearby torch, casting a sickly supernatural glow across the stone. In the distance, a pack of savage monsters begins to growl, hungry for fresh meat. Leon hears a muffled cry for help, realizing he isn't the only living soul down here. Turns out the monsters have a captive girl gagged and bound, waiting for their next meal. He grabs the pulsing book, knowing the trial is finally about to get bloody. Leon flips through the ancient pages, searching for the dark power he was promised. The text reveals the Necronomicon, a diva. The text reveals the Necronomicon, the supreme relic meant to unlock his family's maximum potential. Our boy stares at the first secret, realizing it holds the key to reanimating the dead. He looks down the torchlit corridor where the heavy silence is about to be broken. Suddenly, a pack of trash-tier monsters lunges from the dark, hungry for a fresh kill. Leon remains unfazed, his sharp green eyes tracking every move of the savage beasts. The book's instructions are clear. He must start by taking the life of a living being. He flips the page again, fully aware that there is no turning back from this path. With a sharp shing, he draws his blade, ready to spill blood for his lineage. His gaze hardens as he prepares to show these creatures why they shouldn't mess with Amarbus. A terrified girl lies bound and gagged, her muffled breaths echoing in the damp, dark dungeon. Nearby, a pair of trash-tier orcs growl, their red eyes fixed hungrily on the helpless prey. Our boy steps into the light, dagger in hand, completely unfazed by the monsters surrounding him. A sudden impact shakes the room as the confrontation finally kicks off with a violent burst. One beast lunges forward with a guttural screech, aiming to tear the young patriarch limb from limb. He effortlessly slips past the strike, his sharp green eyes tracking the monster's every clumsy movement. With a swift, practiced motion, he brings his blade around to deliver a lethal, decisive counterattack. A brilliant flash of light follows as his steel bites deep into the creature's thick green hide. The orc hits the floor with a heavy thud, its dark blood staining the cold stone tiles. Leon calmly notes that he finally has his first sacrifice, his heart steady as the trial begins. Amidst the trial, Leon recalls a flashback to a gloomy graveyard standing beside his father, Rune. Rune tells our boy to pay close attention to the heavy legacy he's destined to inherit. The kid looks up, wondering what entity their great house actually holds in the highest regard. Turns out the answer is simple, yet chilling. The Marbus clan idolizes death itself. As masters of the undead, Rune explains they must revere the end of life. As masters of the undead, Rune explains they must revere the end of life with absolute respect. Little Leon ponders this, his sharp green eyes already showing the weight of his family's dark path. He asks his old man how one can truly revere something as final and terrifying as death. Our boy assumes necromancers just take lives for power, whether they actually want to or not. Rune smiles, acknowledging that while they are feared dark mages, there's more to their history than slaughter. He makes it clear that being a powerful necromancer doesn't mean they have to become heartless villains. Rune makes Leon promise one thing, before the weight of their lineage truly takes hold. He insists that if Leon holds dominion over others, he must grant them a peaceful end. Our boy internalizes this, questioning if he can truly show mercy to every single foe. Fast forward to the trials, where Leon faces trash-tier monsters in a damp, dark dungeon. He moves with a chilling calm, his eyes glowing with the latent power of House Marbus. As the orcs close in, Leon prepares to execute the philosophy his father drilled into him. One beast falls with a dull thud. Its life snuffed out before it even realizes he moved. He targets the cervical vertebra with deadly precision, ensuring his enemy feels absolutely no pain. Watching from the sidelines, the fluffy dark being Marbus is completely dumbfounded by the kid's skill. The dark being wonders if this is just a fluke or a terrifying, inborn talent for killing. Dark being Marbus snickers, eager to see if Leon is the real deal or just another failure. Our boy knows that taking down the first beast was pure luck, not skill. He realizes these trash-tier goblins are far more devious and shrewd than they look. The monsters surround him, their red eyes gleaming with a primitive hunger for blood. Leon tightens his grip on the blade, his mind racing to find a lethal opening. The pitch-black dungeon makes it nearly impossible for him to judge the uneven ground. To make matters worse, his vision starts to fade as the shadows press in. He notes that the light dies with every kill, forcing him to adapt quickly. Instead of wild swings, he decides to focus on precise, lethal pierces to save energy. He darts forward like a shadow, aiming for the perfect strike to end this. Leon reties his blade, his eyes glowing with the cold, lethal intent of a true Marbus heir. A monster lunges with a guttural roar, but our boy doesn't even blink as he tracks its movement. As the life leaves another foe, a nearby torch flickers and dies, plunging the room into deeper darkness. These trash-tier goblins keep coming, their screeching voices echoing through the cold, damp halls of the trial grounds. He sidesteps a clumsy lunge and carves through flesh, knowing every drop of blood spilled brings him closer. Leon remains eerily calm, his mind calculating the exact distance needed to end this pathetic skirmish quickly. Their blades clash with a sharp ring, but the monster's primitive strength is no match for his technique. He adjusts his grip, feeling the weight of the blade as he prepares for the final, decisive movement. With one fluid motion, he delivers a lethal slash that sends goblin blood spraying across the stone floor. Another light vanishes into the void, forcing him to rely on his sharpening sense. Another light vanishes into the void, forcing him to rely on his sharpening senses to survive the night. Leon realizes his eyes are finally adjusting to the pitch-black trial grounds, giving him a much-needed edge. However, his ceremonial dagger is taking a beating from all the constant clashing against these trash-tier monsters. Suddenly, a shrill screech pierces the silence, putting our boy on high alert for the next ambush. A crazed goblin leaps from the shadows, swinging its primitive blade with murderous intent. Leon narrowly avoids the strike, his movements becoming a blur as he calculates his next counterattack. The air whistles as a blade cuts through the dark, aimed directly at the monster's head. He manages to graze the beast, drawing first blood while maintaining his lethal focus. Even the fluffy dark being Marbus is left dumbfounded when he sees Leon seemingly toss his only weapon aside. Our boy slips past the creature's guard, choosing speed and positioning over a broken ceremonial blade. With a cold, glowing gaze, he prepares to finish this fight using something far more dangerous than steel. Even the fluffy dark being Marbus is sweating buckets, wondering if this kid is actually lost. Even the fluffy dark being Marbles is sweating buckets, wondering if this kid has actually lost his mind. But Leon isn't playing around, lunging forward with a speed that catches the trash-tier monster off guard. He reaches out, his fingers locking onto the hilt of his weapon with lethal precision. Metal clashes against metal as our boy meets the goblin's strike head-on without flinching. With a heavy stomp, he anchors himself to the ground to generate maximum torque for his next move. He weaves through the beast's clumsy defense, delivering a strike that paints the floor red. Blood splatters across his face, but his glowing eyes remain fixed on the objective with zero remorse. A single blinding horizontal slash tears through the air, effectively ending the creature's miserable existence. As the monster hits the dirt, Leon stands tall, looking like a true heir of the Marbus name. Without wasting a second, he spins on his heel, ready to face whatever other horrors await him. Leon steps over the trash-tier goblin corpses, his eyes scanning for any remaining threats in the dark. He eventually finds a captive girl huddled in the corner, appearing completely helpless and terrified. She looks up with tearful eyes, muffled whimpers escaping from behind the thick rope gagging her. Our boy doesn't hesitate to reach out and slip the restraint off, finally letting her speak. She immediately starts sobbing and thanks him profusely, claiming that he's the one who saved her life. Her gratitude is cut short when a sudden, sickening sound of metal piercing flesh echoes through the room. Instead of a warm embrace, Leon drives his blades straight through her chest without a hint of mercy. She gasps in utter confusion, wondering why the boy she just thanked is now ending her life. Blood splatters across the floor as he twists the cold steel, ensuring the kill is clean. Leon simply recalls his father's warning about monsters that mimic humans to lure in their unsuspecting prey. The blade sinks deep and the sickening sound of metal meeting flesh confirms the kill is final. She lets out a blood-curdling shriek as her human facade begins to crumble under the weight of death. Bleeding out on the cold floor, she realizes our boy isn't the naive hero she hoped to devour. Leon remembers his father's grim lessons in the graveyard, teaching him that deceivers deserve no mercy. He knows that for his family to rise, he must make every traitor feel their victim's absolute despair. With glowing eyes and a cold smirk, he prepares to give this monster a final lesson in true suffering. A green flame flickers wildly in the dark, echoing the screams of those trapped within this brutal trial. The spectral fire suddenly vanishes into the shadows, signaling that another soul has been claimed by the darkness. Meanwhile, far from the blood and grit, a lavish party is in full swing with dancers entertaining the elite. Kershaw laughs like a madman, convinced that the Marbus legacy is finally his to control and exploit. The dancers stroke Urchel's ego, mocking our boy Leon as nothing more than a soft, baby-faced child. They marvel at how effortlessly he manipulated the Sylvester family to clear his own path to the top. Virtual enjoys the flattery, even if it means acting like a servant to those trash-tier Sylvesters for now. He downs his drink, savoring the taste of a victory he believes is already set in stone. To him, Leon is a dangerous liability. Who would only drag their noble house into total extinction. He bursts into a maniacal laugh, convinced that his flawless political game has finally crowned him the winner. The celebration continues as he basks in the shallow praise of his companions and subordinates. However, a cautious vassal grows concerned about what the new patriarch plans for Leon's ultimate fate. He warns that the people's deep loyalty to Leon's father might make disposing of the boy quite difficult. Kershaw just leans back with his whiskey, certain that handling the young heir won't be complicated at all. Virtual smirks, already planning to justify the young heir's demise once the deed is finally done. He looks truly unhinged, reminding everyone that dead men and their sons can't exactly talk back. A trash-tier vassal agrees, noting that necromancy hasn't been seen since the founding patriarch's golden age. The liquor flows as they prepare to wash away the last remnants of the true Marbus bloodline. Korcho leads a rowdy toast, officially declaring himself the only rightful patriarch of their fallen house. He chugged straight from the bottle. Savoring the taste of a victory bought with blood and betrayal. His subordinates follow his lead, far too drunk to care about the family they just sold out. The celebration is a total circus, filled with shallow laughter and dancers while the world burns outside. Far from the noise, the real snake in the grass sits quietly in his cold, grand office. Count Alan de Sylvester demands an update, making sure his plan to subjugate the Marbus name stays on track. Alan's scarred subordinate confirms that Kerchel is already upon, leaving only Imperial approval for total war. The Count smirks at how easily everyone fell for his trap, assuming he would stop after one conflict. He treats the entire continent like a game, knocking over pieces as he finds a convenient opening. His man praises his foresight, knowing the Count is always 10 steps ahead of his pathetic rivals. Tapping a portrait, the Count mocks Kerchel as a short-sighted dunce who doesn't realize he is being used. He laughs at the thought of House Marbus finally crumbling tonight under the weight of a trash-tier traitor with a wave of his hand. He orders his men to speed up their plans for the final move. Alan relishes the thought of hearing Leon's cries, eager to finish what he started with the boy's father. Deep in the shadows, the cold atmosphere shifts as a torch flickers against the damp stone walls. A blood-stained blade gleams in the dark, signaling that the time for talk is officially over. Our boy is gasping for air, his lungs burning after that life or death struggle against the darkness. He stares at the trash-tier monster, questioning if this was truly the final trial in this hellhole. Out of nowhere, a sudden flash of light pierces through the pitch-black hallway. The snuffed-out torches ignite all at once, casting long, dancing shadows across the blood-stained masonry. The fire crackles with a strange energy, signaling that the trial has acknowledged his grim victory. Leon wipes the sweat from his brow, finally allowing himself a small moment to breathe. Even the great dark being Marbus is dumbfounded, clearly impressed by the sheer carnage he just witnessed. The little beast leaps forward, cackling that Leon is cut from the same cloth as the ancient madman. Leon's eyes snap wide as he realizes the trial isn't quite finished with him yet. He loses his footing and hits the floor, his strength failing as he sinks into the gore. Marbus is absolutely hyped, claiming our boy has enough grit to survive a camp full of orcs. The little dark being cackles, impressed that Leon didn't hesitate to gut a monster despite its perfect human disguise. Leon finally drags himself up, admitting he'd much rather avoid any more run-ins with those trash-tier green skins. The tiny beast just tilts its head, watching Leon closely, as he tries to shake off the lingering exhaustion. Leon knows orcs despise humans above all else, and he isn't looking for a suicide mission just yet. Marbus gets curious, asking what exactly tipped him off that the last monster was working with the others. Our boy goes quiet for a second, his sharp eyes reflecting the cold reality of the trial he's enduring. He points out the simple truth that while every other torch died, one stayed lit like a beacon. The dark being is satisfied with that answer, giving him the green light to push deeper into the darkness. Turns out Leon noticed the torches burned a different color the moment they stepped into this hellhole. Leon navigates the corridor, noting how the green glow feels far from natural. He explains that the flames flickered with a sickly light, signaling something sinister. Our boy immediately recognized that specific hue as the unmistakable shade of the dead. As he slaughtered the trash-tier goblins, the torches died out one by one. However, he noticed that despite the massacre, a single flame remained stubbornly lit. That's how he realized a lone monster was still lurking, masquerading as a helpless girl. He knew he couldn't progress until that final threat was put down for good. After the kill, Leon takes a breather while the little beast watches him in silence. The dark being is genuinely dumbfounded, calling him cold-blooded for seeing through the trap so easily. Marbus admits he's impressed while Leon just sighs, annoyed that his shirt is ruined yet again. When life is on the line, most people freeze, but our boy is just built different. Leon doesn't waste a heartbeat, acting with a cold efficiency that would make a seasoned assassin blush. He finishes off the last monster, proving he's more than capable of handling these trash-tier threats alone. Marbus stares at him in silence, reassessing the raw potential of the young patriarch standing before him. The dark being is genuinely dumbfounded, realizing Leon's talent goes way beyond just having a massive mono reserve. It's becoming clear that the boy is masking a power that could change everything if fully unleashed. The dark being can't help but smirk, absolutely thrilled to see what kind of chaos his pupil triggers next. Since the first trial is officially over, Marbus brings out a floating grimoire to start the next lesson. The ancient pages flip wildly, glowing with an eerie light as they reveal the next dark requirement. To truly master the family philosophy, Leon learns he must now take the life of a living being. Leon taps the ancient book, ready to dive into the next phase of his dark inheritance. The text reveals the second trial requires him to raise the fallen, leaving our boy momentarily stunned. He stares at the cryptic runes, realizing the path of the Marbus family is paved with the dead. It finally clicks that he is expected to command the undead, a power most would fear to touch. He looks over at the trash-tier goblins he just slaughtered, seeing them now as potential tools. A cold realization washes over him as he prepares to cross a line no normal human would. His eyes begin to glow with a predatory light, signaling the awakening of his latent necromantic talent. The little dark being confirms his suspicions, telling him to focus his gaze on the corpses littering the floor. Following instructions, Leon channels mana into his eyes to see the hidden connections between life and death. As the grimoire pulses with energy, he searches for the ethereal threads linking the souls to the void. Leon channels mana from the grimoire, watching as ethereal energy wraps around the fallen trash-tier goblins. The little dark being explains that in their world, these shimmering threads are known as death lines. Our boy realizes these lines act as a bridge, connecting souls between this world and the next. The mentor confirms his theory and prepares to show him how to manipulate these tethers of existence. With a quick flick, the dark being explains how to separate a lingering soul to revive its spirit. Suddenly, the corpses begin to creak as Leon's mana breathes a twisted new life into their bodies. Glowing marks appear on their foreheads, signaling their reanimation as mindless servants of the Marba's bloodline. The monsters stand tall once more, their eyes burning with a predatory and unnatural hunger. The dark being tells him to observe carefully as he prepares to demonstrate their absolute obedience. One of the reanimated goblins lunges forward, proving that the dead make for much better soldiers. Leon remains unfazed as the reanimated goblin swings, witnessing the results of the branding process firsthand. The dark being explains that this specific brand is what tethers the monster's soul to its new master. Though other methods exist, this is the only way to force these mindless beasts into absolute submission. Our boy stands tall, observing the puppet and realizing the true power of the Marbas bloodline. The mentor decides it is time for Leon to test his own mana and attempt the reanimation himself. However, Leon pauses, a heavy question about the limits of necromancy weighing on his mind. He remembers that human souls are far more stubborn and difficult to bind than those of mere monsters. With a chilling look in his eyes, he asks if he is finally strong enough to reanimate humans. The dark being realizes Leon already has a target, sensing the boy's growing thirst for a very specific vengeance. The dark being smirks, eager to know which unfortunate wretch is about to be denied the peace of death. Leon finally names the target of his wrath, Karchel von Marbas, the man who betrayed his own blood. Our boy hasn't forgotten that his only uncle is the snake responsible for his family's ruin. Meanwhile, the estate halls echo with the hollow laughter of those celebrating a stolen legacy. Karchel is living it up, surrounded by wine and women, while he revels in his newfound power. The party is in full swing, as these trash-tier nobles indulge in every luxury they didn't earn. Clinking his glass, Karchel mocks his late brother, calling the former patriarch a fool for his principles. He truly believes he is a genius of opportunity, convinced that his life is finally smooth sailing. His scarred subordinate agrees, noting that they only need to remove the final heir to secure everything. The henchman reminds his master that the weight of the Marbas name is finally within their grasp. Karchel just sneers, claiming that murdering a mere boy like Leon won't be a problem at all. Karchel is having the time of his life, demanding everyone drink to celebrate his stolen victory. Suddenly, a heavy vibration rattles the room, catching the trash-tier noble completely off guard. A support cable snaps with a sharp crack, sending a massive chandelier plummeting toward the floor. Glass shatters everywhere as the dancers scream and tear their festive night, turning into a chaotic nightmare. Karchel is dumbfounded, wondering how any force could bypass the estate's powerful magical artifacts. He narrows his eyes, sensing that this isn't just some freak accident, but a deliberate act of war. The coward tells his companion to shut up, desperately trying to listen for any signs of an intruder. He shouts into the darkness, convinced that no soul in the territory would dare challenge his authority. His heart nearly stops when a familiar voice mocks his arrogance, asking what gave him such a notion. Arboil Leon finally steps into the light, his glowing eyes promising a debt paid in full. Karchel smirks, finally realizing that the intruder is none other than the nephew he thought was long gone. He signals his trash-tier goons to surround the boy, mocking Leon's status as the house's downtrodden patriarch. Arbolian doesn't flinch, his glowing eyes fixed on the man who betrayed his entire bloodline. He calmly reminds his uncle that the true patriarch of House Marbas has finally returned to claim his due. Karchel tries to play it cool, asking what business brings a stray back at such a late hour. Leon fires back that the ruler never needs a reason to visit a mere vassal or a subject. The traitor's composure cracks as he glares at the boy, realizing Leon isn't the weakling he remembers. He spits out that Leon is far from worthy of the title he so boldly claims to hold. Karchel mockingly asks if the boy is scared of losing the seat he hasn't even truly sat in yet. He laughs like a madman, reminding Leon that his father isn't around to save his skin this time. Our boy reaches out, pulling back the veil to reveal the truth he's been hiding. He knows deep down that in this nest of vipers, he's the only one he can trust. Karchel just laughs, mocking the kid for being dumb enough to walk into a trap all alone. Leon fires back that his uncle is the one being bold by thinking he's solo today. The traitorous uncle sneers, demanding to know what kind of nonsense the boy is trying to pull. Suddenly, the floor begins to tremble, as a suffocating pressure forces the old man to stagger back. Kirchhoff's heart sinks as he realizes this isn't some trash tier spell, but pure magic from the abyss. He senses a chilling darkness, so deep it makes his own petty schemes look like child's play. His eyes widen in pure terror, as a horrifying realization finally starts to dawn on him. 2 hideous undead goblins manifest from the gloom, proving our boy is far from being alone. He confirms the obvious, letting the old man know these monsters are his loyal undead servants. Kirchhoff is completely dumbfounded. Realizing the kid has surpassed even his late brother's peak potential. Our boy reminds him that their house was always meant to be a clan of elite necromancers. The traitorous uncle grits his teeth, his face contorting with a mix of pure envy and desperation. He loses his mind and orders his guards to slaughter those unsightly abominations immediately. The masked subordinates swarm in, their blades drawn as they try to overwhelm the boy with numbers. Leon remains unfazed as a blade swishes past, his sharp eyes tracking their every pathetic move. Suddenly, an undead goblin darts forward, its movements far too fast for any normal human to track. A heavy clang echoes as the summon blocks a strike, proving these aren't just some trash-tier puppets. One trash-tier subordinate is caught off guard when the summon actually fights back with terrifying elite precision. He tries to regain his footing, but the undead goblin is already closing the distance with murderous intent. A single clean arc of dark mana slices through the air, leaving no room for a counterattack. The masked man can't. The masked man can only stare in horror as blood splatters across his vision, ending his pathetic life. Virtual watches his men drop like flies, the heavy thud of bodies echoing through the cold, silent hall. The traitorous uncle is visibly shaken, his smug composure finally crumbling as he witnesses this nightmare firsthand. Our boy's summon is a blur of motion, tearing through the remaining guards like they're nothing but paper. With glowing red eyes, the monster continues its relentless assault, proving it's far superior to any living soldier. Frozen in pure terror, Kirchhoff can only stammer out that his own nephew has become a literal monster. Even amidst the chaotic clashing of blades, the old man realizes that something is fundamentally wrong with this fight. Virtual is completely dumbfounded, realizing that the carnage unfolding before him is anything but normal. Desperate to regain control, he begins channeling his own dark mana into a concentrated sphere of energy. The traitorous uncle finally connects the dots, realizing his nephew is actually wielding the forbidden art of necromancy. He can't wrap his head around how a supposed failure could master a power lost to time. The dark energy crackles in his hand as he prepares to strike back against the rising tide of death. Every fiber of his being is screaming in denial as he faces the overwhelming pressure of Leon's presence. He bellows in rage, calling Leon's display a pathetic mockery of their founding patriarch's legendary strength. Our boy just stares back with cold eyes, asking if it's really that strange for the true patriarch to command the dead. Kirchhoff loses it, screaming that necromancy is dead and buried, something even Leon's father never managed to grasp. He refuses to believe a trash-tier brat could be any different, swearing he won't entertain such nonsense for another second. Leon realizes words are useless and decides it's time to provide some undeniable physical proof. Our boy stares him down, warning his uncle that continuing this path will only lead to ruin. With a flick of his wrist, the air grows heavy as his undead monsters emerge from the shadows. These trash-tier creatures snarl with a hunger that only a true master of the dark arts could command. They dash forward with a terrifying screech, acting as the physical manifestation of the family's ancient doomed. Kirchhoff is completely dumbfounded as he realizes he's been surrounded by the very things he claimed were dead. He struggles to keep his composure, desperately condensing his mana into a single, frantic strike. Screaming for the beast to return to the abyss, he unleashes a desperate wave of purple energy. The blast whams into the summons, momentarily slowing the tide of Leon's overwhelming necromantic pressure. Even as one monster begins to crumble, the traitor realizes he's just delaying the inevitable. Kirchhoff tries to maintain his smug facade while desperately gathering dark mana to fend off the approaching nightmare. However, the undead goblin barely notices the strike, its skull cracking as it continues its relentless advance. The creature lets out a piercing screech, signaling that it has no intention of letting the traitor escape. It lunges forward with terrifying speed, fueled by the necromantic power Leon reclaimed from his family's trial. Kirchhoff is left completely dumbfounded when he sees his desperate attack failed to even slow the beast down. He frantically calls for his subordinates to intervene, but his voice only echoes through the empty hall. A cold sweat breaks out as he realizes he's been abandoned by everyone he used to seize power. Looking down, he sees the severed heads of his subordinates rolling across the floor, proving they were useless. Cursing his fate, he gathers a final surge of purple mana, refusing to go down without a fight. He unleashes a desperate blast against the monster, hoping this last-ditch effort can somehow save his life. Kirchhoff realizes his magic is barely better than a novice's as the undead close in for the kill. He screams about betrayal, but the booze in his system makes his threats sound utterly pathetic. One of the goblins lunges, and our boy's trash-tier uncle is too slow to avoid the strike. The jagged blade slices through the air, aimed right for the man who sold out his family. It sinks deep into his shoulder, and the traitor finally feels the sting of his own failure. He lets out a pained cry, realizing his borrowed power was never enough to stop a true monster. Blood splatters onto the cold stone floor as his life begins. Blood splatters onto the cold stone floor as his life begins to leak away in the dark. Desperate to survive, he tries to manifest a final orb of mana with his trembling, gloved hand. The spell shatters before it can even form, leaving him completely dumbfounded by his own weakness. Gasping for air, he asked Leon how he could turn against family when they're cut from the same cloth. Leon steps forward, recalling a history book he once read with his father about the continent's bloody past. He notes how history only cares about victors and the vanquished, separated by the cold gaze of hindsight. Kurtzhull huffs in disbelief, asking if this boy really thinks he's in any position to give a lecture. Our boy admits that despite his lack of emotions, he still hasn't fully grasped the weight of those words. The traitorous uncle can only gasp for air as his wounds bleed out. His arrogance finally starting to crumble. Leon looms over him, explaining that the book taught him one thing. Forgiveness is a privilege reserved for winners. He reminds Kurtzhull that he was a victor once, back when he chose survival over his own family's blood. It was that same cowardice that led him to stab Leon's father in the back. Just to save himself. Driven to madness, the trash-tier uncle screams for him to shut his mouth, unable to face his own sins. Addressing him by his full title one last time, Leon promises that there will be no mercy, only suffering. Leon raises the family grimoire, declaring he will always cherish the day of his uncle's pathetic defeat. Our boy coldly promises that his final punishment will be stripping away the man's very future. He unleashes his reanimated monsters, showing no hesitation as they leap forward to finish the job. Invoking the Marbus Patriarch's name, Leon delivers a final strike that leaves the traitorous uncle utterly dumbfounded. A heavy thwack rings out as the blow connects, silencing the trash-tier uncle's screams forever. Kurtzhull's hand flops onto the floor, his life fading as he pays the price for his betrayal. Even the little dark being is shocked, remarking that Leon's cold brutality would make even Satan feel uneasy. The spirit wonders how a novice can command the undead with the skill of a veteran necromancer. Leon stands over the corpse, contemplating the dark path he's chosen. While the grimoire floats nearby. Suddenly, our boy has a realization that catches him off guard, breaking his stoic composure for a second. Our boy Leon smirks, having just cooked up a scheme that's bound to cause some serious chaos. Even the little dark being looks concerned, wondering if this new plan is actually amusing or just plain terrifying. Meanwhile, the remaining Marbus vassals gather in the council chamber, completely unaware of the storm heading their way. One elder vassal grumbles about being summoned for yet another meeting so soon, clearly annoyed by the disruption. He looks around and asks if anyone actually knows why the trash-tier uncle called for this urgent gathering. The blonde nobleman admits he's just as clueless, suggesting they wait for the rest of the council. The bald vassal isn't laughing though, as he feels a cold sweat breaking over this sudden ominous summons. His hands tremble as he imagines how Sylvester breaking the peace treaty to wipe them out while they're vulnerable. The elder tries to shut down the paranoia, insisting that no great house would be brash enough to attack. He reminds them that war requires royal approval, finally getting the panicked blonde noble to settle down. The vassals decide to stay put, hoping the trash-tier uncle will clear up their doubts once he arrives. Suddenly, the heavy doors of the council chamber shut with a heavy clunk, sealing everyone inside. Our boy Leon finally makes his entrance, his presence casting a long, suffocating shadow over the entire room. He walks past the stunned blonde noble, who can barely process the sudden shift in the room's atmosphere. The elder vassal starts sweating bullets, whispering frantically about why the boy is here instead of Churchill. As Leon's boots click against the floor, they wonder if he is actually bold enough to challenge the usurper. They cannot fathom what business the rightful heir has here, especially with the family's future hanging by a thread. Leon's eyes glow with a predatory light, signaling that he is no longer the weak kid they once knew. Standing at the head of the table, he asks if they were really expecting to see his uncle instead. He grips the patriarch's chair, coldly informing the dumbfounded council that Kurtle will not be making it today. Leon clarifies that his uncle isn't just late, but physically incapable of showing his face. One of the vassals stammers, clearly needing more detail on what being unable to attend actually means. Leaning back into the patriarch's seat, our boy simply drops the bombshell that the virtual is dead. The blonde nobleman and his bald colleague freeze, their minds racing as they process the impossible news. Leon doesn't stop there, casually admitting that he was the one who personally ended the traitor's life. He stares them down with those predatory eyes, asking if any other council member wants to speak up. The blonde noble is visibly shaken, realizing the power dynamic in the room has shifted for good. Fear spreads like a plague through the room, as the vassals realize they are trapped with a monster. Finally finding his voice, the blonde noble slams the table and demands a real explanation for this madness. He rants about mourning their predecessor, but Leon just watches him like a piece of trash-tier entertainment. The brown-haired noble stammers that even if Leon is the patriarch, he still owes them a proper explanation. Our boy Our boy just stares back with those cold glowing eyes, completely unimpressed by their desperate trash tier barking. He flatly states that Kirchhoff was nothing more than a traitor to the Marbus name, making everyone flinch. Leon details how the man betrayed his father and leaked vital secrets to their enemies in House Sylvester. The blonde noble breaks into a cold sweat as Leon reveals Kirchhoff's pathetic plan to usurp the clan's leadership. With a mocking tilt of his head, Leon wonders why they are so eager to defend a dead snake. He looks around the massive hall, pointing out their misplaced loyalty to a man who is already gone. The blonde noble realizes that Kirchhoff's absence from his own meeting proves Leon isn't just bluffing about the kill. The bald vassal is dumbfounded, wondering how a veteran like Kirchhoff could be taken out by this young kid. Panic sets in as another noble realizes they need to stop mourning and start worrying about their own survival. The brown-haired elder panics, realizing Leon might have taken out without any help at all. He springs up in shock, desperately claiming he had no idea what was going on behind the scenes to save his own skin. He starts cursing the dead traitor and wonders if Leon possesses forbidden magic. The blonde noble gulps hard, feeling the weight of the room shifting against them. He immediately jumps on the bandwagon, swearing he never knew about the old weasel's disgusting plans. Leon just taps his fingers on the table, letting the silence eat away at their remaining nerves. With a cold glare, our boy tells them to shut their mouths and listen. He explains that even if they weren't traitors, their pathetic negligence is still a capital offense. The brown-haired elder realizes they've been baited into a trap, where every answer leads to death. Still, the bald vassal tries to play it cool, asking for actual proof of Kirchhoff's betrayal. Leon remains unfazed as the bald vassal tries to frame him for murdering an innocent man. He stands up, noting that their predictable reactions were exactly what a certain someone had already foreseen. Our boy shoots a quick glance at his demonic companion, who seems to find this drama hilarious. The tiny dark being just snickers, clearly enjoying how these trash-tier nobles are squirming in their seats. Leon's eyes flare with a predatory glow as he decides it's time to end this pathetic charade. He whips out a grim war and prepares to give them the undeniable proof of betrayal they requested. Violent waves of dark mana erupt, making the terrified vassals realize they've pushed their luck too far. Claiming his right as the true heir, Leon prepares to drag a soul back to this realm. The shadows swallow the room, leaving the elders dumbfounded as the air grows heavy with death. Suddenly, a green-skinned goblin leaps from the darkness, serving as the first witness to Leon's absolute power. The goblins swarm out of the shadows, ready to tear apart anyone who dares question their master. Our boy channels his mana into the ancient grimoire. The page is glowing with a forbidden, eerie light. These trash-tier nobles can't believe their eyes, recognizing the terrifying incantation used to command the dead. Suddenly, the air fills with the sickening sound of snapping bones as a familiar corpse begins to stir. Poland is absolutely dumbfounded, wondering if Leon has truly mastered the house's long-forgotten and his eyes widen in pure terror as the reality of their situation finally starts to sink in. Leon calmly calls forth the soul of his traitorous uncle, intending to make him answer for his sins. The reanimated virtual staggers forward, a hollow shell forced to obey the will of the new patriarch. The elders are shaking, unable to comprehend how a mere boy could possess such overwhelming necromantic authority. Leon just stares back coldly, admitting he's getting pretty tired of hearing the same stupid questions over and over. Leon reminds them that necromancy is the very foundation of his house, as his summons begin their hunt. The blonde vassal loses his mind, screaming for the others to run before they are all slaughtered. The bald noble curses his luck, desperately trying to rush out of the room to save his skin. Another elder grabs his companion, frantically urging him to move faster as the shadows close in. His heart stops when the man he was holding suddenly slumps over, soaked in fresh blood. He stands frozen in horror as the body hits the floor, blood spurting everywhere in the silent hall. Turning in a blind panic, the man begs for anyone to help him escape this waking nightmare. The blonde noble is reduced to crawling on the floor, pathetic and begging for mercy he doesn't deserve. He coughs up blood, realizing that his status as a high-ranking vassal won't save him from this carnage. As a dark shadow looms over him, he looks up and realizes our boy is finally standing there. Leon stares them down with glowing eyes, making it clear that this little reunion is far from over. He opens his grim war, commanding these trash-tier nobles to finally listen to their patriarch's final words. Suddenly, the reanimated corpse of Kirchhoff looms over the cowering vassals like a vengeful shadow. The undead traitor's bones crack and pop as he struggles to maintain his gruesome, lurching form. With a sickening gnash of his teeth, the corpse prepares to spill the family's darkest secrets. Our boy demands to know if anyone in the room was actually innocent of his uncle's vile deeds. Kirchhoff's jaw unhinges with a wet crunch, as the necromantic magic forces the truth from his lungs. The former traitor admits that every single person who served the last patriarch turned against him. He confesses that not a single soul was ignorant of his duplicity, sealing the fate of the survivors. Leon simply nods, satisfied that the trash has finally taken itself out by admitting their collective guilt. One blonde noble loses his mind, screaming for mercy and begging the new patriarch for forgiveness. Another traitorous rat offers to confess every single crime just to keep his head on his shoulders. The bald vassal desperately begs for a chance to prove his loyalty, while a goblin looms nearby. Their eyes are filled with pure terror, as they realize there is no escape from this judgment. As the room fills with the screams of the guilty, Leon stands tall before his grim destiny. Our boy looks on with cold indifference, completely unfazed by the pathetic display of these trash-tier nobles. He reaches out his hand, ready to finalize the ritual that will change his bloodline forever. Leon formally proclaims his authority as the rightful patriarch before the remnants of the terrified council. He firmly grasps the ancient Grim War, a doomed relic holding the true path. He firmly grasps the ancient Grim War, a doomed relic holding the true power of his fallen ancestors. With the book in hand, he declares that the dark art of necromancy has finally been restored. Leon stands over the trash-tier nobles he just slaughtered, his family's grimoire hovering like a cold, silent witness. Our boy looks down with total indifference, already planning how to rebuild his house from these bloody ruins. He suddenly asks where Sir Pullen is hiding, causing a nearby servant to flinch in absolute terror. The poor guy peeks from behind a curtain, his soul practically leaving his body at Leon's icy gaze. He stammers that Pullen was dragged to the dungeons under charges of sedition by the previous regime. Leon doesn't waste a second, and commands the trembling man to lead him to the cells immediately. His heavy footsteps echo through the silent manor, signaling that the true master of Marbas has finally returned. He halts before the exit, his presence alone making the air thick with the scent of impending death. With eyes glowing a predatory yellow, he tells the remaining staff they should flee while they still can. He warns that he won't be held accountable for the carnage that follows once his ritual. He warns that he won't be held accountable for the carnage that follows once his ritual truly begins. Leon's warning leaves the remaining subordinates trembling, hoping they're actually smart enough to run for their lives. Meanwhile, in a lavish office, the news of the chaos hasn't quite reached the top players yet. A high-ranking official strides confidently through the room, his every step oozing arrogance and cold calculation. The butler addresses Count Alan de Sylvester as his patriarch, acknowledging his absolute authority in this domain. He hands over a sealed letter, likely containing the latest updates on the political chessboard. Count Alan takes the message, his sharp blue eyes already scanning for any advantage he can exploit. He breaks the seal with practiced ease, eager to see if his schemes are finally bearing fruit. As he reads, his expression shifts, processing the weight of the information regarding the fallen Marbas family. A trash-tier smirk creeps across his face. Realizing everything is going exactly according to his twisted plan, he gloats that even the imperial household has abandoned House Marbas, leaving them ripe for total destruction. The scarred subordinate scoffs. Claiming House Marbas has nothing left but an empty name and faded glory. He continues his mockery, laughing at their pathetic lack of soldiers and resources in the capital. Count Alan agrees, noting that their empty pockets are even more embarrassing than their tiny army. He taps the desk impatiently, deciding it's finally time to move forward with their original scheme. The Count gloats that the upcoming war of noble houses will be the final nail in their coffin. His subordinate pounds his chest, swearing on his life that he won't fail the mission. Alan leans in with a cold stare, asking if there's even a slim chance of them losing. The lackey explains that unless a legendary necromancer magically appears, their victory is absolutely guaranteed. A trash-tier smirk spreads across the couch face as he imagines his rival's total downfall. He snickers to himself, fully convinced that this war is already over before it even started. Deep in the dungeon, a desperate cry for the young master rings out through the damp stone corridors. Pullen drops to his knees, begging for mercy after letting the uncle's trash-tier schemes ruin the family. Arboyle Leon watches coldly as the man grovels, claiming he deserves nothing but a swift execution. He keeps his gaze fixed on the vassal, his green eyes searching for any sign of hidden agendas. Turns out, Pullen was actually the only one brave enough to stand against the uncle's bloody coup. Knowing he needs a solid team, Leon tells him to rise while giving his shoulder a firm squeeze. He explains that there is still plenty of work left, and he definitely needs the man's help. Pullen just blubbers like a child, questioning what a pathetic wretch like him could possibly offer the house. Things get pretty awkward when Leon realizes the guy smells so bad that flies are literally circling him. Leon tells him to go take a long bath before reporting to the Patriarch's office for duty. Leon turns away, telling the man they will discuss the finer details once things have settled down. Pullen is practically glowing with gratitude, overwhelmed that he is finally being acknowledged by his the ruler. He shouts a pledge of eternal fealty as our boy heads off to plan his next move. Standing before the massive windows, Leon is joined by the deceptively cute and fluffy dark being Marbas. The little beast hops onto his shoulder, acting more like a common pet than an ancient dark being. It gives him a lick, silently reminding Leon of the Dark Blood Pact, binding them together forever. The dark being then asks what his next move will be in this high-stakes political game. It leans in close, reminding him that every choice from here on belongs solely to the contractor. Pullen, no longer looking like a trash-tier hobo, flinches when he hears the master's daring strategy. He worries that impersonating his dead uncle to trick the Sylvesters is an incredibly perilous mission. Pullen breaks out in a cold sweat, doubting if anyone could truly mimic his late uncle's twisted presence. Our boy just smirks and asks if his current trick will be enough to settle those nerves. With a swish of his grimoire, a thick, purple miasma begins to swirl and take a terrifying shape. The dark energy coalesces, slowly stitching together the familiar features of the man who betrayed the family. In a flash, the dead man blinks, standing there as a perfect hollow puppet of his former self. The undead Kirkall looms over the poor vassal, radiating an aura of unholy power that freezes his blood. Pullen is absolutely dumbfounded that Leon could be so cold-blooded as to turn his own kin into a tool. Looking at the young patriarch, he realizes Leon is cut from a completely different cloth than his ancestors. Tears of relief and awe well up, as he finally accepts that the legendary necromancy has truly returned. Leon simply confirms the truth with a chilling calm, ready to unleash his new toy on the world. Pullen laments how the heavens were cruel to their house, despite the glory of their ancestors' necromancy. He quickly clears his throat, trying to shake off the overwhelming emotion of seeing his master's return. The loyal vassal warns that House Sylvester will eventually spot the fake if they aren't careful. He argues that a regular undead lacks the personality and handwriting to fool the enemy for long. Our boy just stares back coldly, revealing that this isn't some trashed-tier undead made from a mere cadaver. It turns out he reanimated a doppelganger, a monster he specifically hunted to. Serve as the perfect vessel. The creature begins to manifest its power, capable of replicating memories and abilities with terrifying precision. Pullen is completely dumbfounded as he realizes Leon has planned for every single detail of this deception. With his secret weapon ready, Leon's gaze hardens as he prepares to dismantle his enemies from within. A sharp shing echoes through the room as the stage is set for a bloody reunion. The torchlight flickers in the damp corridor as the echoes of the recent struggle finally fade away. Our boy huffs heavily, trying to steady his heart rate after nearly falling for a deadly trap. He stands over the body of the girl, his sword lowered now that the threat is neutralized. Leon wipes the sweat from his brow and asks the dark being for the name of this creature. The dark being identifies the fallen monster as a doppelganger, a master of deception and mimicry. He explains that these foul things can perfectly replicate a victim's memories, appearance, and even their skills. They typically prey on lost travelers, wearing a friendly face to lure their targets into false security. After murdering the original, the monster proceeds to devour every companion, until no one is left alive. Leon stares at the corpse, contemplating how such a terrifying ability could serve his own dark purposes. The dark being grins, amused that Leon is truly cut from the same ruthless cloth as his ancestor Wellen. The doppelganger's eyes flare with a sinister glow as the dark energy begins to swirl around her. Our boy watches as the creature's form starts cracking under the weight of his growing necromantic power. The dark being mocks the late patriarch for leaving such a twisted gift behind for his sole descendant. Wisps of purple mana cling to the monster, binding its soul to Leon's will as a new servant. Leon stands ready, clutching his grimoire, while the dark being observes the successful binding of the shape-shifting creature. Leon looks back and asks the dark being if he's actually supposed to feel pleased with this result. The little lion confirms it, knowing this mimicry skill is a total game-changer for their future plans. It turns out this mimic can only copy those Leon has met, and stronger mages are totally off-limits. The dark being asks if he's ready. To accept these restrictive terms and finalize the contract right now. Despite his raw talent, the dark being reminds him he's still just a fledgling in the world of necromancy. The dark being warns that trapping his uncle's soul is pointless if he can't maintain the hold long term. Our boy is advised to ditch the estate for now, but he immediately shuts that suggestion down. Leon refuses to turn his back on his bloodline, standing firm as his purple mana begins to flare. He knows that without him, the innocent people will be slaughtered by the trash-tier invading Sylvester forces. When asked if he'd die for them, Leon's eyes glow with a resolve that leaves the dark being dumbfounded. The ancient entity can't understand why Head possessed such a misguided sense of loyalty to his household. Realizing Leon won't budge, the little lion decides they should focus on the more urgent matters at hand. A massive surge of dark energy erupts as the soul of the traitor begins to manifest before them. The dark being urges him to finish the job and turn that pathetic wretch into a permanent undead servant morphed. It turns out this creature was once a legendary minion under Wellen, making it a top-tier addition. The ancient dark being warns that this particular summon is a total handful, with a seriously vexing temperament. A blinding flash of purple mana consumes the room as the forbidden ritual reaches its peak. Our boy Leon commands the souls of the dead to heed the call of the Marbus air. Thick smoke hisses as a powerful silhouette begins to manifest from the swirling dark energy. The summoned warrior finally stands tall, looking like a top-tier thread cut from a much darker cloth. The little lion immediately thwacks him, barkingly telling the spirit to wake up from his idle slumber. He scolds the spirit for being a fool, demanding he change his form so they can actually understand him. The warrior stands there looking completely dumbfounded, while trying to wrap his head around his new reality. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off as he realizes he needs a better way to communicate with his new master. Crow collapses hands together, focusing his spiritual energy to begin the complex transformation process. Dark mana swirls around his body as he sheds his monstrous form for something far more human. He grumbles about being insulted by a mere stray cat. While his facial features start to shift, the little lion loses his mind, screaming that the spirit must have a literal death wish. Our boy Leon watches as the spirit calmly reminds the fuming cat that he is already dead. The transformation is flawless, creating a perfect double that could fool even the sharpest of eyes. Later, Poland suggests that if they mimic his uncle's habits, they can trick their enemies completely. He vows to handle the details himself, guaranteeing that this high-stakes ruse will actually succeed. Leon gives a satisfied smirk, hearing exactly what he needs to finally secure his family's future. Poland leans in, asking if he might pose one final, heavy question to his young patriarch. He warns that the Sylvesters will definitely return, wondering why Leon doesn't just flee to survive. Poland suggests a temporary retreat, hoping they can find a solution far away from the impending storm. Our boy Leon simply stares back, stating that his only duty is to protect the Marbus name. Poland is visibly shaken but vows his loyalty, still curious about what truly fuels such intense resolve. Leon admits that he spent plenty of time thinking about that very question himself lately. He confesses there's no grand, noble purpose, just a simple desire to understand what being worthy means. Poland looks completely dumbfounded. As Leon explains, he's just buying time to find his own path. With a subtle smirk, it's clear he's ready to play this dangerous game until the very end. Leon makes it clear he intends to crush anyone who dares to steal from his family. He reflects on Rune's past failures, hoping that avoiding those same mistakes will finally reveal his true purpose. A faint, rare smile touches our boy's face, as he finds a moment of clarity in his resolve. Later in his private quarters, Crow bluntly points out how far the prestigious House Marbus has actually fallen. Dark being Marbus immediately loses it, barking that the summon needs to show some respect to the contractor. The little dark being is fuming, but Leon just looks confused as to why. Formalities even matter right now. Exasperated, the ancient mentor asks if Leon is just naturally trashed here at picking up on social cues. Leon looks a bit sheepish, admitting he's been told he's insensitive to the room more than a few times. The little lion hops down, explaining that Crow was once the legendary familiar of the great progenitor Wellen. Leon realizes that this powerful summon is essentially a family heirloom passed down through his bloodline. Turns out Crow was the go-to assassin for the legendary progenitor, specializing in silent, lethal work. Our boy figures that a shape-shifting killer would be the ultimate tool for any high-stakes political hit. Crow smugly claims he's way more useful than a certain trash-tier cat with a massive ego. While the little dark being tries to bite Crow's head off, Leon stays focused on the mission ahead. He asks if the spirit can mimic his dead uncle, and Crow confidently says it's incredibly simple. The lion immediately corrects his terrible idiom, calling him a total ignoramus for mixing up cake and snakes. Crow is genuinely dumbfounded why anyone would prefer sugary human treats over the refined taste of venom. Leon just shrugs it off, deciding it's better not to argue with the eccentric tastes of ancient spirits. A sudden knock at the door breaks the silence, signaling that an unexpected visitor has arrived. Leon remains on guard, questioning who would come seeking the young patriarch so late at night. It is Poland, the only loyal vassal left, looking absolutely frantic as he announces his urgent arrival. Poland hands over the sealed letter, while the little dark being watches with a look of pure annoyance. The declaration begins with a heavy insult, claiming the Marbus family has neglected its ducal duties for centuries. Count Alan de Sylvester then officially challenges the house to a war, seeking to claim their territory. The trash-tier noble smugly offers a fake choice, demanding a total surrender to avoid an all-out massacre. If Leon refuses to bow, the Sylvester army will march within a month to destroy everything left. Our boy finishes reading the ultimatum, knowing the Emperor's pet just signed his own death warrant. Dark being Marbus senses the coming conflict. Relishing the chaos that is about to unfold. Leon notes they only have a month, prompting the little dark being to mockingly ask if he is scared. Poland desperately suggests gathering their forces to flee, but he completely misinterprets our boy's cold intentions. Dark mana begins to swirl around Leon as his eyes glow with a predatory, ancient intensity. He does not have the patience to wait a month, so he simply incinerates the ultimatum with flames. The dark being warns him that facing an entire army is a different beast than dealing with his trash-tier uncle. When asked if he will truly stand his ground against hundreds, Leon's gaze remains unshakable and cold. A dark smirk plays on his lips as he confidently claims they will make it through just fine. Leon summons his skeletal legion, deciding that this time he will snuff out every life without any mercy. Market gossip spreads like wildfire as the locals whisper about virtual vanishing and the dark omens looming over. The commoners can't help but worry if the ruler is even holding it together after such tragedy. They doubt if our boy actually has the grit to weather the storm that's brewing for House Marbus. They doubt if our boy actually has the grit to weather the storm that's brewing for House Marbes. One man reminds them that he is Rune's son, trusting that the bloodline's strength won't fail him now. The memory of the Sylvester soldiers storming the gates still haunts them, making them wish history doesn't repeat. Suddenly, Pullen clears his throat, catching the gossiping peasants completely off guard and sending chills down their spines. With a cold glare, he warns them that loose lips sink ships, reminding them to watch their mouths. Leon stands right behind him, looking every bit the part of a cold patriarch with his demonic companion. The terrified men immediately bow, stammering apologies for their idle talk while trying to save their own skins. Leon just watches the pathetic display, thinking about how unsavory this entire political mess has truly become. One of the commoners tries to play the sympathy card, acting like losing an uncle is a total tragedy. Our boy just shuts that down, claiming his uncle is merely sick to keep the public narrative controlled. He gives them a charming smile, telling the trash-tier gossipers there is absolutely no reason to worry about it. As he walks away, he knows that to truly fool his enemies, he has to trick his allies first. Leon orders Pullen to keep the surviving vassals quiet, ensuring no leaks about what really went down. Pullen is all too happy to serve, wondering why the young patriarch even bothered coming to the town center. Leon admits he appreciates the help, but some things just require a personal touch and his own eyes. His fluffy demonic companion suddenly perks up, sensing something interesting nearby that they have been looking for. The little lion points out a massive surge of magical energy coming from a building just up ahead. A suspicious structure looms over them, hiding secrets that our boy is itching to uncover. Leon tells Pullen to stay put and wait patiently for his return. Pullen is dumbfounded by the request, but Leon orders him to seal the door once he's inside. With a cold glare, our boy makes it clear that absolutely no one enters or escapes this place. The door creaks shut as Leon steps into the shadows, leaving his loyal vassal behind. Inside, the place is a total wreck, with broken furniture and bloodstains telling a grim story. The windows are painted with gore, proving that whatever happened here was nothing short of a massacre. Leon ignores the trashed hair workers desperately scrubbing away the blood, his focus shifting elsewhere. A pair of twitching animal ears catches his attention, confirming he's found exactly what he's looking for. He asks his fluffy mentor if this is the one, and the little lion confirms the target. There sits a bandaged beastman, the mysterious prize our boy has been hunting through the city. Our boy notices the brutal scars covering the man, proof he survived more than just a common brawl. This beastman, Walter, possesses a raw strength that even a trash tavern can't fully hide from Leon. The fluffy mentor laments that such immense talent is being wasted under the thumb of incompetent fools. Leon stands before the kneeling warrior, who seems more concerned with etiquette than his own bleeding wounds. Walter bows his head in shame, apologizing for the rowdy guests who turned the establishment into a graveyard. While Leon remains silent, the surrounding staff watches like vultures, waiting for any excuse to exert their power. Suddenly, the woman in white delivers a brutal kick, berating Walter for his disrespectful tone toward nobility. She quickly switches to a sycophantic smile, apologizing to Leon for letting a lowly beastman greet him. Our boy's gaze sharpens as he observes the irony of a trash-tier human, abusing a gifted warrior. She slaps Walter again, calling him an insufferable mongrel while trying to suck up to the young patriarch. The tavern woman tries to play it cool by announcing Leon's status to the entire room. Walter keeps his head low, apologizing for his ignorance since he is just a newcomer in this territory. Our boy doesn't care for the drama, and simply asks the trash-tier woman for a moment of her time. Thinking she has hit the jackpot, the lady acts all delighted and offers the ruler her full attention. Leon shuts her down instantly, making it clear he has absolutely nothing to say to a person like her. He points toward the beastman, knowing that his fluffy mentor sensed massive potential hidden within this broken warrior. If Leon can recruit him, the Marbes household would finally gain a vassal with strength beyond measure. Walter remains dumbfounded on the floor, unable to process why a high noble would even notice him. He stares in disbelief, wondering if this young kid is truly the legendary head of the Marbes family. Leon's hand begins to squish with dark mana as he prepares to show why his name carries such weight. Walter is completely stunned as the dark mana begins to envelop his battered and broken body. The energy seeps deep into his skin, instantly mending the gashes left by his previous tormentors. With a faint hiss, the magic finishes its work, leaving his chest perfectly smooth and scar-free. Walter stares at his hands in disbelief, wondering why a high noble would waste magic on a slave. Leon ignores the confusion and asks the beastman once more for a moment of his time. The tavern proprietress watches with a cold sweat, sensing that this noble is far from ordinary. She quickly interrupts, claiming the beastman is her personal property, and that Leon must deal with her. This trash-tier woman smugly insists that her slave has no right to give away his time to anyone. Leon realizes she clearly missed his uncle's execution otherwise. She wouldn't dare speak so boldly to him. Our boy just smirks, deciding to entertain her for a moment, since he actually has a few questions. Leon questions since when his family allowed slavery, making Walter realize the power dynamic has shifted. He then demands to know why this woman dares address him by a mere childhood title. Our boy narrows his eyes, sensing something deeper behind her disrespectful tone and sudden hesitation. The proprietress trembles as she realizes the terrifying weight of the true patriarch standing before her. Even the trash tier staff can feel the suffocating pressure of Leon's dark mana filling the room. Leon summons his grimoire, reminding everyone that he is the rightful ruler of House Marbus. Dark being Marbus just grins, clearly enjoying how his bold contractor puts these commoners in their place. The ancient dark being warns that he won't tolerate any more disrespect toward the bearer of his pact. Leon makes it clear that Walter isn't the only one he intends to liberate from this dump. With a final glare, he commands her to free every single slave she currently holds captive. Leon gives her a strict 10-minute ultimatum, making it clear his grace won't be offered twice. The proprietress just smirks, her initial terror replaced by a sudden sinister surge of confidence. She mockingly asks if our boy is actually prepared for the chaos that follows his demands. The woman even feigns an apology for neglecting his title, clearly trying to provoke the ruler. Leon remains unfazed, calmly noting that he has heard far worse insults from much more dangerous people. He trembles, wondering why a powerful noble would show such kindness to a supposedly worthless slave. Suddenly, the proprietress snaps her fingers, signaling that the time for diplomacy has officially ended. Trash-tier thugs swarm from the shadows, surrounding Leon and Walter with whatever weapons they could find. Thinking Virtual still holds the reins, they charge forward, convinced they can easily overpower the patriarch. Leon opens his grimoire as a trash-tier thug attempts a desperate sneak attack from behind. Our boy doesn't even flinch, his eyes glowing as he channels the dark mana of his ancestors. A pillar of necrotic energy erupts, signaling that the real nightmare for these fools is just beginning. Suddenly, savage monsters crawl out of the shadows, answering the call of their new master. The summoned beasts tear through the thugs, turning the tavern into a literal slaughterhouse in seconds. The proprietress watches in pure horror, realizing she just picked a fight with a literal monster. Leon notices his own dagger is chipped and decides it's time for a quick equipment upgrade. He casually asks one of his summoned orcs to lend him a blade for the upcoming mess. The monster obeys instantly, handing over a fresh sword as if it were the most natural thing. With a better weapon in hand, Leon prepares to finish cleaning up this bottom-tier establishment. Leon carves through the trash-tier thugs with surgical precision, leaving nothing but a trail of blood. The proprietress is completely dumbfounded, realizing she seriously messed up by underestimating this supposed little boy. Our boy stands amidst the carnage as his summons turn the tavern into a literal graveyard. Walter watches the massacre with a cold sweat, his red eyes filled with pure disbelief and confusion. Leon addresses the beastman directly, dismissing the idea that his mercy was just some random act. He tells the boy that despite his low status, he's actually a vital piece for the upcoming war. Walter is skeptical, wondering what use a powerful noble would have for a broken drifter like him. He stares at his reflection, haunted by the fact that he's been shunned everywhere he goes. Dark memories of being treated like a subhuman animal start to resurface, fueling his internal trauma. He remembers his younger self crying and begging for mercy from people who only wanted to hurt him. Walter remembers being a punching bag for the local trash-tier kids who blamed him for their ruined harvest. Back then, he was just a confused kid lying in the mud, unable to grasp why the world hated him. The human children just laughed, finding sick joy and watching a helpless beastman suffer for no reason. He was completely innocent, yet the constant torment started to burn a hole right through his soul. Something finally snapped inside him, and a surge of raw power sent his tormentors scrambling back in fear. He begged them to just leave him be, but the cycle of hatred had already gone too far. Looking at their terrified faces, he finally realized that his only sin was being born different from them. The boy let out a primal scream as his latent power exploded, demanding to know why they chose violence. Even as he became the target of their pure, unadulterated hatred, a single tear fell for his lost innocence. Eventually, he stood over their corpses, finally understanding that being naive was a luxury he could never afford. Walter is absolutely dumbfounded as he stares at the carnage, wondering if he really caused all this destruction himself. He recoils in horror, terrified that he might actually be the heartless monster everyone always claimed he was. Back in the present, our boy Leon stands calm, while his monstrous summons keep the trash-tier staff pinned down. The proprietress screams in a panic, claiming his little tantrum won't ever make Kirchel surrender the family title. Leon just listens coldly as she calls him a useless lordling who doesn't have the guts to stop them. He admits she might be right for now, but his gaze proves he is already miles ahead of her. Dark mana begins to swirl around his hand as he decides he's done being a victim to their injustice. The air grows heavy with death as he vows to finally become a patriarch worthy of the Marba's name. His summons loom over the terrified woman, showing her exactly what happens when you cross the wrong noble. With a chilling smirk, Leon tells her she simply has no place in his future vision for the estate. The trashed-hair proprietress loses her mind, screeching that an uppity brat like Leon will never truly rule here. Leon doesn't even blink, stepping over the fresh blood of the thugs who dared to stand in his way. He remains cold and detached, his mind already focused on the next piece of his grand plan. Our boy turns his attention to Walter, the beast man who has been watching this slaughter with wide eyes. Walter realizes he is looking at a stone-cold killer, yet he finds himself oddly captivated by Leon's presence, standing amidst the corpses of his former tormentors. The beastman. Standing amidst the corpses of his former tormentors, the beastman wonders why he feels so safe near this monster. With a rare, subtle smile, Leon asks the boy if he is ready to help him reclaim his legacy. He makes it clear that he has a specific use for Walter's latent power in the coming war. Before swearing his total allegiance, Walter asks if he can seek one answer from his potential new master. A surge of blue energy fushes around Walter as he prepares to show Leon his true worth. Walter's mana flares up with a low hiss as he prepares to reveal his true identity. He stands tall, revealing he is a cub of the dark being wolf tribe, the most reviled beast folk. The beastman asks if he is doomed to live in shame like a feral beast forever. Leon doesn't skip a beat, assuring the boy that those days of trash-tier treatment are officially over. Walter is completely dumbfounded, never expecting a noble to offer him anything but a cold shoulder. Our boy admits he doesn't know the full history of the tribe's suffering or their complex struggles. However, he makes it clear that he won't tolerate any more baseless prejudice against his people. Leon declares that from this moment on, Walter will serve as a trusted vassal of House Marbus. Looking at the patriarch's back, the beastman realizes he finally found a master worth following. Leon gives his word, sealing a pact that will change the fate of the entire continent. Walter is moved to tears, as the ruler officially acknowledges his worth for the first time. Leon offers him a position as a trusted vassal, finally giving the boy a real purpose. Standing amidst the tavern carnage, our boy gives his word to protect the beastman from further harm. Overwhelmed by the sudden kindness, the former tavern help can't hold back his emotions any longer. They seal the deal with a firm grip, marking the start of a legendary partnership. Seeing the voice shock, Leon playfully asks if his silence is a sign of agreement. Walter tearfully confirms his loyalty, ready to serve the Marbus name until his very last breath. Meanwhile, far away in the grand capital, the majestic spires of the Archive Empire touch the clouds. News of the Marbus Patriarch's return travels fast, reaching the highest levels of imperial power. Emperor Esteban looks absolutely exhausted as he prepares to deal with the chaos our boy just unleashed. Meet Louis von Archheim, the crown prince who looks like he's never worked a day in his life. Standing over his exhausted father, the Prince Regent demands to know why this vessel is interrupting their peace. Eldoris is shaking in his boots as he delivers an urgent letter from the Sylvester household. Louis is visibly annoyed, wondering why he should even care about the petty squabbles of a mere trash-tier count. Meanwhile, Emperor Esteban looks like he's one bad news report away from a total mental collapse. Desperate to save his skin, the vassal begs for forgiveness, and promises he's actually brought some incredible news. That definitely gets the prince's attention, making him curious about what could possibly be considered glad tidings. Eldoris knows Louis is the most dangerous man in the empire, and failing him means instant death. A dark smirk plays on the prince's lips the moment he hears the name of House Marbus mentioned. It turns out this is the very family Louis has loathed for years, one of the infamous 3 houses of Abyss. Eldoris suggests the prince back House Sylvester to finally wipe out their shared enemy for good. Louis finds the idea intriguing, his mind already spinning with potential political gains. He remembers the terrifying necromancy of House Marbus, a power that once made the continent tremble. Eldoris insists the current Marbus line is trashed here and lacks any heir capable of wielding dark magic. Satisfied, the prince gives the green light to proceed with this little gambit against the grave robbers. The vassal rushes out to execute the plan, leaving the ambitious prince to his dark thoughts. Louis smirks, relishing the chance to finally pluck this ancient thorn from the empire's side. He looks at his father, the emperor, who seems completely checked out from reality at this point. Reaching out, the prince prepares to seize the ultimate authority he has craved for so long. With the emperor a mere puppet, Louis knows the entire realm will soon be his to command. Back at the estate, Leon gathers his inner circle to begin the real work of restoring their fallen glory. Pullen approaches Walter, explaining that the trash-tier commoners are still far too prejudiced against his beastman features. He fastens a red gem necklace around the boy's neck, insisting they can't afford to ignore public opinion yet. Suddenly, the artifact pulses with mana, causing the wolf's ears to vanish as the illusion takes hold. Walter is left completely dumbfounded by the change while Pulling warns him never to hinder the ruler's cause. The old vassal nods in satisfaction, pleased that the young warrior understands the weight of his new role. Leon watches the display from his desk, his mind already calculating the next move in his grand strategy. He breaks his silence, demanding that their oaths of fealty become something far more substantial than mere spoken words. With a cold, piercing gaze, he asks if they are truly prepared to offer him their undying, absolute loyalty. Pullen nearly bursts with emotion, tearfully swearing that his entire existence is dedicated solely to the Marbus name. Pullen grabs Leon's hands, tearfully swearing to dedicate his very life to the House of Marbus. Our boy remains stone-faced as the old man begs for a single chance to fulfill his special oath. Watching from the sidelines, Crow is genuinely impressed by how easily the new master handles his subjects. The ancient spirit notes that subjugation is the family way, watching Leon bend the vassal to his will. Walter chimes in, admitting that he also feels a deep sense of loyalty toward his new savior. The young beastman stands tall beside the weeping Pulling, ready to follow Leon into whatever the abyss awaits. However, Walter is left dumbfounded when Leon starts talking to thin air, unaware of the spirits nearby. Leon ignores the confusion, and proposes they all strike a formal pact bound by their very mana. He warns them that refusing this contract means they have no place by his side in the future. Walter breaks into a cold sweat, realizing this pact is far more serious than a simple verbal promise. Leon explains that a monobound pact is a covenant that weaves their magic forces into an unbreakable pattern. This spiritual bond allows the parties to share secrets that must stay buried in the dark forever. Our boy rises from his seat, ready to initiate the ritual that will cement his new inner circle. He stands before his subordinates, flanked by his spectral guardian and his ancient demonic mentor. Looking them dead in the eye, he declares that the time for talk is over, and they must begin. Dark energy erupts from his body, the swoosh of mana signaling the start of the soul-binding ceremony. Ghostly hands emerge from the gloom, presenting the scrolls that will hold their eternal oaths. Walter and Pullen stare at the glowing contract, feeling the sheer weight of the magic pressing down. The small dark being mutters to himself, watching the scene with the intensity of a predator. With a sudden burst of power, the beast sheds its cute disguise and reveals its true, monstrous form. The air vibrates with a heavy sound as the ancient entity manifests its terrifying, soul-crushing presence. The dark being declares its role as the supreme witness to this blood-soaked and mana-bound pact. Walter and Pullen look absolutely dumbfounded, realizing their souls are now officially on the line. Our boy remains cold as ice, his glowing eyes proving he is the one truly in control. The sheer scale of the beast dwarfs them. All as the sovereign of the undead finally rises. It looms over the group, radiating a pressure that would easily crush any trash-tier warrior. The new vassals can barely breathe, wondering if they have just signed a permanent deal with the dark being. Leon is not impressed and tells the massive bees to cut the theatrics and get to business. He steps forward, demanding the ancient dark being show his new subordinates the respect they have earned. The beast huffs in amusement, accepting that everyone here has finally acceded to the dark pact. The ancient beast warns that the price of this pact is nothing less than their very souls. Pullen gulps heart, swearing to himself that he would never even dream of betraying such a terrifying master. He realizes this must be the legendary dark being that the ruler of the house once contracted with. It explains how our boy wields such overwhelming necromancy, standing calm, while the air itself vibrates with power. Walter is nearly crushed by the sheer density of the mana, his beastman instinct screaming at the danger, even though his kind is naturally attuned to energy. This dark pressure freezes him right in his tracks. As the beast looms, Pullen can't help but wonder what kind of monster Leon has truly become. Suddenly, the massive shadow begins to swirl and shrink, condensing its terrifying presence into a tiny form. The legendary sovereign of the undead transforms into a small fluffy ball of fur with a smug expression. Walter is left completely dumbfounded, wondering if this cute little kitty is really the same world-ending dark being. Pullen quickly shuts Walter up before the kid says something that gets them both obliterated. The tiny dark being just licks its paw, casually asking what the beastman was muttering about. Pullen plays it off, claiming the boy was simply overwhelmed by the dark being's majestic and terrifying presence. The ancient entity actually buys the flattery, letting out a smug smirk at the supposed praise. It warns them to keep its existence a secret, since knowledge is a weapon in this brewing war. The dark being notes that those trash-tier nobles never actually cared about Leon's traitorous uncle to begin with. Walter is confused, wondering why anyone would bother with a man as pathetic as his Kirchwell. He suddenly remembers a mysterious letter the tavern proprietress was supposed to deliver to the late traitor. Our boy realizes this is the lead they need, even if Walter doesn't know the location. Luckily, Crow manifests from the shadows, smugly revealing that he knows exactly where the letter is hidden. Crow hauls in a heavy chest, mocking the group for nearly forgetting to take the spoils of war. Inside lies a mountain of glittering gems, proving the tavern was hiding a fortune behind its drab exterior. The little dark being gets a sharp reality check when Leon calls him out for being a greedy minion. Our boy explains that Crow simply believes everything in that trash tavern now belongs to the ultimate victor. As the group gathers around, Leon begins rummaging through the treasure while his subordinates watch with bated breath. His sharp eyes suddenly lock onto something hidden, sensing a prize far more valuable than mere gold. Buried deep beneath the jewels is the sealed letter, the physical proof of the conspiracy they've been hunting. Leon holds the document high, confidently announcing to his crew that they finally have the lead they needed. Even the ancient dark being grudgingly admits that the shadowy spirit can actually be useful once in an eon. With the mystery finally in his hands, our boy prepares to read the contents and expose the truth. Count Alan's letter is a blatant declaration of war, claiming how Sylvester is merely serving the Emperor's will. The royal guards stand as enforcers, while the document accuses the Marbus line of neglecting their imperial duties. The Count's smug ultimatum gives them 1 month to surrender before their house is forcibly absorbed. Our boy stares at the signature, knowing the trash tier Count is finally stepping into his trap. Walter and Pauline are left dumbfounded, realizing the political pressure on their young patriarch has reached a boiling point. Leon casually questions if a month is even enough time for his enemies to say their final goodbyes. A sinister look crosses his face as he admits an amusing idea has just crossed his mind. Since he can now command the dead, he figures this war might actually be some decent entertainment. He glances back at the legendary spirit, already weaving a scheme that will leave his enemies trembling. Crow remains silent and confused, having no clue what kind of chaos his master is currently cooking up. Our boy tells his fluffy little dark being that he finally has a specific mission for it to handle. Meanwhile, a messenger informs the trash tier Count Alan that the declaration of war has officially been delivered. The subordinate laughs, while describing how the pathetic Churchill practically begged for his life like a total weasel. Count Alan finds it hilarious, imagining the traitor is currently drowning in regret for his past choices. However, he quickly turns serious, noting that they need to keep the old man alive for the time being. To the Count, Churchill is just a useful idiot who keeps the Mar base power weak and easily manageable. He then casually asks about the whereabouts of the rightful heir, wondering if the boy is still breathing. His man smugly assumes that Churchill has already disposed of Leon, since there has been no news. The Count is satisfied with the report, believing his path to total control is finally clear of obstacles. Still, the messenger wonders why the ruler ever felt threatened by a mere 14-year-old kid. Count Alan cuts off his man's trash talk, demanding an answer to a much deeper, darker question. He stares him down, asking what the absolute worst injustice a human can ever face is. The messenger breaks a sweat, admitting he's just a simple soldier without any fancy philosophical answers. The Count remains silent for a beat, his cold expression hinting at the grim reality he's seen. He explains it's the despair of facing an unstoppable foe while your entire world just crumbles away. To him, there's no agony greater than being completely powerless against a force you can't even touch. He then probes further, asking his subordinate what he thinks actually triggers such a pathetic state of existence. It all boils down to raw, inborn talent, so massive that normal people can't even look at it. The messenger is dumbfounded, wondering what kind of insane talent a little brat like Leon could possibly possess. Alan warns him not to be stupid, since the kid carries the blood of the legendary Wellan. The messenger bows low, accepting that they must be ready for any nightmare scenario the Marbus bloodline brings. Back at the manor, the office has turned into a bizarre spectacle that even the double finds highly amusing. Crow explains how he's perfectly mimicking our boy's speech and memories, despite human language once feeling totally alien. He starts trash-talking the ancient dark being, claiming he's far more useful than a grumpy little house cat. The fluffy beast finally snaps and starts pummeling the double, his tiny paws moving in a blur of rage. Crow just smiles through the assault, clearly satisfied with how easily he can provoke the legendary entity. The dark being roars in absolute fury, refusing to let a mere summoned spirit treat him like a trash-tier worm. Walter is left completely dumbfounded by the chaos, sweating as he questions the sanity of his new allies. Pullen quietly advises the young beastman that staying silent is the only way to survive this boisterous household. Ignoring the madness, Leon grips his sword, focused on the fact that they only have 1 month left. Leon hands over a blade, officially putting the pressure on the young beastman to finally step up. Our boy makes it clear that the clock is ticking for him to prove his hidden potential. Walter realizes that if he doesn't show some serious results, he'll be tossed aside like trash. Leon doesn't sugarcoat it, admitting he has zero interest in keeping a subordinate who's destined to perish. Feeling the weight of the moment, Walter squeezes the hilt, his resolve hardening into something unbreakable. He swears to crush every obstacle just to earn a permanent spot by his new master's side. The kid even gets bold, asking for a single wish once he becomes the house's top swordsman. Leon just gives a rare smile, giving his word as a noble to honor that future request. Pullen cuts through the heavy tension with a polite cough, ready to get down to actual business. The loyal vassal offers to personally oversee the training, and Leon happily leaves the beastman in his hands. Leon decides it's time to move out, signaling the start of their next phase. The little fluff ball on his shoulder reminds him that even a patriarch has plenty of room to grow. Our boy takes the critique in stride, leading his small crew toward the training grounds. They arrive at the training hall, a place where sweat and steel define a warrior's worth. The air suddenly fills with the sharp ring of metal as the sparring session kicks off. Walter goes all out, clashing blades with a sparring partner to prove he isn't some trash-tier recruit. The beastman grits his teeth, his red eyes burning with a desperate need to survive the Abyss regimen. Leon decides to spice things up, channeling his dark mana to summon a much deadlier challenge. A skeletal warrior rises from the shadows, ready to test if the kid is truly cut from the same cloth. Without a second of hesitation, Walter lunges forward, aiming to crush the undead threat before him. Walter taps into his latent beastman instincts, his eyes glowing with a newfound chilling intensity during the fight. He tears through the undead soldiers like they are nothing, proving he is far from a trash-tier recruit. After the dust settles, the kid stands there gasping for air, completely drained from the brutal trial. Recognizing the gap in their status, Walter drops to one knee and bows deeply before his new master. Leon welcomes him to the house and declares that he will now serve as his very first knight. The weight of the title sinks in as the young beastman remains silent, processing his sudden rise. He looks up with a look of absolute loyalty, ready to die for the man who saved him. A month flies by, and our boy stands ready with his crew as the war finally begins. An enemy force appears on the horizon, bringing a message that reeks of arrogance and impending bloodshed. Count Alan rants about how Leon's refusal to surrender will bring nothing but ruin to his innocent subjects. Leon stares ahead with cold determination, knowing the long-awaited clash for his family's honor has finally begun. Poland curses the enemy, calling them nattering jackals who possess absolutely no concept of honor or dignity. The ancient dark being warns our boy not to be baited, sensing only cowardice hidden behind their roars. Poland gulps nervously as the sheer weight of the impending battle starts to crush his resolve. Looking at Count Alan's massive army, he realizes House Marbus is at a disadvantage in every way. Leon remains unfazed, reminding his vassal that the enemy's internal scheme has already been completely dismantled. Poland wonders if he is referring to the traitorous Kirchel, whose death flipped the entire script. He admits that while Kirchel would have surrendered immediately, he worries if one death can shake them. The dark being scoffs at their fragility, noting how easily mortal hearts crumble when their plans go south. As Count Alan hesitates, the dark being explains that once doubt takes hold, their military might is already halved. Poland nervously admits that even at half strength, the enemy's numbers are still way too high for comfort. The ancient dark being just smirks, claiming any worthy contractor of his would crush them regardless of the odds. He tells the trembling vassal to have faith since Leon is far more powerful than he realizes. Our boy wears a confident grin, already knowing how he will dismantle the trash-tier army waiting outside. Seeing that unshakable resolve, Poland finally snaps out of it and shouts his absolute loyalty to his master. The dark being watches with a sharp eye, sensing that the stage is set for a truly legendary performance. Even the ancient entity finds himself genuinely shocked by the sheer talent radiating from the young patriarch. As Crow watches from the sidelines, Walter begins to channel a massive surge of mana. The air hisses as raw power swirls and crystallizes, proving the boy is cut from a different cloth. Looking at the display, the dark being realizes this generation might actually surpass the legends of the past. Dark being Marbus taps the ground, signaling the start of a grueling training session for the new recruit. Suddenly, a swarm of undead soldiers surges forward with glowing red eyes, ready to tear everything apart. Our boy sits calmly in the center, a massive flash of mana erupting as he maintains his focus. The skeletal warriors collide with a heavy smash, their rusted blades cutting through the air in a frenzy. One armored undead lets out a bone-chilling roar after easily decapitating its target during the mock battle. The dark being watches closely, noting that while these are his weakest minions, they are still lethal to most. He is dumbfounded that Leon can already read the flow of mana with his eyes closed after 1 week. Seeing such terrifying growth, the ancient entity realizes the depth of the young patriarch's gift is TR. Crow agrees that their new master is a true prodigy, reminiscent of the legendary first patriarch from the past. The dark being grins, knowing this boy will eventually plunge the entire continent into a glorious, blood-soaked era of war. Crow wonders if he can have unlimited snacks, but the dark being tells the fool to aim higher. The ancient beast realizes Leon might eventually master the forbidden domain of time regression. Our boy keeps his eyes shut, letting the residual mana settle deep within his core. When he finally opens his eyes, the sharp green gaze proves he has reached a new level. He stands up effortlessly, his presence becoming far more imposing than it was just a week ago. Leon looks toward his fluffy mentor, waiting for the next set of instructions for his growth. The dark being can only smirk, feeling a cold sweat as he witnesses such monstrous potential. Our boy simply says he is done, and asks what other training he needs to undertake. A defeated skeleton crumbles nearby, its lingering energy fading away with a soft, ghostly sound, surveying the trash tier remains of his practice targets. Leon prepares for the next phase of his evolution. The fluffy dark being decides it is finally time to move on from the basic warm-ups. Back in the office, the mentor prepares to reveal the next high-tier skill our boy must master. Our boy remains stoic, his sharp green eyes weighing the gravity of the dark being's question. Leon calmly explains that he already received some fundamental training in the arts within his household. The dark being just scoffs, calling his uncle's trash-tier parlor tricks a total travesty of real power. Leon realizes that his previous understanding of magic was likely just scratching the surface of his potential. He considers the progenitor, knowing the legendary conqueror needed more than just mindless undead to win. His gaze intensifies with a low hum as he prepares to witness the true secrets of his bloodline. Dark mana begins to hiss and swirl around him, signaling the start of a much deeper awakening. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the dark being begins explaining the true hierarchy of the dark arts. Leon realizes that necromancy is just one small branch of the power he needs to command the dead. The dark mana dances in his palm, representing the raw proficiency required to master these forbidden secrets. Pullen looks on with absolute pride, while the grumpy little dark being familiar watches with a judgmental glare. The ancient lion claims he was a true friend to the progenitor, unlike other trash-tier shape-shifting servants. Our boy just scoffs, making it clear he has zero regrets regarding his own path of loyal service. He continues to poke the bear, mockingly asking what kind of bravery is needed to sculpt a kitten. Putting the bickering aside, Leon asks which specific manner of magic he should focus on learning next. The dark being's expression turns serious, as he mentions a vital prerequisite that must be fulfilled before they proceed. Leon remains silent and focused, wondering what kind of hurdle could possibly stand in his way now. Marbass warns that the next step requires Leon to dive deep into the treacherous depths of his own subconscious. Our boy is caught off guard, questioning what his own mind could possibly hold, that he doesn't already know. The ancient dark being explains that the hidden mind is a vessel containing a truly massive reserve of magical force. He grins, claiming that once Leon taps into this power, petty noble wars will feel like mere child's play. Dark Mana crackles as the mentor notes that such high-tier magic demands a staggering price in raw energy. Leon isn't surprised, admitting he already suspected that true power would never come without a heavy cost. Despite the price, the fluffy familiar assures him there is no real reason to worry about running dry. Turns out Leon's mono reserves might actually eclipse those of the legendary progenitor who started it all. He breathes a sigh of relief, knowing he must fully embrace this darkness to finally restore his fallen house. However, the dark being warns that even with his potential, safety is never guaranteed when drawing from the abyss. Leon asks what this supposed miracle method is, clearly skeptical but ready for any path to power. Suddenly, the ancient dark being's eyes flare with life as he prepares to reveal the true secret. He explains that the first step involves a trial that would break any ordinary trash-tier mage. Our boy must completely drain his mono reserves, until he is running on nothing but pure instinct. Once he hits that limit, his subconscious will take over and bridge the gap to his hidden potential. Leon's eyes glow with a primal hunger for strength. As he begins the grueling process of exhaustion, he finally stops, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, hoping this reckless gamble actually pays off. His legs give out immediately, but luckily his most loyal vassal is there to catch him. Pullen starts bawling like a baby, terrified that his young the ruler has pushed himself way too far. The fluffy mentor just smacks the man, telling him to shut up and trust in their patriarch's resolve. Pullen is a total mess, sobbing about how their patriarch is still just a young boy at heart. Crow steps in and reminds the weeping vassal that their contractor might be the most gifted one yet. Even the fluffy mentor agrees, noting that for once, the ancient spirit is actually speaking the truth. He explains that if our boy's potential truly rivals the progenitor, he will definitely make it back alive. Trying his best to keep it together, Pullen wipes his eyes and promises to trust the process. Suddenly, Walter bursts in, absolutely stoked, because he finally mastered the basics of trash-tier swordplay. His excitement dies instantly when he sees Leon sprawled out on the floor like a cold corpse. The beastman starts panicking, but Pullen tells him to chill since he already did enough crying for everyone. Walter takes a breath and decides to have absolute faith that the ruler will pull through this trial. Meanwhile, the dark being is left dumbfounded, wondering how such insane talent stayed hidden for so many years. Pullen looks down in despair, realizing how close the Marbass name came to being completely erased from history. Our boy remains motionless on the cold floor, his body pushed to the absolute limit by the trial. Deep within his own mind, Leon finds himself standing alone in a void of endless darkness. He looks around with those sharp green eyes, wondering if this is where his journey finally ends. Refusing to give up, he starts walking through the gloom, searching for a way out of this mental prison. The scenery shifts into a ruined city, where a familiar figure waits for him in the distance. A man who looks exactly like him offers a chilling welcome, claiming he knew Leon would eventually arrive. Leon is completely dumbfounded, staring at the face of the man who should be long dead. The stranger just smirks, clearly enjoying the confusion he is causing for the young patriarch. Rune suggests they take a walk since they have plenty of family business to discuss in this dreamscape. Leon is completely dumbfounded, wondering if his mind is finally snapping after seeing his dead father. The once grand Marbus estate is now nothing but a graveyard of stone and bitter, ruined memories. Our boy follows the ghost of his past, wandering through the wreckage of his childhood home. Every step echoes with the weight of a bloodline that was almost snuffed out for good. Rune suddenly stops, his presence alone commanding the kind of respect only a true patriarch possesses. He notes that Leon's arrival proves he's finally tapped into the dormant magic hidden in his veins. Leon admits he's flying blind. Unsure if he's actually mastering this path, Leon admits he's flying blind. Unsure if he's actually mastering this power, or just drowning in it. At least he isn't alone, having gathered a crew of loyal vassals and ancient spirits to his side. Rune looks genuinely pleased, finding it fortunate that his son didn't turn out to be some trash-tier noble. Rune reveals he is just a magical record, a final message from a man murdered by Count Allen. Leon processes the heavy truth, realizing his father's existence is just a lingering, bittersweet, magical echo. Rune laments his own inherent lack of potential, calling it a cruel fate that he ended up this way. Despite his own failures, the former patriarch offers to lend our boy a much-needed hand to survive. He recalls how he never earned the Dark Being's respect or mastered the family's special relic, the Necronomicon. That legendary book remained just out of reach, a constant reminder of the strength he simply didn't possess. It's a bitter pill to swallow, looking back at the face of a man who felt like a failure. But he insists Leon is cut from a different cloth and must forge a completely new path forward. Rune reveals he developed a spell to transfer the mana of every predecessor directly into Leon's own. This massive power boost is meant to help him finally consolidate his authority. As the true Marbus patriarch, Leon hesitates, remembering his father's old warning about the lethal dangers of absorbing someone else's raw mana. Leon remembers his father's warning that foreign mana could easily shatter a person's mind if it spirals out. Rune acknowledges the danger, noting that most magic carries the specific imprint of its original caster. However, he explains that Leon is a rare exception, essentially a blank slate ready to receive this power. Our boy is dumbfounded by the idea of being a blank slate, wondering what that truly means. As Rune places a hand on him, the weight of the Marbus legacy begins to feel incredibly real. Suddenly, Rune manifests a concentrated orb of dark energy, preparing to initiate the dangerous transfer process. The mana pulses with a violent quiche, radiating a power that could either elevate or destroy him. Rune tells him he was born with the greatest gift of their bloodline, watching as Leon's eyes glow. With the orb reflecting in his pupils, Leon prepares to swallow the power of every ancestor before him. The dark mana begins to swirl violently as the transfer of the Marbus legacy finally kicks off. A heavy rumble shakes the very foundation of Leon's subconscious as the raw power starts to overflow. Everything around them begins to crumble, unable to withstand the sheer weight of the ancestral energy being unleashed. Rune looks at our boy and tells him this overwhelming darkness is his true essence and birthright. The entire mental landscape vibrates with power, while Rune prepares to conclude this intense spiritual meeting. He gives a faint, proud smile, finally seeing that his son is ready to carry the family's burden. With a gentle pat on the head, Rune notes that their brief reunion is unfortunately coming to an end. Leon stares up, wondering if the Abyss ever get the chance to see his father's face again after this. Rune reassures him that he still has plenty of lessons to teach as his father and mentor. As the dark orb sizzles, Rune prepares to send Leon back to the waking world with his new power. Leon absorbs the massive concentration of mana, feeling the raw weight of his bloodline's legacy. Our boy is completely dumbfounded, having never felt such an overwhelming force in his entire life. The dark energy swirls around him like a storm, marking the completion of this grueling spiritual trial. Suddenly, a mysterious artifact begins to resonate on his chest, glowing with a sinister purple light. Rune explains that this is the Amulet of Greed, a relic designed to devour everything in its path. He presents the family heirloom, warning his son to never forget the hunger it represents. Leon stares intensely, promising his father that he will bear the weight of greed in his heart. Rune smiles warmly, mentioning that they'll reunite whenever Leon's heart truly desires it the most. Showing his utmost respect, Leon bows deeply to the man who gave him everything before departing. As our boy fades back to reality, Rune watches him go, left alone in the crumbling mental landscape. Rune wishes his son could have lived a normal, radiant life instead of walking this dark, bloody path. He admits the future is beyond his sight, leaving Leon's ultimate fate to the boy's own inner strength. Whether this necromantic power brings eternal glory or a tragic downfall is a gamble only the living can take. Back in the real world, the squad is hovering over our boy like a bunch of overly worried parents. Leon remains totally out cold, his body slowly recovering from the intense mana strain of the bloodline trial, pulling his sweating bullets, terrified that his young master might never actually open his eyes again. He starts spiraling, wondering how he'll ever face the ancestors if the 14-year-old patriarch stays a vegetable. The tiny dark being just scoffs, telling the old man to have some faith in the ruler's resilience. Walter keeps a cool head, certain that Leon is far too stubborn to be taken down by a trial. Even the ancient spirit, Crow, chimes in, thinking the elderly vassal is being way too dramatic right now. The room fills with a dense, swirling mana as the group watches over their unconscious leader. The tiny dark being realizes there was a good reason why the kid's awakening took so long. Walter is completely dumbfounded by the sheer density of the magic force radiating from the bed. Without a care in the world, the fluffy mentor hops right onto our boy's chest. He tells the squad to get ready because the ruler is finally about to make his return. However, he warns them to stay alert, as the patriarch waking up won't be the same boy. Suddenly, Leon's eyes snap open, glowing with a sharp newfound power that pierces through the room. Seeing him finally awake, Pullen starts bawling like a baby while the others just stand there stunned. Our boy takes a second to process his surroundings, his gaze colder and more focused than ever. He dryly asks the dark being to move, but the little furball just flat out refuses to budge. Walter is training like a man possessed, desperate to prove he's not just some weakling in this new world. Our boy watches with a cold gaze, casually manipulating mana while wondering if his student will actually survive. Leon addresses his troops, making it clear that the grace period is over, and they must prepare for blood. Meanwhile, at House Sylvester, the countdown has begun, with only 4 days left before the ultimate showdown starts. A massive legion of armored soldiers stands ready, prepared to crush anything that stands in the Count's way. Count Alan lounges on his throne, looking smug as he imagines the total destruction of his ancient rivals. He decides the time is finally right to step out and lead his forces toward a guaranteed victory. Standing before his army, the Count demands that every soldier listen closely to his final declaration of war. He claims that the once proud Marbus name is now just trash-tier history. That's about to be completely erased. With a manic grin, he commands his men to follow him and rewrite the future in their own image. Kirchall leads the cheer for House Sylvester, perfectly playing the part of a loyal, groveling traitor. His eyes flare with a sinister purple glow as he prepares to feed the enemy more false information. High above, a red-eyed crow watches everything, serving as the hidden eyes for our boy Leon. Count Alan rides through the Marbus graveyard, completely unaware that he is being monitored from the shaft. The Count smugly notes a supposed weakness in the enemy's formation, thinking he has found an easy win. He turns to Kirchall and praises the undead traitor for providing such excellent and timely strategic insight. Kortzal just bows his head, claiming his loyalty is simply a way to repay the Count's magnanimous treatment. Alan finds it hilarious that the sentimental Marbus fools did not even bother guarding their own ancestors' graves. Virtual plays along, explaining that his former family are just trash-tier strategists who fear damaging the tombs. The Count sneers at the thought of them struggling in futility to save a reputation already in the dirt. Virtual breaks a sweat, struggling to keep his composure while playing the part of a loyal, broken traitor. Count Alan catches the hesitation and sharply asks if the old man has something he wants to retort. Recovering instantly, Kirchall offers a submissive smile and assures the Count that everything is exactly as it should be. He suggests they continue their march, subtly guiding the Sylvester forces deeper into the heart of the Marbus territory. Suddenly, the Count's smug expression vanishes, as he senses an unexpected presence looming just ahead in the fog. He stares into the distance, dumbfounded as a line of silhouettes begins to emerge from the gray mist. Our boy Leon arrives on horseback, flanked by Walter and a legion of soldiers ready for a bloodbath. The two groups come to a halt, the air growing heavy as the Marbus and Sylvester forces finally meet. Leon wears a mocking smirk, noting that the Count is surprisingly punctual for a man walking into a trap. Alan reaches for his blade with a sharp shing, sweating as he realizes he walked into a massive ambush. Alan lashes out, demanding to know if Kirchall betrayed him while swinging his blade with lethal intent. The blade connects, but instead of blood, a strange purple mist begins to hiss from the open wound. Kirchall's eyes glow with a sinister light, as he reminds the Count that only Leon owns his life. His head literally floats off his shoulders, proving he is far beyond the reach of any mortal weapon. With a sickening shh, the undead traitor simply knits himself back together right in front of the Count. He just smirks, admitting that being decapitated by a supposed ally is actually a pretty novel experience. Alan is completely rattled, sweating as he realizes his clean kill shot did not even leave a scratch. Our boy Leon watches the chaos unfold, standing firm as the two armies finally prepare to clash. The Count tries to regain his composure, screaming that Leon will pay for this blatant act of insolence. He mocks the Marbus force, wondering how a few hundred men could ever hope to stop his legion. Leon smirks, telling the Count he isn't even worth insulting since he doesn't pose a real threat. This sends Alan into a blind rage, his face contorting as he realizes he's being looked down upon. Our boy just lets his mana drip, questioning why the Count thinks he even bothered showing up today. With a casual splash of dark energy, Leon declares he is here to finally put the trash-tier Count in his place. Suddenly, skeletal warriors burst from the earth with a terrifying roar, ready to tear through the Sylvester. Alan is completely dumbfounded, stuttering as he finally recognizes the forbidden art of necromancy unfolding before him. Leon just gives him a cold look, noting that the Count is actually pretty sharp for catching on so quickly. He mocks the man's surprise, reminding him that a house of necromancers commanding the dead is just basic logic. The Count can only watch in horror as his supposed easy victory turns into a literal living nightmare. Count Alan ponders the ultimate injustice a human can face while staring down the abyss. He realizes it is the sheer hopelessness of facing an enemy whose power simply cannot be countered. The Count wonders what could possibly cause such a cruel twist of fate in this world. It turns out the answer is simple. Some people are just born with talent that defies all logic. Our boy Leon proves this as his eyes glow with a depth of mana that terrifies the battlefield. His undead legion wastes no time, tearing into the royal guards with a brutal, mindless hunger. One elite guard manages to hold his ground, desperately slashing through the skeletal ranks to survive. Behind the wall of bone, Leon's masked subordinates advance to finish what the dead started. The commander tries to steal his nerves, convincing himself that Leon is still just a green brat. He ignores the carnage and lunges straight for our boy, hoping a desperate melee can bridge the gap. Walter intercepts the commander's strike, the steel clanging as he refuses to let the trash tier knight pass. With a heavy wham, our boy Walter knocks the wind out of the guy, showing him real strength. The commander is absolutely dumbfounded, screaming about who would dare get in his way during this execution. Walter doesn't flinch, stating his only duty is keeping the young master safe from pathetic pests like him. He flashes a cold, knowing smirk, realizing that his life finally has a purpose worth protecting. Nearby, the undead legion continues their relentless slaughter, turning the battlefield into a literal meat grinder for the guards. Seeing his men get torn apart, Count Alan panics and screams for his major company to start the onslaught. The mages spark with mana ID as they prepare a massive lightning strike to clear the field. A massive crackle of blue energy erupts, turning the night into day with a blinding, magical discharge. The kaboom echoes across the field as the lightning vaporizes the skeletal ranks, finally halting the undead advance. Alan rallies his vanguard, desperate to reclaim the momentum after his mages failed to end the fight. He charges headfirst into the fray, hoping his personal bravery will inspire his crumbling forces to push back. The royal guards clash violently with the skeletal remains, blades ringing out as they struggle against the undying. Our boy Leon just watches with those cold eyes, completely unimpressed by the Count's sudden display of heroics. Despite the slaughter, Alan pushes forward, leading his men straight into the heart of the Marbus formation. With blood splattered across his face, the Count admits he's actually a coward who survived through pure fear. He rants about his siblings, claiming he never viewed them as family while he clawed his way to power. Leon asks if he's really supposed to care about some trash-tier family drama in the middle of a war. His hand begins to tremble with dark mana, signaling that he's finally losing patience with the Count's speech. Alan sneers, believing a silver spoon noble like Leon lacks the raw grit needed to actually take him down. Alan raises his bloody blade, questioning if our boy is actually just driven by a petty need for vengeance. He mocks the idea of justice, believing Leon is just another emotional noble blinded by his family's end. The Count snarls that Leon will die empty-handed, leaving behind nothing but the bitter taste of failed regret. Suddenly, the ancient Marbus artifact begins to pulse with a sinister light, its central eye fixing on the target. Leon remains unfazed, calmly pointing out that the Count has made two massive flaws in his desperate assumptions. Reaching toward his grimoire, he offers to explain exactly why this trash-tier villain has already lost the fight. The book's eye flares with a violent purple hue as the true power of the Marbus lineage begins awakening. Standing amidst the swirling mana, Leon looks like the leader of death compared to the trembling man before him. Their eyes meet, but while Alan is filled with terror, Leon's gaze is as cold and steady as ice. He finally declares that he has no lust for revenge, because Alan simply isn't powerful enough to matter. Flashback to a few days ago at the Marbus war camp, where the final plans were being forged. While Leon gathers his inner circle around a map to finalize their high-stakes gambit against the enemy. Leon remains focused, knowing that one wrong move in this territory could lead to their absolute ruin. The ancient dark being Marbus just licks its paw, acting like this life or death strategy is nothing but a game. Leon counters that while the location is perfect, his aggressive strategy is the only way to ensure victory. He believes playing it safe is for the weak when the optimal solution is staring them in the face. Crow immediately backs his master, stating his absolute faith in whatever path the young patriarch decides to take. Poor Walter flinches, wondering if it is even legal for a silly lion cub to be bossing them around. He quickly stammers out his loyalty, terrified of offending the ancient dark being while still following Leon. The ancient dark being finally yields to the patriarch's stubbornness, deciding to let our boy have his way. Pullen vows to mobilize every soldier they have, swearing that the ruler won't face this war alone. With the strategy finalized, Leon stands up to prepare for the coming storm that will reshape their territory. Before they leave, Leon stops the group to ask the ancient lion about a specific, lingering concern. He pulls out a mysterious amulet, questioning the true price of using such a dark, ancestral artifact. The dark being just scoffs, suggesting that death is the most likely outcome for anyone foolish enough to use it. He warns that the amulet's power is pure poison, far too heavy for Leon's current soul to handle. Leon realizes the dark being gave it to him for a reason, even if the right moment is far off. For now, his current strength is enough, as his potential already far outstrips any ordinary human vessel. The ancient dark being points out that while Leon is strong, his true potential is still far from ripe. Our boy takes the critique in stride, knowing he still has a long way to go. The lion warns him that his subjects are only human, and mortals are prone to making mistakes. He even brings up the betrayal of Leon's father, questioning if these people are worth the risk. Leon remains silent, his expression unreadable as he weighs the weight of his family's dark legacy. He knows that trust is a luxury he can't afford if he wants to survive this war. Suddenly, a sinister purple tone begins to hum with a terrifying, necrotic energy. As he grips the artifact, a massive surge of mana erupts, signaling the start of something dangerous. His eyes flare with a sickly yellow glow, proving he's ready to embrace the darkness within. Across the field, a bloodied Count Alan snarls, refusing to believe a mere boy could end him. Our boy's eyes flare with a sickly yellow glow as he taps into the family's forbidden power. Count Alan feels a sudden jolt of pure dread, his smug expression finally starting to crack. The battlefield is choked by a thick purple haze, making the Count's elite guards look like total amateurs. He realizes the depth of this mana is unfathomable, sensing a darkness that shouldn't belong to a mortal. Leon maintains perfect control over the necrotic energy, proving he's not just some trash-tier amateur with a book. As he summons the spirits of the underworld, the Count's very instincts scream that he's already dead. Gripping his blade until his knuckles turn white, the terrified noble prepares for a final desperate gamble. He charges forward like a man possessed, screaming for his soldiers to kill the boy before he finishes. The earth rumbles as a legion of skeletal warriors bursts from the dirt to serve their new master. The skeletal legion fully emerges from the dirt, their red eyes burning with a hunger for Sylvester blood. These aren't just mindless bones. They're the reanimated nightmares of every monster Leon previously put down. Count Alan stands there completely dumbfounded, finally realizing his political schemes mean nothing against a literal. His elite guards are suddenly the ones being hunted, as the undead archers take their positions. From the sidelines, the tiny dark being familiar watches the chaos unfold while listening to the sweet music of screams. He grumbles to himself that our boy is just as unruly and disobedient as his legendary ancestor Wellen. A blinding flash of necrotic mana erupts across the field, signaling that the real slaughter is only just beginning. The undead orcs let out a bone-chilling roar, ready to tear through the trash-tier armor of the invaders. One massive brute looms over a terrified soldier who realizes too late that his shield is basically made of paper. With a single brutal swing, the monster paints the grass red, proving the Marba's bloodline is officially back. The undead legion channels their necrotic mana, preparing to unleash a wave of pure destruction on the invaders. Sylvester's elite guards are instantly vaporized as the explosive force of the spell hits their front lines. Count Alan finally realizes he's been played, cursing our boy for leading them into this graveyard trap. He desperately swings his sword, but the clashing steel only highlights how outnumbered his remaining men are. Cold sweat pours down the Count's face as he watches his political ambitions die in this blood-soaked field. Meanwhile, Leon is struggling to stay upright, the massive mono-consumption taking a visible toll on his body. He grips his chest, feeling his heart race as the necrotic energy threatens to consume its master. Seeing an opening, the Count shouts for him to stop, promising to spare his life if he surrenders. Leon just sighs, whispering that he doesn't intend to disappoint his ancestors by stopping the slaughter now. Flashback to the strategy room, where the little dark being questions if these mortals are worth the massive risk. The familiar warns our boy to stop playing hero until his powers actually mature enough to handle it. Leon remains silent, his expression unreadable, as he weighs the heavy cost of his next move. The dark being acknowledges him as the true master, sensing the dark resolve finally hardening within his soul. It seems the ancient beast is starting to enjoy the ruthless path his new contractor is choosing. Leon simply wonders why they should wait for fruit to ripen when they can just take it now. Back in reality, the screams of the dying soldiers echo through the woods, as the slaughter continues unabated. The Count howls in pure desperation, realizing his entire army is being erased by a single monster. Our boy calmly walks through the carnage, his boots stepping past the discarded steel of fallen trash-tier knights. He finally stands over the broken Count, looking down at the man who once thought he was untouchable. Leon's eyes glow with an eerie light as he stares down the pathetic noble. Thunder rumbles through the heavy clouds, signaling the end of the Sylvester invasion's short-lived glory. Rain begins to wash over the battlefield, chilling the air as the atmosphere turns even grimmer. Surrounded by his unrelenting undead legion, our boy towers over the broken Count in the pouring rain. Count Alan's voice trembles as he desperately questions if vengeance truly isn't what Leon is after. Leon coldly confirms the ruler's suspicion, his face stained with the blood of the trash-tier soldiers he slaughtered. As Leon moves his hand, the Count realizes his life hangs by a thread thinner than he imagined. completely dumbfounded by his own defeat, the noble begs for a mercy he knows he hasn't earned. He frantically promises to keep Leon's necromancy a secret, if it means keeping his head on his shoulders. Leon remains silent, watching the once proud man grovel in the mud like a commoner. Leon asks the Count if they were ever on good enough terms to be granting each other favors. Alan desperately argues that seeking vengeance will only lead to an endless cycle of hatred between their houses. Our boy just stares down at him with cold indifference, clearly unimpressed by the noble's pathetic excuses. The Count begins to panic, his eyes darting around as he realizes his words aren't reaching the young patriarch. He frantically shouts that his hand was forced, claiming any head of a noble house would understand his actions. Reaching out in desperation, he insists that everything he did was merely for the prosperity of his own lineage. Thinking he's finally found common ground, the Count claims he was only compelled to commit atrocities by his position. However, Leon's eyes glow with a lethal light as he asked why that should earn the man any mercy. The Count is left completely dumbfounded, realizing his attempt to justify his crimes has only sealed his grim fate. Leon draws his blade, explaining that killing the man isn't personal but a simple matter of cold logic. With his eyes glowing a lethal yellow, our boy offers a final, chilling farewell to the fallen noble. Count Alan can only grit his teeth in a mix of pure agony and impotent rage. The Count spits out one last insult, claiming Leon will eventually regret this decision when the consequences arrive. Before he can finish his trash-tier monologue, Leon delivers a clean strike that silences him forever. Our boy remains completely unfazed as blood spatters the air, his expression is cold as ice. As the head rolls, Leon stands amidst a field of corpses, surrounded by his loyal undead legion. Suddenly, the massive monodrain begins to take its toll as the skeletal soldiers start to flicker and fade. Leon winces in pain, realizing that pushing his limits to maintain the summons is finally catching up to him. He staggers under the crushing weight of his own power, acknowledging the heavy price of his absolute victory. Leon finally hits his absolute limit, his body buckling as the last of his mana evaporates into the rain. Pullen rushes forward in a panic, his heart sinking as he sees the ruler finally succumb to the strain. While Pullen catches him, Marbus calmly explains that our boy is simply suffering from a total depletion of mana. The ancient dark being observes that Leon's talent is already rivaling the legendary progenitor from the family's golden age. He wonders if such a young boy should even be permitted to wield this kind of terrifyingly vast potential. Deep down, Marbus senses a growing monstrosity within Leon that even a dark being of his caliber cannot control. He smirks to himself, knowing the bargain he made for Leon's soul is becoming increasingly dangerous for everyone. Shifting his focus, the dark being notices something peculiar about the trash-tier Count's cooling corpse lying in the mud. A strange glint catches his eye, revealing a hidden detail on the fallen noble's blood-soaked and tattered uniform. Marbus realizes other dark being have begun meddling in human affairs, which is a seriously ill omen for the future. Pullen and the crew scramble through the downpour, desperate to recover our boy after his sudden collapse. Just as things look grim, Leon's eyes flicker open, signaling that he is finally back from the brink. Safely tucked away in bed, the young patriarch finds his room packed with his most loyal, worried subjects. Pullen immediately starts sobbing about his own incompetence, while the fluffy dark being just enjoys the free entertainment. Crow calls out the dark being for being heartless, which only earns him a fiery glare from the little beast. Leon tells the old man to quit the dramatics, since he actually did a great job holding the line. Vulture reports that the trash-tier Sailvesters are completely broken and won't be mounting another attack anytime soon. The loyal vassal is absolutely dumbfounded by their success, praising Leon for putting the family back on top. However, Pullen's face suddenly darkens as he admits there is still one massive problem left to solve. Our boy just stares back calmly, waiting to hear what kind of mess he has to clean up next. Pullen drops the mood, admitting that despite their victory, the family situation is actually pretty pathetic. He hangs his head in shame, revealing that House Marbus is currently completely penniless. Our boy is genuinely dumbfounded when he hears they aren't just broke, but drowning in massive debt. The fluffy dark being suggests just making the trash-tier Sylvesters pay for everything, but Pullen looks even more stressed. Turns out the imperial household stepped in, and strictly forbade Leon from demanding a single cent in reparations. The dark being is outraged by the news, demanding to know why the crown is playing favorites like this. Pullen explains that the Empire keeps all demonic bloodlines on a short leash to prevent them from gaining power. Leon realizes the Emperor is intentionally trying to suffocate their house before they can truly rise again. The dark being familiar just face-palms at the absolute mess while Leon asks for the final damage report. Pullen slowly raises his hand, looking like he's about to deliver a death sentence with the total amount. Leon tries to process the first number, wish that 50 million is the absolute ceiling of their problems. Pullen just keeps his eyes shut, looking like a man who has to tell his boss the ship is gone. When the number jumps to 500 million, our boy starts sweating, realizing his victory has a massive price. The silence from his loyal vassal is deafening, confirming that the financial hole is deeper than Leon ever imagined. He desperately hopes the total stays under 5 billion, thinking $500,000 might actually be manageable for now. Pullen bows deeply, apologizing for the impertinence of being the bearer of such trash-tier news to the ruler. He finally clarifies that the staggering amount isn't just a fee, but the accumulated debt of the entire house. The reveal of 5 billion gold leaves Leon dumbfounded, imagining himself and his dark being familiar as literal beggars. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure watches from the shadows, likely cut from the same cloth as those plotting his downfall. Ritual Deflumal rolls into Marbas territory. A high-tier mage who looks like he's carrying the weight of the world, has immediately intercepted by Carleen, a woman who clearly knows his face and exactly where he's headed. Turns out she's a ruthless loan shark from the criminal organization Lunatic, making her the last person he wants to see. Our boy starts sweating instantly, insisting that his school's old debts were paid off and settled ages ago. Carleen just gives him a cold smile, explaining that her business today isn't about his empty pockets for once. He offers a shaky apology, still traumatized by the memory of trash-tier thugs coming to collect with their fists. She winks and reminds him that reading the fine print is the only way to survive in their world. Realizing he's stuck with her, Rachel drops the small talk and decides to get down to business. Carleen follows him, knowing they're both looking for the same person in this bankrupt, war-torn estate. Pullen drops the absolute bombshell that House Marbas is currently drowning in a staggering 5 billion gold. The poor vassal looks like he is about to have a heart attack just delivering the news. Our boy is completely dumbfounded, realizing his hard-earned victory just bought him a mountain of financial ruin. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoes through the room, cutting through the heavy silence of their despair. Everyone freezes as the sound of uninvited guests signals that the debt collectors might already be here. Pullen quickly offers to check the door, trying to keep his composure despite the mounting pressure. Leon feels a sudden icy shudder crawl down his spine, sensing an ominous presence approaching his room. When the spirit of the crow asks what is wrong, he can only wish his instincts are failing. Pullen rushes back in, frantically announcing that they have visitors arriving at the manor right now. Fearing the worst, Leon asks exactly how many people have come to kick him while he is down. Pullen nervously reports that the uninvited guests consist of only a single man and a woman. Leon breaks into a cold sweat, realizing these visitors might be the final nail in his financial coffin. A teacup clinks against the table as the guests settle in for a high-stakes confrontation. The mage Richelle and the criminal chief Carleen introduce themselves, radiating an aura of absolute authority. Our boy sits across from the powerful duo, flanked by his loyal retainers and ancient spectral guardians. He offers a stiff welcome to his manor, though his nervous expression betrays his internal panic. Rachel sips his tea with a calm smile, appearing perfectly comfortable in the home of a necromancer. Carleen watches him with a predatory confidence, likely calculating exactly how much she can squeeze from him. Walter whispers his doubts to the little dark being, sensing these two aren't cut from the same cloth. The ancient spirits reassure the young knight, knowing their master has a habit of prevailing against all odds. Carleen kicks things off by acknowledging Leon's recent victory, though her smile suggests she's here for the prize money. She suggests that the spoils of war should be plenty to finally settle his family's massive debt. Pullen leans in to whisper a grim reminder that their credit was absolute trash when they took the loan. Our boy's heart sinks as he learns that 4 out of 5 billion are owed specifically to her. It turns out she leads the Lunatics, the most ruthless criminal syndicate on the entire continent. Leon knows that defaulting means being sold off as a human experiment to some twisted dark mages. Carleen seems delighted that he knows her reputation, and decides it is time to get down to business. Swallowing his pride, Leon asks exactly how much he needs to cough up to keep his head. Her gaze sharpens like a predator cornering its prey, sensing his desperation and the weight of his debt. She demands an immediate 10% down payment before she even considers letting him pay the rest later. Carleen slides over the terms, reminding him that the annual interest is a staggering 30% on the principal. Her eyes glow with predatory intent as she makes it clear she expects our boy to settle immediately. Leon breaks into a cold sweat, realizing he's trapped in a financial nightmare he didn't even start. The math is soul-crushing, as even a massive payment barely dents the billion gold interest compounding every year. He can't help but wonder what kind of absolute moron would sign such a trash-tier ludicrous agreement. Pullen tearfully reveals the culprit was none other than Leon's own father, the ruler of the house. Our boy is dumbfounded, remembering his old man as a guy who clearly lacked any shred of financial common sense. Richelle tries to play peacemaker, suggesting that a war hero deserves a moment to breathe before being blood dry. He points out that Leon likely doesn't have that kind of cash, but Carleen quickly cuts him off. She turns a terrifying gaze on the mage, making it clear she detests nothing more than meddlesome business interruptions. Carleen coldly reminds the mage that the price for meddling is usually becoming a lifeless corpse. Sensing the lethal intent, Rachel quickly backs down and decides to leave the room for his own safety. As the mage retreats, Carlene casually sips her tea and mocks the waste of a perfectly good brew. Our boy is left in a cold sweat, realizing he's trapped in a room with a true predator. He attempts to ask for a bit more time, but she immediately shuts down any talk of delays. She smugly mentions that his late father already told her everything she needs to know about their situation. The tiny dark being suggests just killing her, but Leon knows that's a trash-tier plan that would end badly. Marbus warns him that she isn't a foe he can beat, and resisting would only get him shredded. Leon remains dumbfounded and silent, feeling the crushing weight of his family's absolute financial ruin. Even Crow is disappointed, realizing that at this rate, they won't even have peanuts left to their name. Poland desperately tries to defend the ruler rune, insisting his father only signed those contracts to save them. Walter tries to boost his morale, shouting that our boy will definitely find a way through this mess. Leon remains silent and defeated, the crushing reality of his family's bankruptcy finally sinking into his soul. He slowly looks up at Carlene, preparing himself to make a request he never thought he'd have to. Swallowing every ounce of his pride, he actually begs the loan shark to take pity on his estate. Carlene just stares him down with those predatory eyes, completely unmoved by his desperate plea for mercy. Even the ancient dark being and Crow are left sweating, realizing their master is truly at his wit's end. Walter can only watch. Walter can only watch in shock, stunned to see the man he admires forced into such a pathetic position. The heavy atmosphere of the manor reflects the absolute ruin that now threatens to consume the Marbus name. Far away, the blue-haired noble watches the chaos unfold, whispering Leon's name with a cold and calculating smile. Rachel stares at Leon's portrait, thinking the trip was worth it just to meet the young patriarch. He turns his gaze toward our boy, evaluating the potential hidden behind that exhausted facade. Leon stands tall despite the debt, his aura looming like a shadow that refuses to be extinguished. Rachel senses a massive mono reserve within Leon and wonders if he can recruit him to his school. He smirks, knowing that bringing such a monster into the academy would be a massive win for them. Standing firm, the mage realizes he needs a clever way to get on Leon's good side. He begins to channel his own power, blue sparks dancing across his fingertips in a display of mastery. A massive surge of mana erupts, forming a protective sphere as he prepares to show off his skills. The air crackles with intensity, the sheer pressure of the spell, proving Rachel isn't some trash-tier wizard. With his eyes glowing, he focuses entirely on the magic, determined to leave a lasting impression on Leon. The Aramita headmaster suddenly appears through a monosphere, pleading for Ritual not to abandon the chaotic academy again. Rachel simply brushes him off, casually mentioning that he will explain his sudden disappearance at a later date. The old man looks utterly stressed, sensing that his superior is about to ask something completely ridiculous. Our boy, Rachel, shamelessly asks exactly how much gold is currently sitting inside the Aramita vault. The headmaster can only face palm in disbelief, realizing his boss cares more about cash than the school's crisis. Shifting gears, Carlene wonders if Leon truly views her lunatic organization as nothing more than a trash-tier gang. She channels a concentrated spark of mana to her fingertip, preparing to give him a very loud wake-up call. A sudden explosion rocks the table, a clear warning that these debt collectors aren't just playing around. Her eyes glow with a predatory light, as she reminds him that her syndicate is far more calculating than expected. Walter immediately draws his sword with a sharp ring, refusing to let this woman threaten the ruler any further. She looms over our boy, demanding to know if her point about the consequences has finally sunk in. Leon breaks out in a cold sweat, admitting they literally have nothing left to give her. The high-ranking loan shark is momentarily dumbfounded, unable to process such a blunt admission of total bankruptcy. He doubles down with a hollow look, confirming that the Marbus coffers are completely and utterly bone-dry. Carlene just sits there in stunned silence, realizing the prestigious noble house is actually just a trash-tier debtor. She stands up with a mocking sneer, finally understanding why Leon has been trembling like a frightened puppy. Her mana erupts in a violent roar as she prepares to demonstrate the brutal fate awaiting every loan defaulter. Leon stares up in pure dread, realizing he might have pushed the syndicate leader way too far this time. Suddenly, Rachel bursts through the doors, screaming for everyone to halt before things turn into a total bloodbath. Rachel crashes the party just as the tension hits a boiling point, desperate to stop the impending carnage. The head acolyte is sweating bullets, knowing he can't let his potential star student get pulverized just yet. Carlene continues her mockery, laughing at how the once great Marbus house is now just a broke, pathetic puppy. As her murderous intent flares, our boy Leon realizes he's staring directly into the eyes of a monster. Rachel lets out a desperate scream, begging the syndicate leader to hold back her overwhelming mana for a second. He physically throws himself into the fray, shielding the young patriarch while pleading for the future of his school. Leon is completely dumbfounded, having no idea why this high-ranking mage is suddenly acting like his personal bodyguard. Even Walter is caught off guard by the sudden shift, his beastman instincts struggling to process the chaotic scene. Suddenly, the silver-haired knight in training starts beaming, convinced that his master had this whole recruitment plan from the start. Our boy can only blink. Our boy can only blink in confusion, wondering what on earth an arometer school even is. Carlena's gaze remains sharp enough to cut glass as she weighs the value of Leon's life. Richel continues to play the mediator, desperately trying to keep the peace between the two clashing powers. Finally, Carlene lets out a heavy sigh, retracting her murderous aura as she decides to listen for once. Our boy is still sweating buckets, shocked that a simple conversation could feel like a life or death battle. Leon asks his loyal retainers to step aside for a moment so he can handle the negotiations himself. Sitting at the table, Leon learns that Aramita offered to pay 10% of his crushing debt. Our boy is genuinely stunned, asking if they really made such a ridiculous and generous offer. Rachel just smiles and sips his tea, confirming that the school is dead serious about recruiting him. Setting down his cup, the mage brings up the forbidden elephant in the room, Leon's undead magic. He knows exactly what went down during the battle with Sylvester, and is clearly looking for answers. Lynn explains that without his necromancy, Leon explains that without his necromancy, the battle against Sylvester was a guaranteed loss. Carline calmly sips her tea, seemingly in agreement with the logic behind his sudden victory. She smirks at Ritual, mocking how impatient mages always are when they smell a secret. Carline admits it is no secret that the Marbus family has always been desperate for glory. Our boy starts sweating, bluntly asking if she actually expects to see a single cent of that loan. Carline leans in with a wicked grin, confessing that she never truly believed the money existed. She reveals her true play, suggesting they settle the debt now since immediate payment was never the goal. Even the little dark being mentor is feeling the pressure, realizing just how massive the financial hole is. Leon weighs his options, caught between a recruitment offer and a sudden chance to wipe his slate clean. He remains cautious, wondering if his legendary power has truly returned, or if this is another trap. Carleon smirks, noting that hiring mercenaries or getting reinforcements would have cost our boy a fortune. The group sits in a tense silence, each player at the table hiding their own dangerous agenda. Rachel admits he first suspected the legendary and unique strength of the Marbus bloodline was at play. Leon breaks into a cold sweat, realizing they might already know his necromancy has finally awakened. Carleon suggests that reaching the level of the first patriarch is his only shot at ruling the world. Our boy tries to stay grounded, bluntly asking if he still has to cough up the massive debt. Carlene's gaze turns ice cold as she prepares to show him exactly how she handles trash-tier debtors. She reaches into her suit, confirming that she isn't just some common loan shark playing games. Her gloved hand grips a cold piece of steel, ready to remind him of the price of failure. Suddenly, she levels a gun right at Leon's head, offering to explain the real reason she's here. Richel de Flamel tries to play peacemaker, asking Carline for a moment to discuss recruiting Leon for his academy. Carline decides to play along for now, though she warns him that her money is still the top priority. The heavy atmosphere lightens slightly as the debt collector finally exits, leaving the room to the two men. Rachel lets out a long breath, admitting that her terrifying personality makes surviving the encounter feel like a miracle. Our boy doesn't relax, reminding the mage that he is just as untrustworthy as the woman who just left. The mage tone turns chilling as he asks Leon if he is even human after witnessing his strange aura. Instead of being offended, Rachel just smirks, clearly fascinated by the dark secrets Leon is desperately hiding. He then shifts his attention toward the floor, sensing something even more peculiar, lurking in the shadows. Rachel points right at the fluffy familiar, asking if Leon is actually traveling with one of the 72 Dark Being. Dark Being Marbus is genuinely impressed, realizing this mage is skilled enough to see him without being granted permission. A dark, oppressive aura begins to swirl as the true nature of the guest starts to leak out. The massive lion Dark Being looms over our boy, demanding to know exactly what kind of creature is sitting there. The air crackles with ancient power as the mage's human disguise begins to peel away like cheap paper. Rachel sheds his facade, revealing he's no ordinary human but a high-ranking dark being with piercing blue eyes. Leon is left dumbfounded as the lion points out the unmistakable horns and tail that prove his heritage. The mage casually admits he's actually one of the 72 Dark Being, simply curious about how humans live. He notes a mysterious connection between himself and the very first head of the Marbus family. Our boy steps in to defend his familiar, claiming the lion is cut from a different cloth than others. The great beast agrees, stating that despite his origins, he doesn't share the same twisted views as his kin. Rachel explains that without a solid motivation, he would have absolutely no reason to meddle in human affairs. Our boy narrows his eyes, realizing it is finally time to find out exactly what this dark being wants. Leon asks what kind of heavy responsibilities he will have to shoulder if he actually joins the Arimda. Rachel reveals that his organization is essentially a shadow group that operates far away from any prying eyes. Their primary mission involves executing collective orders and boosting the overall status of mages across the land. The ancient lion is not buying the corporate talk and demands the dark being stop hiding the real truth. Rachel just smirks, seemingly impressed by their sharp intuition, while all promising to lay all his cards out. He drops a strict condition, warning Leon that he cannot join or work for any other magic schools. Leon stares back, realizing this deal might be far more restrictive than he had initially bargained for. The great beast wonders if this is just a petty move to keep rival schools from gaining power. Rachel admits his school exists for a reason, but hints at a much darker, hidden motivation. He reveals that among the prestigious academies, at least one is secretly bowing down to a literal dark being. He regrets not waking up sooner, wondering what the true objective of these shadow-dwelling cultists actually is. While our boy listens intently, the weight of the past and the presence of his mentor loom large. The conversation shifts to the legendary dark being king, a being of pure nightmare bound by. The conversation shifts to the legendary dark being king, a being of pure nightmare bound by massive, glowing chains. This takes them back to the anti-demonic war, the first brutal clash that pitted humanity against. Dramatize this reference. It was a bloodbath that ended with the tragic fall of the human sovereign, the legendary King Solomon. Even in his final moments, the king gripped his staff with a determination that refused to flicker out. With a final surge of power, he unleashed a blinding light, sacrificing everything to stem the demonic tide. Even the most monstrous entities couldn't escape the glowing chains that finally dragged them back to the abyss. These trash-tier dark being soldiers were left helpless, bound by the supreme light that shattered their vanguard. They roared in pure agony, realizing their reign of terror was being snuffed out by a superior force. As the demonic mana began to dissipate, a strange, dark energy started to coalesce into something new. It manifested as a grim war, a relic that held the key to controlling the very shadows they feared. Rachel stood at the center of the storm, proving he was cut from a much different cloth than others. He held the book firmly, fully aware that such power came with a price most wouldn't dare pay. His yellow eyes didn't flicker once, showing the absolute resolve of a man who had seen it all. With the ritual complete, the once mighty dark being army thudded to the ground, utterly broken and defeated. Now, ritual tells our boy that King Solomon's final act was sealing away the legendary dark being Baal. Rachel explains that even the most powerful seals aren't immune to the relentless and inevitable decay of time. He warns that the dark being could shatter its prison at any moment, looming over them like a nightmare. Leon connects the dots, recalling the nasty rumors circulating about the Emperor's recent and sudden lack of judgment. Our boy wonders if the dark being influence is why the current ruler is now called the Witless Emperor. Rachel confirms his suspicions, noting that dark being are experts at sniffing out and exploiting the tiniest defensive cracks. He adds that Leon likely knows this best, given the grumpy ancient dark being currently acting as his familiar. Leon reflects on the ancient war, knowing it was a total massacre for every race, not just humanity. He cuts to the chase asking if Rachel wants him because a rival academy found a dark being mark. Rachel doesn't deny it, simply inviting him to join his school if he wants the unvarnished truth. Leon admits he'd prefer cold hard cash over knowledge, but Rachel just laughs and politely declines his request. Leon explains that with a crushing $5 billion debt, he needs every lead possible to start making bank. Rachel takes a moment to ponder the situation, his sharp blue eyes calculating the best path forward. Suddenly, he snaps his fingers and suggests a potential solution that might just solve Leon's financial nightmare. He points toward the Adventurers Guild, noting that the guildmaster happens to be a very close friend of Carleen. Rachel claims that if our boy reaches the gold crest rank, he'll be pulling in 10 million gold per job. Leon is absolutely dumbfounded, his mind racing as he imagines mountains of gold finally clearing his family debt. He humbly bows, asking Rachel to pass on his regards to Carleen while his grumpy familiar mocks his desperation. Crow quickly steps in with a heavy thud, telling the lion cub not to insult the ruler, the spirit reverend. The spirit reveals he got that wisdom from the old butler, leaving the ancient dark being to face palm with a clasp. Rachel then turns toward the door, teasingly shouting that he knows Carleen has been eavesdropping the whole time. Carleen realizes she's been caught, sweating, as Rachel calls out her hidden presence in the room. She reluctantly steps out from the shadows, cursing the mage for knowing her habits far too well. Joining the table, she finds herself sitting across from our boy and his surprisingly fluffy demonic companion. Rachel stands up with a flourish, eager to formally introduce the legendary entity serving the Marbus house. Carleen just rubs her temples, exhausted that she's now dealing with both a necromancer and a literal dark being. Rachel just gives a smug, knowing smile, clearly enjoying the chaos he stirred up for his old friend. Our boy leads the way with his loyal vassals, and the debt collector following close behind him. Rachel teases Carleen, suggesting she should go the extra mile for a client who owes 5 billion gold. Leon wonders why a simple guild requires such a heavy escort just to reach its front doors. Carleen explains that it is essentially an agency for high-stakes missions where people gamble their lives for others. It is a place where warriors chase glory and gold, though many end up forgotten in some ditch. The fluffy dark being mocks the idea, comparing these desperate mortals to moths flying straight into a deadly flame. Richel adds that the guild stays neutral, making it a safe haven for those with enough talent. If they make a name for themselves, they might even get scouted by a kingdom as elite knights. Our boy is intrigued and asked to know more about the specific crests and ranking system they use. Carlene is absolutely fuming, realizing she has been demoted from a high-ranking executive to a common tour guide. She sighs and explains the 5 tiers, ranging from basic bronze all the way to the legendary black. Higher ranks mean bigger paydays, but the missions they take on are of a completely different magnitude. Leon calculates that becoming a top-tier black crest is the fastest way to clear his family's massive debt. Richel chuckles at the ambition, noting that the odds of reaching such a legendary rank are practically zero. He explains that these elites hunt dragons for fees exceeding a staggering 100 million gold coins. As they approach the capital, Richel admits that finding clients rich enough for those jobs is incredibly rare. The group passes through the massive stone gates, finally entering the bustling heart of the imperial territory. They move past the city guards, with our boy staying focused on the objective despite the unfamiliar surroundings. Carlene mockingly suggests he should worry about qualifying for the trash-tier bronze rank first due to age laws. Rachel quickly tells her to stop being a buzzkill and let the young patriarch enjoy his moment. They head toward a local establishment, the wooden sign creaking as they prepare to begin their official registration. Inside, Richel explains that the very first step is signing Leon up for the grueling guild entrance exam. He steps into the hall, noting the place smells exactly like the rowdy, unwashed adventurers he expected. As our boy scans the room, he doesn't notice the mysterious woman watching him from a nearby table. She remains perfectly still, her sharp eyes tracking his every move with a cold and calculating intensity. The silver-haired woman silently observes that these newcomers are far too refined and unusual for this place. She senses that the young patriarch's arrival is a clear omen that major trouble is heading for the city. Taking a slow sip of tea, she wonders if this kid is just another noble playing hero. The group pushes through the crowd, ignoring the trash-tier mercenaries who are too busy drinking to notice them. These loudmouth idiots have no clue they're sitting in the presence of a master necromancer and a dark being. Carlene keeps her guard up, knowing that a single slip-up in this nest of vipers could be fatal. The trash-tier mercenaries can't help but whisper as the group walks past their table. They quickly realize these aren't your average travelers and start questioning why such big shots are here. One man notes Carlene's intense gaze, comparing her to a starving wildcat looking for an easy mark. The gossip intensifies when they recognize Ritual, the high-ranking head of the prestigious Aramita school. A bitter veteran sneers at Ritual's youthful appearance, jealous that such a young guy holds so much power. He chugs his drink in annoyance, feeling like the world is completely unfair to commoners like him. Rachel maintains his cool composure while walking alongside Carlene, ignoring the envious glares from the crowd. He inwardly notes that the locals seem to despise him, though he doesn't seem bothered by it. Carlene tells him to stop talking nonsense and pick up the pace because they have work to do. Our boy Leon stays silent with his fluffy demonic mentor, scanning the room for their next contact. Leon scans the room and thinks this place is only filled with trash-tier weaklings, not worth his time. However, his demonic mentor senses a sharp presence and warns him that someone is definitely watching them closely. Pullen breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the atmosphere in the guild hall has suddenly turned deadly. The group continues walking deeper into the hall, unaware they have already stepped into Alliance Den. As the tension peaks, the small dark being tail begins to glow with a menacing predatory red light. Our boy narrows his eyes, focusing his senses to pinpoint exactly where that hostile mana is coming from. He releases a subtle pulse of energy, acting like a sonar to flush out any hidden threats nearby. His eyes flash with a yellow glow as he finally locks onto his target within the rowdy crowd. Suddenly, a silver-haired woman lunges forward with a blade, aiming to take Leon's head in one strike. While the assassin strikes, Carlene reacts instantly, ready to show why she's the head of a criminal syndicate. Carlene shuts down the surprise attack instantly, pressing her pistol against the silver-haired woman's head. Our boy watches the standoff with a cold gaze while the surrounding trash-tier adventurers are left completely dumbfounded. Carlene mocks the assassin, noting that she has certainly grown more aggressive since they last crossed paths. The silver-haired warrior Lely looks visibly rattled as she realizes her lethal strike was in. Lely pushes the barrel away and warns the syndicate head to never say her name so carelessly again. The two women stare each other down, clearly cut from the same cloth of violence and hidden agendas. Leon breaks the tension by casually asking if this silver-haired woman is the strongest person in the room. Offended by his bluntness, Lely snaps back that she didn't permit him to speak and demands his identity. She suddenly senses a terrifying pressure, realizing the small creature on Leon's shoulder is a high-tier monster. Leon finally reveals his true colors, introducing himself as the young heir of the fallen House Marbus. Our boy confirms his identity, Kuwai acknowledging that the world finally recognizes him as the Marbus Patriarch. Walter stands guard with a stoic expression, his beastman senses likely picking up the hidden daggers in the room. The group gathers around the table, looking like a collection of the continent's most dangerous and eccentric powerhouses. Sipping her tea, Laylee mentions she's heard the rumors about the Marbas family's sudden and violent change in leadership. Carlene and Rishel remain composed, though they know exactly how much chaos Leon's presence is about to cause. Lully admits she's dumbfounded, never expecting the feared head of a fallen house to be such a young kid. Carlene quickly shuts down any doubts, vouching for the fact that Leon's magical talent is beyond any normal logic. The silver-haired warrior still finds it suspicious that a noble would waste time in a trash-tier adventurers guild. She breaks a sweat, realizing that anyone traveling with a literal dark being is far from being a normal human. Offended by her tone, the little dark being and Poland demand she apologize to their master for her blatant disrespect. Poland notes, the little dark being is finally behaving, but our boy admits he's only here because of crushing debt. He knows that regaining his family's honor requires more than just power. It requires cold hard cash. Carlene points out that the Infinite Lotus Guild is the perfect cover since it allows for total anonymity. Rachel flashes a sly grin, urging the guild leader to give the young patriarch a fair shot at this. Laylee isn't convinced, warning the group that this path is a one-way. Ticket to an early grave. Leon remains unfazed, reminding them that the Marbas bloodline has always lived on the razor's edge of death. He shudders, remembering Rachel's warning that the lunatic syndicate makes literal the abyss look like a walk in the park. Seeing his resolve, Laylee finally agrees to help, even if she knows the syndicates and the enforcers show no mercy. She begins to pour her tea, the liquid flowing as smoothly as the dangerous plans they're now brewing together. Marking the table with tea, she maps out the treacherous path our boy must now navigate to survive. A magic circle erupts beneath them, signaling that the talk is over and the real work begins. Leon is caught off guard by the sudden surge of mana, realizing things are moving faster than expected. The little dark being notes it's a clever, simplified teleportation spell, proving this woman isn't just some trash-tier mage. Laylee watches him closely, her cold gaze judging whether our boy actually has the guts to follow through. They materialize in a hall filled with rows of silent, imposing stone guardians that feel heavy with ancient paths. The entire group is whisked away to this trial ground, leaving the comfort of the tea room behind. Stepping forward with authority, the guild leader prepares to lay down the law for this impromptu entrance exam. She smirks and explains that his first task is straightforward, though simple usually means deadly in this world. Pointing to the massive statues, she challenges him to identify the single one hidden among them, that possesses mana. With only 30 minutes on the clock, she warns that failure means he can crawl back to his family. Leon confirms he is ready to give it a shot, showing he won't back down from a challenge. Laylee signals the start of the test and orders Carlene to get the timer ready for our boy. Carlene grumbles about the hassle, but agrees to help out just this once while channeling her mana. A massive magical hourglass materializes in the air, signaling that the countdown to his potential failure has begun. Walking through the silent corridor, he feels the weight of the stone giants looming over him from both sides. He scans the area with sharp eyes, searching for any trace of mana that might give the target away. Suddenly, the guild leader adds a nasty twist, mentioning that these statues aren't just standing there for decoration. One of the golems rumbles to life with a murderous red glow, proving this test is actually a death trap. Before he can react, the entire army of stone guardians begins to close in with their heavy weapons raised. A massive fist crashes into the ground, forcing him to move fast if he wants to keep his head. Leon barely evades a crushing blow as the floor shatters into a million pieces beneath him. Our boy keeps his cool, his eyes glowing as he calculates the trajectory of the next incoming strike. He ducks under a massive stone blade, realizing the guild leader isn't pulling any punches today. Laylee clicks her tongue in annoyance, clearly expecting this trash tier test to be over by now. Rachel admits the trial is way too intense, noting that even intermediate mages would be sweating bullets here. As Leon dances between the giants, Rishel still sees him as just a talented kid facing impossible odds. Laylee watches with a cold gaze, believing that the younger they are, the easier they eventually break. She narrows her eyes, convinced that his chances of surviving this onslaught are practically sitting at zero. Even the little dark being knows that while these statues are weak, finding the real core is nearly impossible. The spectators watch the chaos unfold, noting that the mana concentration is far too low to track easily. Pullen watches nervously, thinking even a dumb lion knows Leon is in for a world of hurt. The ancient dark being stays silent, its sharp gaze fixed on the unfolding chaos of the trial. Our boy is completely surrounded by the stone giants, looking like a tiny speck against their massive forms. Leon grits his teeth, wondering what kind of insane plan he needs to survive this mess. Laylee remains unimpressed, thinking it's dangerous to give the guild symbol to a mere child. She knows all too well that even the greatest talents on this continent can crumble in seconds. With a sharp thud, Leon kicks off the ground, moving with a speed that defies his exhaustion. He stands his ground against the relentless onslaught, refusing to let these trash-tier statues end his run. His eyes glow with a fierce yellow light as he pushes his mana. to the absolute limit. One of the golems lunges forward, its heavy stone frame whistling through the air with lethal intent. Our boy channels his dark mana, realizing he can't hold back against these oversized paperweights anymore. The golems lunge forward with murderous intent, their glowing eyes locked onto their target. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Leon stands calm as the shadows begin to dance at his command. Suddenly, his undead soldiers emerge from the gloom, ready to tear through the stone ranks. Up in the stands, Lely and the others are completely dumbfounded by the sheer scale of his mana. Even the fluffy little dark being Marbus is sweating, wondering if his contractor has finally lost his mind. Leon focuses on a forbidden spell he learned from the family archives, a true staple of his lineage. Dozens of lethal purple projectiles manifest in the air, crackling with enough power to level the hull. With a cold gaze, he prepares to rain down his dark spears and end this trial once and for all. Pullin and the little dark being are absolutely Pullin and the little dark being are absolutely floored by the sheer destructive mana pouring out of our boy. Even the high-tier observers like Carlian and Rishel recognize that legendary dark spear spell immediately. Leon doesn't hesitate, raining down a relentless barrage of purple death upon his stone-faced enemies. The golems are reduced to trash-tier rubble as the explosive force of the spear tears through the hall. As the dust settles, Leon stands amidst the carnage, having completely cleared the floor in seconds. The tiny dark being Marbus can't help but think his contractor is a total lunatic for going this far. Carleen inspects the debris, acknowledging his raw power, but noting something is definitely off about his approach. She points out the trial's true purpose was finding the mana-infused statue, not turning the room into dust. Since the target is likely destroyed, she coldly dismisses his performance as a complete and utter failure. However, Rishel just smirks, knowing there's still one desperate way for our boy to salvage this mess. Rachel decides that if Leon actually pulls this off, he's a must-have recruit for the Aramita school. Carleen senses a sudden chilling shift in the air that makes her skin crawl with anticipation. Our boy closes his eyes, calling out to the wandering dead to heed the command of their master. He channels his dark lineage, summoning a swirling vortex of mana that threatens to swallow the entire hall. His eyes ignite with a haunting yellow glow, as he fully taps into his forbidden necromantic roots. Leon looks at the trash-tier rubble and commands the broken remains to finally open their eyes. The debris begins to vibrate violently, rattling against the floor as it responds to his overwhelming pressure. Stones start to float and knit back together, proving that his earlier destruction was just a setup. Both Lely and Carline are left completely dumbfounded by the sheer audacity of his high-tier magic. Rachel just smirks, realizing Leon didn't mess up at all, and had this plan from the start. Leon reasons that since mana is life, anything possessing it can be reanimated through his dark arts. Carleen and Ritual are left completely rattled, realizing they've just encountered a monster far beyond their wildest expectations. Even the Cold Syndicate leader has to begrudgingly admit that our boy's talent is legitimately terrifying. She realized his raw mana was impressive, but his ability to improvise such a plan is truly insane. Laylee stands there in a cold sweat, her professional composure finally cracking under the weight of his power. She approaches him with a shaky voice, demanding to know how he achieved such an impossible feat. Leon casually explains that he simply slaughtered the Guardian and resurrected it as his own loyal puppet. When she looks confused, he schools her on the fact that golems are living creatures, not just inanimate artifacts. He raises a finger to drive the point home, showing off his superior understanding of magical theory. Pointing at the massive giant, he proves that anything with mana eventually bows to the Master of Death. Leon checks the time, wondering if his display of necromantic dominance was enough to satisfy the trial. As the hourglass runs dry, the tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a blade. Laylee can't help but smile, admitting that our boy's performance was nothing short of legendary. She decides a trash-tier bronze badge is insulting and grants him silver status on the spot. Even the surrounding subordinates are dumbfounded that a newcomer is climbing the ranks this fast. The fluffy dark being just smirks, knowing his contractor is simply cut from a different cloth than these mortals. Poor Poland is having a mental breakdown, feeling completely useless compared to his master's explosive growth, with his ancestors watching over him. Leon prepares for the next phase of his grand design. He suddenly manifests back at the manor, catching his loyal vassal completely off guard. His eyes glow red as he focuses on the golem, sensing a power that others completely overlooked. Leon observes that while most golems are just products of magic engineering, they lack a true soul. He realizes that natural beings with cores are a different breed entirely, perfectly in tune with the environment. The dark being is smugly impressed that our boy can already differentiate between artificial trash and high-tier natural cores. After dominating the trial, Leon stands composed as his allies realize he is truly cut from a different cloth. Laylee watches him with newfound respect, internally labeling him as a complete exception to every rule she knows. She finally admits his strength is undeniable, and Leon simply offers a calm thanks for the recognition. Ever the pragmatist, our boy immediately asks how much cold hard cash a silver badge actually brings in. His subordinates are slightly dumbfounded by his greed, explaining that he could easily net around 3 million. However, the mood sours when they remind him that his family's massive debt requires at least gold status. Despite the financial pressure, the group acknowledges that starting at silver is a legendary feat for any newcomer. Lely informs Leon his first mission is set for tomorrow and tells him to get some rest. Our boy shows some rare manners, thanking the guildmaster as she begins to walk away. With a sharp gesture, she releases a surge of mana that ripples through the entire area. The shattered remains of the trial ground begin to fly back together in a supernatural reconstruction. Leon and his crew stand back, watching the massive stone structures mend themselves instantly. The golems return to their original state, standing tall as if the battle never occurred. Walter is completely dumbfounded that she could fix all that destruction with just a single flick. He realizes the guildmaster is a total monster, with mana control that's simply off the charts. His subordinates suggest they head back as well, now that the day's chaos has finally settled. Later that night, Lely sits alone, looking exhausted after maintaining her powerful and stoic facade. Lely sits alone in the dim light, her mind spinning as she dissects the day's events. She keeps picturing our boy Leon, who stood his ground with a level of composure that felt unnatural. Though she initially doubted him, he navigated the trial with a flair that proved he's cut from different cloth. Seeing through the magical trickery of those golems was supposed to be a feat reserved for elite mages. It dawns on her that he likely saw through the entire ruse the moment he stepped into the arena. She realizes he wasn't struggling at all. He was sandbagging to keep his terrifying potential a total secret. The sheer weight of his hidden talent makes her grip her chair as she processes the implication. She muses that after generations of failure, the Marba's name finally belongs to an absolute, high-tier monster. Even as she turns to leave, the mystery of his true motives continues to weigh heavily on her. High above, the full moon watches over a world that has no idea what's about to hit it. Lely can't shake the image of our boy's cold, lifeless eyes that seem to pierce right through reality. She stares into the night, wondering exactly what kind of dark ambitions are driving the new Marbas patriarch. Back at the base, the crew gathers as she prepares to put his newfound silver tier status to the test. Since he's officially a silver badge holder now, she hands over a scroll detailing his very first mission. The weight of the assignment is heavy, signaling that this isn't some trash tier errand for a rookie. Leon reads the objective, which involves digging into the deep-seated corruption within the prestigious Hall of Arden. He notes the location is the city of Selassie, his sharp eyes already calculating the risks involved. Lely confirms the rumors of a special man gone bad, making it clear this job is strictly off the books. If he can take down the greedy Pope Codone, a massive $1,000,000 payout is waiting for him. Even his own subordinate is dumbfounded, worried that this high-tier hit job is way too much for a debut. Lely stares down her crew, making it clear that this high-stakes mission is non-negotiable for the newcomer. She believes that if our boy is truly an exception, he needs to handle this pressure without complaining. One of the crew members laughs it off, noting that a quick promotion makes the risk totally worth it. Leon remains cool as ice, claiming he will find a way to get the job done regardless of difficulty. When she suggests the orange-eyed subordinate tag along for backup, the girl is completely against the idea. While the others are curious to see his skills in action, she has just annoyed her opinion doesn't matter. Our boy shows some class by bowing deeply, remembering his father's lessons about keeping up proper appearances. His sudden display of manners catches the girl off guard, leaving her sweating and totally dumbfounded. By his behavior. Pullen cheers for his master's social skills, while the little dark being notes that swaying hearts is a demonic art. The orange-eyed subordinate is still sweating, unable to wrap her head around how a human can be this bold. Even with the little dark being watching her every move, she can't help but feel completely out of her depth. Leon stays focused on the prize, reminding everyone that their empty pockets make this dangerous mission a necessity. He knows the world is split with the majority bowing to Arden, the leader who supposedly built this world. The Arden Hall holds massive sway over the people, promising light to those who kneel before their altars. However, the shadows are just as crowded with those who sell their souls to Baal and his demonic kin. The dark being resurrection cult thrives in these dark corners, obsessed with bringing back the ancient evils of the past. Most regular folks just want to survive, so they stick to the hall and its rigid path of righteousness. Those rare few fortunate with the supreme power become beacons of hope, performing what the masses call true miracles. These women are known as Saintesses of Miracles, standing as the most powerful symbols of the continent's faith. A dusty carriage makes its way through the countryside, carrying a heavy burden of secrets and ambition. The man at the helm is clearly on edge, his face drenched in a cold, nervous sweat. He can't help but peek back, wondering what kind of monsters is actually transporting today. Tucked away in the carriage, the Marbas inner circle prepares for their arrival in the special land. Leon remains stoic, even with the pint-sized dark being the ruler acting like a pampered house cat on his lap. The carriage driver is absolutely floored when he hears they intend to travel straight into the heart of Selassie. Our boy's crew stands tall, looking like a group you definitely don't want to mess with. The driver warns them that the aftermath of the religious war has left the city completely deserted. The male subordinate gets a bit flustered, struggling to find a lie that sounds even remotely convincing. Carlian finally relents, realizing they have to push forward regardless of the city's ruined state. Carlian slams a heavy bag of gold onto the table to silence the driver's constant whining. The sight of those shimmering coins makes the driver realize he's easily replaceable if he keeps complaining. Terrified but blinded by greed, the driver agrees to the job provided. Our boy keeps him breathing. He took the cash, but now he's sweating bullets, wondering if any amount of gold is worth this. Their destination is Salixi, a once special city now reduced to a crumbling graveyard by the religious wars. Even with the new cardinal's efforts, the special seat collapsed into ruin when the Pope's influence withered. The driver swallows hard, knowing that the supreme protection that once shielded this land has completely dried up. Legend says the city fell because the expected Saintess of Miracles never appeared to stop the carnage. At this rate, the fortunate of Arden might vanish from the entire continent, leaving everyone vulnerable. Leon clarifies that their true objective is to dig into the corruption of the high and mighty Pope. Walter worries about the risk, but the dark being familiar just scoffs at the trash-tier opposition. Our boy remains unfazed, knowing his current level is more. Than enough to handle any interference. Carlene reminds him that humanity hasn't been sitting idle while he was sealed away for centuries. Even the dark being warns that getting too cocky could result in a very messy loss. Since the Hall's influence is everywhere, Carly knows they are stepping into a total minefield. She points out that the supreme seat is vacant because the new Saintess hasn't manifested yet. The problem is that these stasis only come from the Pope's bloodline, complicating the entire lineage. Carlian suggests there is an even bigger disaster lurking within the Hall's inner circles. Leon reveals the Pope had 2 daughters instead of 1, sending the entire institution into chaos. Leon explains that the supreme power is a zero-sum game where only one can inherit the throne. Carlian is dumbfounded and asks if there is really no way for both sisters to survive this. The tiny dark being clarifies that bloodline-bound powers are strictly exclusive, leaving no room for a second successor. Our boy coldly notes that this means one of the daughters is essentially walking toward a death sentence. Meanwhile, Layli watches him closely, finding his vast knowledge and calm demeanor increasingly suspicious and odd. She realizes that the current head of House Marbus is far more dangerous than the rumors suggested. Their long journey finally hits a stop as the carriage wheels grind against the dusty road. The driver announces their arrival, signaling that they have finally reached the heart of the enemy's territory. They stand before Salixi, the grandest religious city on the continent, and a total minefield for a necromancer. Inside the city, a stern official prepares for the arrival of the man who executed a count. He pushes open the massive, ornate doors, leading into the most private chamber of the cathedral. Glazer formally announces to his master that the specialized team he hired has finally arrived. The old man at the desk remains tense, clearly doubting the capabilities of these newcomers. Pope Codone wonders if this group can truly operate under the radar of the royal family's surveillance. Glazer assures him that the mission will remain a total secret if Infinite Lotus handles the contract. Our boy Leon stands ready with his crew, looking completely unfazed by the special city's heavy atmosphere. Glazer introduces himself as the Pope's personal butler, greeting the group with a formal, practiced bow. A member of Infinite Lotus confirms they are here to investigate the Pope's corruption as requested. Glazer expresses his shock that the Aramita school's leader would handle such a sensitive task personally. The smug operative just laughs and clarifies that he isn't the one leading this particular job. Our boy Leon steps forward, calmly claiming the mission as his own with a cold, piercing stare. He stands tall with his crew, looking like a true powerhouse despite his youthful and unassuming appearance. Glazer breaks a sweat, wondering if this kid can actually keep things hidden from the Pope's eyes. To prove his worth, Leon reveals the high-ranking token clutched tightly in his gloved hand. The butler is absolutely dumbfounded to see a silver-tier mercenary badge held by someone so young. Leon's eyes sharpen as he demands to know if the 2 figures lurking nearby are hostile threats. Glazer goes dead silent, clearly caught off guard by the young patriarch's insane level of perception. 2 mysterious figures in habits watch from the shadows, their presence finally exposed by Leon's sharp instincts. The 2 mysterious nuns finally step out, their unreadable expressions adding more fuel to the fire. Our boy Leon doesn't even blink, keeping his guard up while sizing up these special observers. Glazer realizes this public spat is getting nowhere and decides they need a much more private setting. They relocate to a quiet, empty room where the real talk can finally go down without interruptions. The whole crew gathers around the table, looking like a high-tier squad, ready to strike a deal. Glazer looks absolutely exhausted, still trying to process the insane turn of events that led them here. He shoots a doubtful look at the group, clearly wondering if these outsiders are actually legit. Leon just sits there with total confidence. His calm aura, making the veteran butler feel even more outclassed. Glazer closes his eyes, doubting if a young mage can actually fix a city as broken as Salacy. Leon keeps a stone face, advising the butler that showing emotion is a rookie mistake in this game. Our boy locks eyes with Glazer, making sure the old man knows exactly who is in control here. Using telepathy to keep things quiet, Leon wonders if his secret communication will actually be useful right now. Glazer is completely dumbfounded, realizing only high-tier mages can pull off a spell as complex as mental transmission. Leon decides to drop the act, revealing he already knows the Pope personally sanctioned this shady operation. A sharp smirk plays on his lips as he prepares to corner the veteran butler with the truth. He leans in and demands to know the real mission, tired of the trash-tier excuses and political dancing. The weight of the situation finally hits Glazer, who realizes there is no way to hide the truth. His hands tremble with tension as the pressure of Leon's overwhelming presence forces him to fold his cards. Defeated, the butler finally bows his head and agrees to play by our boy's rules from now on. Glazer finally folds, sighing as he prepares to explain the true nature of their high-stakes mission. Our boy remains silent, joined by the Saintesses and their contact, as they wait for the butler's explanation. The old man recalls a time when the Pope stood in the cathedral, haunted by the supreme secret. The Pope's expression was grim, knowing the burden of the faith was too heavy for one person. It turns out the Saintess of Miracles was part of a pair, both meant to inherit the leader's fortunate. However, the prophecy was clear that only one son could rise while the other was destined to fall. To maintain the balance of power, the two sisters were eventually supposed to merge into a single entity. These twins were identical in every way, both possessing the glowing eyes of a true chosen one. But the ritual required a grim sacrifice, where one life would be snuffed out to empower the other. The Pope stood by his decision, watching over the young girls while preparing for a dark, inevitable future. The twins stood in silence, their chests burning with the supreme light. The twins stood in silence, their chests burning with the supreme light that was never meant to be shared. Pope Codon was a total wreck, his hands shaking as the grim reality of the prophecy finally sank in. He looked at the high priestess and demanded to know what would happen to his precious daughters. The old woman just sighed, explaining that the split power was preventing the leader's true manifestation. It was a trash-tier situation where only one son could rise, meaning the other was destined for the grave. Codon lost it, screaming at the heavens because he couldn't accept such a blood-soaked price for his house. Just then, the cathedral doors groaned to open as three figures cut from the same imperial cloth marched inside. The Pope's breakdown was cut short when he realized the Empire's hounds had finally arrived at his doorstep. A silver-haired guy named Calivan stepped forward, introducing himself as the captain of the Imperial Knights. With a cold smirk, he presented an official command from the Emperor that the Pope couldn't possibly ignore. Calivan holds the imperial decree, announcing that this order comes directly from the Emperor's own hand. He explains the harsh truth that two sons simply cannot exist under the same. The realm above. The law demands that once the daughters mature, one must be sacrificed to empower the other. Pope Codon is dumbfounded, realizing that the hall's future requires the blood of one of his own children. The decree gets even grittier, sentencing the lesser twin to a brutal death by public execution. The Pope loses it, shouting that he can't possibly be expected to burn his daughter alive. Calavanga smirks and tells him to consider this horrific act a small sacrifice for the realm. Having delivered the trash-tier ultimatum, the captain leads his men out, leaving the Pope in ruins. Pope Codona's eyes tremble, as he realizes the Empire is forcing him to choose between family and faith. Completely broken by the weight of the Emperor's cruelty, he collapses to his knees in desperate wish. Pope Codon kneels before the Supreme, questioning why he's being put through such the abyss trial. He laments to the heavens that after losing his sibling, he's now being asked to lose his daughter. Tears stream down his face as he begs to know why these trials are so relentlessly cruel. Nearby, the twin daughters can't hold back their own tears, feeling the weight of their father's impossible choice. Back at the table, our boy Leon listens intently as the group discusses the hall's desperate situation. He remains silent, processing the gritty reality of a prophecy that demands a blood sacrifice from the innocent. Carleen explains the rarity of a saintess, noting the world hasn't seen one in over 10 years. The tragedy is that the power was divided between twins, making neither of them complete for the Empire. Glazer confirms the grim details, knowing the Empire only cares about the power, not the people holding it. He looks at the girls, and vows that his true mission is to save both of them from execution. Glazer admits that disobeying the Emperor is treason, his face etched with pure terror. He clenches his fists tightly, struggling with the weight of the hall's impossible situation. Our boy Leon cuts through the tension and asks Glazer to step aside for a moment. He calmly requests that the butler vacate his seat so he can address the twins directly. The seat is left empty as the room falls into a heavy, expectant silence. Leon stands before the two sisters, his presence looming over them like a dark shadow. He drops to one knee, showing a rare moment of level-headed focus amidst the chaos. Looking them in the eye, he asks which of them is truly prepared for the worst. His eyes glow with a cold light as he asks if either is actually willing to die. Even the dark being is dumbfounded, but Leon just shrugs it off as the most efficient way forward. The twins realize that avoiding the Emperor's reach is impossible, meaning a sacrifice is likely inevitable. Leon's gaze intensifies as he repeats the question, leaving his companions sweating under the sheer pressure. He remains knelt before the sisters, bluntly asking if either of them is actually ready to embrace death. The girls are left speechless, their fear mounting as the weight of the situation finally sinks in. A dark memory of a burning city flickers, recalling a time when special titles felt like a doomed. The Pope remembers the agony of being called fortunate, while his entire world crumbled into. The Pope remembers the agony of being called fortunate, while his entire world crumbled into ash and tears. Hellish dark beings swarmed the skies back then, turning the special city into a literal playground for monsters. Trash-tier commoners were cut down like wheat as they tried to escape the winged nightmares. Gazing at the carnage, the Pope doomed his luck that this happened during the Saintesses of Miracles time. Codon screams in despair, wondering how they can possibly survive without the power of light protecting them. A knight desperately urges him to retreat, warning that the situation has become far too dangerous. His eyes burn with a cold fury, as he vows never to forgive the dark being for this carnage. Standing over the ruins, he curses the trash-tier monsters for forsaking the very will of the leader. The vision shifts to a tender moment where he sits beside his pregnant wife, Rhea looks up with a faint smile, feeling truly relieved about the future they are building. She believes their child is destined for greatness, perhaps even becoming the next Saintess of Miracles. Codon remains skeptical, knowing that special roles and heavy responsibilities are usually cut from the same cloth. He sits in the shadows, admitting his deepest fear is that their child will be born into servitude. His fist trembles, dreading the day his own blood is used as a puppet by the hall. Rhea reaches out, her touch a fragile tether to the man she loves. Codon grips her hand tight, his heart heavy with a premonition he can't shake. She softly tells him not to worry, because she'll ensure their child grows up strong. With a gentle smile, she asks him to name their little one the realm above. She explains that the name represents a hope for everyone to experience a life of peace. Codon is left dumbfounded, realizing her selflessness is a burden he isn't ready to carry. Under the cold moonlight, the hall tower stands as a silent witness to the coming storm. The joy of the twins' arrival is instantly eclipsed by the heavy price paid for their life. Rhea slips away forever, leaving behind a legacy of light, and a husband consumed by grief. Our boy collapses over her, knowing their story began in blood, and is destined for tragedy. It's a grim reminder that their fate was written in stone from the very first breath they took. These two lives were never meant for. These two lives were never meant for peace, only to serve as fuel for a dark, ancient prophecy. Now grown, the twins are visibly shaken, knowing the time to pay their blood debt is finally here. Leon sits across from them, his presence adding a suffocating layer of pressure to the room. One sister tries to act tough, claiming she's already decided to be the one who faces the end. The other immediately protests, desperately arguing that she should be the sacrifice since her sister was born first. Our boy watches the drama unfold, realizing their mother's legacy has left them in total despair. She starts sobbing, calling herself a trash-tier failure, who doesn't deserve to live while her sister survives. The girl's spirit completely breaks as she begs for the chance to die in her sibling's place. Leon just strokes his chin, silently admitting that dealing with this emotional baggage isn't really his style. Leon bluntly asks if they're both cool with dying, noting that their mutual death wish simplifies his job. Suddenly, the little fluffball Marbus chimes in, reminding him that failing to save both means no payday. Our boy actually looks amused, admitting that the dark being caught him off guard with that financial reality check. One of the sisters pleads with him to find a way to save as many people as possible. They both double down, desperately begging him to keep their father safe since he is just a pawn. Leon shifts gears and asks for the cold, hard facts about when the execution is scheduled to happen. The room goes cold, as one of the twins reveals they only have 2 measly days left. She steals her resolve, vowing to throw herself into the fire if they can't find another way. Her sister looks completely dumbfounded, unable to believe she's actually ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. Leon realizes the clock is ticking and decides it is time to hunt for a more permanent, fundamental solution. Ritual suggests they start by verifying the mark that proves they are truly the Saintesses of Miracles. When he asks to see it, the girl gets flustered, mentioning the location is a bit awkward for him. She politely requests that everyone except Leon and his female subordinate leave the room for a moment. Carlian agrees, knowing that some things are meant for eyes only, no matter where the mark is hidden. Our boy's subordinate doesn't hesitate to physically boot Ritual out when he tries to stay and watch. She calls him out for being a creep, claiming he just wants an excuse to see bare skin. With the trash-tier distractions gone, Carlene prepares to handle the inspection herself, while Leon stays back. The twins share a silent, determined look and nod, knowing there is no turning back now. One of the sisters slowly begins to lower her garment to reveal the hidden proof of her lineage. They both expose their backs, showing the marks that tie them to a destiny they never asked for. The glowing grail mark shines with an intensity that proves their lineage is far from ordinary. Leon observes that the power is locked tight, making it impossible to extract through simple magic. The little lion explains that despite how long it takes to accept, there is only one solution. Our boy's eyes turn cold as he realizes the prophecy demands the death of one twin. Marbas muses on the terrifying weight of fate, and how it cruelly traps the innocent. Leon clenches his fist in silent rage, disgusted by how a mere prophecy can rule. Leon clenches his fist in silent rage, disgusted by how a mere prophecy can ruin lives. The dark being familiar watches closely, noting a look of genuine frustration he has never seen before. Sensing the sudden shift in the room, the lion asks if our boy is actually feeling angry. Meanwhile, at the cathedral, a grim execution platform stands ready under the watchful eyes of royalty. The arrogant Prince Regent smirks, knowing the final act of this tragedy is finally beginning. The Prince Regent smugly notes that after a decade of waiting, the Saintess is finally being born. His butler adds with a chilling smile that the other twin will simply be burned as a witch. Louis complains about the annoying delay, frustrated that they had to wait for the girls to come of age. Our boy stands nearby in disguise, his fluffy familiar sensing the heavy atmosphere radiating from him. Leon ponders the moral weight of choosing between a girl desperate for life and one resigned to death. The little lion is completely lost, unable to grasp the complex human emotions swirling in his master's head. Leon realizes one of the twins is hiding her true nature, sensing a lie through their spiritual auras. Having mastered the powers of the afterlife, he is the only one capable of feeling their true intentions. As he stares at the execution stake, he notes the tragic contrast between the sisters' desires for survival. He clenches his fist in frustration, deeply conflicted by the cruel choice fate has forced upon him. Leon weighs the life of the twin, radiating at the supreme golden light against the weight of the cruel prophecy. He then looks at the other sister, whose aura is stained with a dark, suffocating shadow of certain death. The little lion is dumbfounded that his master actually plans to wait until the final moment to choose. Our boy admits that despite his mastery over death, no one ever taught him how to handle such tragedy. He remains lost in thought, struggling to navigate the impossible moral maze laid out before him by fate. Below the towering cathedral, the grim execution site stands ready for the upcoming and inevitable blood sacrifice. The Prince Regent watches the preparations, clearly enjoying the twisted spectacle he is about to orchestrate. He steps forward with a sickening sense of entitlement, ready to claim the power. Ready to claim the power of the new Saintess. Louis introduces himself with a trash-tier smirk, oozing the typical arrogance of the archive imperial line. He announces his presence to witness the birth of a miracle, flanked by his loyal and elite knight. The crowd erupts in cheers, blissfully unaware of the horrific ritual the imperial family has planned for tonight. Louis simply basks in the praise, his trash-tier ego fueled by the blind devotion of the common people. Yet the atmosphere shifts as some onlookers begin to sense the underlying malice radiating from the royal platform. Louis announces that a dark night is coming, masking his thirst for power with twisted religious rhetoric. The commoners look on with growing fear as he describes the necessity of a new stess of miracles. He reveals the grim price of this miracle, pointing to the stake where a witch must soon burn. Beside him, Calivan remains stoic, acting as the cold blade that ensures the princess' twisted will is done. Louis explains that just as two sons cannot share the sky, only one girl can claim the title. Calivan notes that the existence of twins is a demonic disruption that the Empire can no longer tolerate. The knight coldly confirms that by the Emperor's command, both the fallen saint and witch will face execution. Caliphon stares down the crowd, his glowing blue eyes daring anyone to speak up against the imperial decree. The commoners can only look away in silence, too terrified of the Empire's wrath to defend their own faith. Even the twin sisters seem to accept their grim fate, their eyes filled with a heavy, heartbreaking resignation. Standing before the cathedral, the prince and his knight prepare to drag the girls toward their inevitable execution. The Pope watches his daughters, his heart breaking as he realizes his special authority means nothing to these tyrants. Louis looks at the girls with a disgusting smirk, lamenting that such beauty has to be wasted on witches. He even marks them by saying he would have made one a concubine, if not for the demonic prophecy. Hearing his daughters insulted like trash-tier criminals, the Pope can barely contain the murderous rage boiling within him. His fist trembles with a crunch as he fights the urge to strike down the arrogant prince right there. Sensing the tension, Calivan places a firm hand on the old man's shoulder, silently warning him to stay down. Calivan keeps a sharp eye on the situation, ready to strike if the old man loses his cool. The Pope is barely holding it together, his gaze burning with a silent, helpless rage against the crown. In the cold courtyard, the power dynamic is clear, as the imperial forces prepare to take their prize. Turning to his secret help, the Pope desperately asks if there is any hope left for his children. Leon bluntly admits that saving them through normal means is impossible, crushing the old man's last bit of hope. However, our boy's eyes glow with a sharp intensity as he prepares to pivot the entire conversation. Glazer is left completely dumbfounded by the mercenary's sudden change in tone and lack of respect for authority. Leon doesn't blink, Focused entirely on the one detail that could flip this trash-tier situation on its head, he faces the special father directly, questioning the man's true resolve regarding the fate of the twin sisters. Deep within the cathedral's shadows, the girls wait like ghosts, caught between a prophecy and a cruel empire. One twin tries to comfort her sobbing sister, telling her that shedding tears won't change their grim reality. She's always known that if a sacrifice was needed, she'd be the one to take the fall. Her sister is devastated, asking if just being born into this trash-tier world is considered a sin. With a heavy heart, the older twin admits that their existence might indeed be doomed. She knows the prophecy is set in stone, and must be fulfilled to maintain the world's balance. In her mind, it's actually a mercy that they get to choose who faces the executioner. Outside, Calivan loses his patience and screams for his men to tie the witch to the stake. Hearing the shouting, she steals her resolve, realizing there's no more time for goodbyes. She decides to step out, offering herself up so her sister can have a chance at life. The blonde twin breaks down, her tears a testament to the heavy burden of her secret betrayal. In her heart, she admits she wasn't being honest about her own desperate need to stay alive. She cowers by the door, drowning in the dark realization that her sister is taking the fall. Out of nowhere, our boy Leon manifests, his dark mana swirling as he prepares to intervene. The nun is left dumbfounded, her eyes wide as she feels the cold grip of his necromantic power. Her consciousness fades instantly, and she collapses onto the cold stone floor without a single sound. Leon stares down with a chilling indifference, his sharp gaze already calculating the next step. Even the little dark being Marbus wonders if knocking her out was really the best play for their mission. Our boy Leon watches closely, admitting that while this isn't ideal, it serves his own dark interests. One of the twin nuns stands bound to a stake, a sacrificial lamb for the Empire's twisted ritual. A soldier grips a flickering torch, ready to ignite a fire that will change the city's fate forever. He descends the steps with purpose, the flame crackling as he approaches the tragic scene. The pyre erupts into a roar of heat while the high-ranking officials watch from a safe, arrogant distance. Prince Louis smirks, convinced this sacrifice will finally birth a saintess and silence every trash-tier critic he has. Calivan feeds the prince's ego, reminding him that no sane person would ever dare question his imperial authority. With a cold glint in his eyes, the captain promises that only death awaits those who defy them. The poor girl lets out a final, agonizing scream as the flames consume her entire world. Our boy Leon watches the flames, his mind already calculating the next move in this trash-tier ritual. The crew stands behind him, feeling the weight of the Empire's cruelty as the smoke begins to rise. Lely looks at Leon, clearly dumbfounded that they are just standing by while a girl is burned alive. The Infinite Lotus member just scoffs, noting that while this quest is a mess, he hates to fail. Leon's eyes glow with an eerie intensity, as he focuses solely on whether the girl can actually survive this. As the nun screams, Leon admits he doesn't understand fatherhood or the Pope's true character at all. Despite his confusion, he truly hopes the old man finds a way to save his daughter from the abyss. The fire rages on, echoing the Pope's desperate wish to see his child one last time before death. Leon remains silent, his grim expression proving he's cut from a different cloth than these imperial monsters. The Pope's daughter realizes the crowd has finally recognized her true identity amidst the rising heat. Our boy Leon watches the spectacle, his sharp eyes fixed on the sacrificial lamb in the center. She accepts her fate, feeling a twisted sense of relief that this punishment is finally ending her suffering. Tears stream down her face as she admits she was never as virtuous as her twin sister. In her final moments, she desperately clings to her sister's kindness to find some shred of peace. The entire square stands dumbfounded, watching the special cathedral become a backdrop for this gruesome public execution. That trash-tier Prince Louis doesn't care about mercy, barkingly demanding his men pour more oil on the fire. A soldier obeys the heartless command, drenching the wood to ensure the flames consume. Everything. The fire roars with new life, turning the execution pyre into an inescapable wall of searing heat. As the agony becomes unbearable, she offers a final apology to the sister she is leaving behind. The searing heat of the execution pyre triggers a sharp memory of a secret meeting from 2 days ago. Our boy Leon had managed to secure a private audience with Pope Codone inside his heavily guarded office. Leon starts probing the old man's resolve, wondering if he is ready to make a truly impossible choice. He bluntly asks if the Pope prefers to save the daughter who fears death or the one accepting it. Codone breaks into a cold sweat, doubting if anyone can actually distinguish between the souls of his twin daughters. Leon confirms it is possible, though he admits the spiritual mechanics of his power are hard to explain clearly. The Pope falls into a grim silence, realizing the weight of the life or death gamble he is about to take. Leon challenges him further, stating that the right choice is only visible to those with the eyes to see. Driven by desperation, Codone finally orders Leon to save the specific child he wishes to give life to. Back in the present, the Pope and the High Priestess watch the flames roar as the secret plan unfolds. One of the twins breaks down in tears, completely overwhelmed by the realization that her sister is truly gone. As the carriage pulls away from the special city, the embers of their secret deal flicker in the wind. Our boy Leon sits in the quiet cabin with Walter, finally leaving the stifling atmosphere of the cathedral behind. He questions the logic of the Pope's decision, wondering why the old man chose the path he did. The group travels in silence, with Poland and the small demonic familiar watching their master's every move. Even the ancient dark being Marbus finds the human heart's contradictions confusing, and asks for a much clearer explanation. The surviving sister stands alone, watching the dust settle as the man who changed her fate finally disappears. Her eyes are filled with sorrow, haunted by the fact that she was the one chosen to live. The little lion jumps onto Leon's shoulder, realizing that his master's plan was far more calculated than it seemed. Leon coldly explains that he wanted them to understand the true, heavy burden that comes with being alive. Marbus explains that the survivor is burdened with living for everyone who didn't make it. He then asks our boy, what happens when that inevitable moment of choice finally arrives? The dark being notes that those choosing death understand its value, unlike those merely desperate to survive. Leon stares ahead, realizing that the one who simply wanted to live might never truly grasp that weight. He recalls his own household's bitter lesson that gratitude eventually rots into shallow, trash-tier exploitation. The surviving sister stands in silence, her heart heavy with the crushing reality of her new existence. Marbus confirms Walter's fears, leaving the young beastman feeling completely dumbfounded by the world's cruelty. Walter struggles to process the injustice, wondering where all this built-up anger is supposed to go. Leon simply sighs and tells him that some things in this world just can't be helped. He explains that the continent needs its miracle, and fighting the royal family is currently impossible. Lely notes that every eye is currently glued to the Saint of Miracles, the continent's only hope. Hope Codone leads his daughter through the cold stone halls, both of them trapped by a grim destiny. Exhaling in relief, Lely assumes the long, trashed-tier wait for the Saint's awakening is finally over. She remains certain that the supreme power has reached its peak, signaling a new era for the Empire. However, she's suddenly struck by a chilling realization that the ritual didn't go as planned. Our boy Leon and his loyal beastman Walter stand dumbfounded as the atmosphere turns suffocatingly heavy. Leon struggles to understand why the Saint's power feels fractured and entirely incomplete. The young nun's chest begins to glow with a violent light, her soul seemingly being torn apart. She desperately calls for her father as the Pope watches his daughter succumb to the supreme backlash. Calivan intervenes with cold imperial authority, warning the Pope that this mess is now officially out of hand. Louis is fuming because the ritual failed to produce the complete special power he expected for the Empire. He immediately orders his knights to seize the Pope and every single one of his followers without delay. The Pope is dumbfounded, desperately insisting that the girl was definitely his daughter, and the true saint. Louis isn't buying it, accusing the old man of playing trash-tier games after being given so much respect. Growing tired of the excuses, the Prince Regent coldly commands his captain to execute the Pope right now. Calivan hesitates, realizing that killing the head of the hall could trigger a political nightmare for the crown. Louis suspects the Pope is just acting confident because he has the real saint tucked away somewhere else. He declares that he won't let some religion sway him, since they've survived decades without miracles anyway. The pressure mounts as Louis repeats his lethal order, leaving Calivan sweating under the weight of the decision. If he doesn't draw his blade soon, he might be the next one on the prince's personal chopping block. Calivan tells the old man not to hold a grudge since this mess is his own doing. The Pope desperately screams that the girl really is his daughter, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. Calivan coldly notes that if she were the real deal, her crest would have been complete. Without a shred of hesitation, the captain swings his blade to end the special man's life. The Pope freezes in absolute terror as the cold steel inches toward his neck. Suddenly, a figure leaps into the fray, ready to take the hit for her useless father. Blood sprays everywhere as the blade carves through the girl instead of the Pope. Both men are left completely dumbfounded by the sight of the girl's sudden, tragic sacrifice. The Pope breaks down, sobbing, and asking why she would ever go so far for him. With her final breath, she whispers that her choice wasn't just about saving his life. The dying girl tells her father that living without a true purpose was completely meaningless to her. She recalls the horrific sight of her sister burning while she tried to escape their cruel fate. Looking back at the ruins of her life, she wonders if this agony is just the supreme punishment. Our boy Leon watches this tragic memory unfold, his eyes glowing as he pierces through the spiritual veil. From the comfort of his carriage, he uses his necromantic senses to witness the hall's dark, hidden history. The vision intensifies as the flames consume the innocent. A grim reminder of the Pope's many failures. As the girl's spirit begins to fade, the weight of her sacrifice hangs heavy in the cold air. He coldly concludes that while someone deserves to suffer, the heavens definitely picked the wrong target today. The Pope is left sweating and terrified, wondering how the stranger could possibly know about his secret sins. The girl turns her back on her father, claiming he is just as corrupt as the rest. Kodon is left dumbfounded, unable to comprehend why his own flesh and blood would say such things. He looks away in shame, the weight of his secret sins finally catching up to his conscience. Covered in blood, she reveals they were never his children, only tools to maintain his trash-tier authority. Tears stream down her face as she begs him to finally admit the truth and find some peace. The realization hits him like a truck, as she reminds him that he never actually had daughters. She collapses before him, declaring her own death as the ultimate punishment for his lifetime of lies. Kodon lets out a desperate cry, finally feeling the crushing weight of losing what he once exploited. He cradles her limp body, realizing too late that his ambition cost him everything he should have protected. The vision shifts to a charred corpse, a grim reminder of the fire that consumed his humanity long ago. Dark being Marba senses something is off, his eyes widening as he realizes our boy is about to go wild. Even the ancient dark being is stunned, questioning if his contractor is actually planning to cross a forbidden line. Leon doesn't hesitate, opening his grimoire to summon the souls of those lost in the recent chaos. Laylee watches in total disbelief, her face pale as she realizes the sheer scale of the power unfolding. He declares that his duty as the Marbas heir is far from over, offering the dead a second chance. The eye on the ancient book snaps open, pulsing with a sinister red light that signals the ritual's start. Violent pillars of purple mana erupt around him, shaking the very foundation of the area as the dead stir. It finally clicks for Laylee that she is witnessing true necromancy. A talent thought to be long extinct, two distinct spirits, one gold and one purple, swirl into existence, bound by his overwhelming will. The spectral forms dart toward the carriage, ready to serve the master who just snatched them from oblivion. Leon calls out to the lingering souls, offering them a chance to keep existing even in death. Two distinct spirits, one shimmering gold and the other a deep purple, begin to take shape before him. The twin spirits are stunned, questioning if this necromancer truly intends to pull them back from the void. Standing before the flames, our boy warns them that this second life comes without a beating heart. He reaches out his hand, ready to finalize the pact if they are willing to pay the price. Binding chains of dark mana wrap around the sisters, sealing their souls to his iron will forever. Accepting their fate, the golden spirit simply asks what tasks their new master requires of them. Leon admits his request is a bit shameless, but he needs them to serve as his personal agents. To his surprise, she finds the deal fair, noting that a free lunch would have been way more suspicious. With the contract sealed, he closes his eyes, satisfied that these powerful souls are now under his command. Leon invokes his ancient bloodline, using the authority of House Marbas to bind the wandering souls to his service. Our boy looks them dead in the eye, demanding to know if they are truly ready to swear loyalty. The twin sisters share a final look, realizing that serving this necromancer is their only path toward a future. Without a hint of hesitation, they accept the deal, their spirits finally finding a new purpose in death. The ancient seal on the grimoire pulses with dark mana, locking the contract into the fabric of reality forever. As the blinding light fades, the ritual concludes, officially adding two powerhouse spirits to his growing undead arsenal. Closing the book, Leon sincerely hopes they find whatever they were looking for at the end of this journey. His eyes glow with a cold intensity, knowing that every pawn he gathers brings him closer to his goal. This reminds him of the Pope's tragic past, back when the man lost his wife to the Empire's indifference. Even then, the Imperial vultures were circling, showing just how long the Hall has been under their thumb. Calvin breaks into a cold sweat after sensing a mana signature so powerful it defies all logic. He glances at the prince, terrified that another faction might be lurking in the shadows of the city. Unbothered by the chaos, our boy Leon makes his exit, clutching the grimoire like it is light reading. His eyes burn with a predatory light, showing he is fully synchronized with the dark powers just unleashed. The tiny dark being Marbas starts throwing a tantrum, promising a scolding for using subjugation without a heads up. Leon just scratches his head, shamelessly wondering if the Hall will compensate him for his heroic intervention. Carlene can only watch in awe, realizing her master is a complete freak of nature in every way. He reflects on the mechanics of necromancy, specifically the branding process required to bind mindless, trash-tier beasts. It is a surgical procedure meant for perfect efficiency, turning wild monsters into the ultimate loyal tools. However, Leon's mind is already on the next level, questioning how to break those with actual intelligence. Dark being Marbas explains that necromancy is actually about persuading souls with lingering regrets to follow orders. Since these spirits cannot pass on without closure, a necromancer borrows their power by helping them find peace. This process is known as subjugation, turning the dead into a loyal army that never questions commands. Our boy realizes that his job is essentially the supreme social worker for those still clinging to life. The tiny dark being adds that, the deeper the regret, the more insane the power boost the undead receives. He warns Leon that they are not just grav-robbers looking for profit, but something far more complex. Leon stares back with those sharp eyes, promising to keep this philosophy in mind as they move forward. Back in the carriage, he opens the grimoire and calls upon the names of the spirits he needs. The book erupts in a blinding mana flare, as the ancient contracts begin to manifest in the physical world. Suddenly, the souls of the realm above and Helen appear, ready to serve their new master's dark ambitions. The mana swirls violently as the summoning ritual reaches its peak, dragging souls back into the physical realm. Instead of two separate entities, a single nun steps forward, draped in an aura of the supreme mystery. Leon watches with a cold gaze while his tiny demonic companion prepares to explain this unexpected outcome. The little lion explains that since they were fated to be one, their souls merged during the revival. His subordinates find the explanation fascinating, realizing the complexity of the spirits now bound to their master. Walter senses a shift in the air, feeling that the vibe coming from her is disturbingly different. Our boy gets straight to the point. The summon simply smiles, her calm demeanor masking the fact that two consciousnesses inhabit her frame. She identifies herself as the realm above, leaving the surrounding vassals and knights to stare in silent awe. When asked if they can switch at will, she confirms it, proving she is far from a trash-tier summon. The realm above mentions there is a slight issue, catching Walter off guard as he wonders what could be wrong. Suddenly, her gaze sharpens and a strange, dark energy begins to swirl within her eyes. Her eyes flare with a predatory light, signaling that the other sister is finally taking control. The personality flips instantly as the Abyss complains about having to serve such a stiff and boring master. Walter is completely dumbfounded, realizing that a hidden, far more aggressive ego has just taken the wheel. The Abyss tells the girly-looking beastman to shut his mouth while she tries to address their new master. Our boy Leon remains unfazed, bluntly asking what these two twins are actually good at doing. He grips his Necronomicon, reminding them that trash-tier spirits get deleted since his soul storage is limited. The realm above briefly resurfaces, sweating as she realizes her master talks about soul erasure, like it is a casual chore. Health smirks and confidently promises they have plenty of ways to satisfy him if given the chance. The Abyss decides to show off her charms by grabbing Leon's cloak to get his attention. She leans in dangerously close, leaving Walter and the little dark being completely dumbfounded by her boldness. The Abyss smirks, clearly enjoying the proximity while trying to see if our boy has any reaction at all. She asks if this kind of service is also possible, but Leon just stares back with cold eyes. The scene shifts to the Syndicate's headquarters, where the weight of their recent actions finally starts to settle. Laylee looks visibly stressed as she mentions that they are currently working on resolving the messy situation. She admits that she never expected the problem to be handled in such an unorthodox and chaotic way. Carly notes that the Pope has officially acknowledged the deal, and it is time for payment. The sheer absurdity of the situation gives Lely a massive headache, as she tries to process the fallout. The mysterious investigator just smirks, admitting that Leon is truly impressive for pulling off such a stunt. The Infinite Lotus investigator is dumbfounded that Leon would casually mention reviving the Pope's daughter right then. The Abyss makes it clear she belongs only to our boy, showing a level of devotion that is honestly terrifying. Even the seasoned investigator starts to sweat, realizing just how chaotic this group's dynamic really is. Leon remains cold as ever, telling his demonic mentor that he is already used to this kind of madness. Walter is just happy she is alive, though he is not even sure if alive is the right word. Laylee finally caves and officially grants Leon his silver badge. Though she looks like she needs a drink, she promises to send the rewards to his family, wondering if this truly marks the end of their trouble. The syndicate leader warns him that she will be in touch the moment another high-stakes request comes in. Carlene tells her not to worry, insisting that their new undead recruit isn't as much of a burden. Of course, our girl is mostly just excited about the money, reminding Leon to keep those debt payments coming. Leon is visibly disgusted, wondering why everyone is suddenly trying to act cute during such a serious mission. Our boy starts sweating when Carlene pulls a gun, realizing his debt collector doesn't have a patient bone left. The fluffy dark being mentor cuts through the nonsense, urging the group to quit playing and finally start moving. He questions if the reanimated twins are truly useful, wanting to test the limits of the supreme power. Carlene just flashes a trash-tier grin, asking for even more favors while keeping her eyes on the prize. Meanwhile, Laylee is completely drained, pouring tea while trying to process the absolute chaos Leon just unleashed. Back at the capital, Calvin kneels before the throne to deliver news that will shake the entire empire. He reports that the Pope has completely lost his mind, refusing to eat after losing both his daughters. Prince Louis just scoffs, calling the old man a pathetic weakling for grieving over something as replaceable as children. The emperor remains silent, watching as his arrogant son prepares to exploit the hall's sudden moment of vulnerability. Esteban laments the loss of the Stas, feeling the weight of a missed opportunity for the empire. He sits on his throne, frustrated that they have no idea when the supreme oracle might appear. Calvin trembles while begging for a second chance, promising his absolute devotion to the crown after his failure. Louis just gives a cold, trash-tier smirk, accepting the knight's loyalty before pivoting to a much darker subject. He demands to know if they found the mysterious dark mage who dared to interfere with their plans. The knight can only apologize, admitting that the culprit remains a ghost despite their best efforts to track him. He explains how the souls were snatched away mid-flight, suggesting a level of precision that shouldn't even be possible. Calivan drops a bombshell, noting that only a necromancer could pull off such a high-level magical heist. Lewis ponders the word, realizing that a practitioner of the forbidden arts is back on the board. Meanwhile, our boy Leon stands with his ragtag crew, completely unaware that the Empire is finally catching his scent. Lely looks over, genuinely curious about what kind of unique abilities Leon's newest undead servant has actually awakened. Our boy Leon keeps a poker face while the syndicate leader tries to gauge the potential of his latest asset. Rather than just talking, Leon suggests a live demonstration and asks her to provide a worthy training partner. He decides that a mid-level opponent should be more than enough to test the limits of her strength. Leon decides to start with Heaven, who responds to his command with a level of unsettlingly bubbly devotion. The reanimated girl begins to channel her mana, a golden light swirling around her as she prepares for combat. Her eyes glow with an intense otherworldly light, as the two souls within her struggle for control. Suddenly, she bows in a panic, apologizing for her sister's rude behavior while trying to stay composed. While the Infinite Lotus member watches from the sidelines, she takes a deep breath and retires her first move. She reaches out her hand, letting her power flow as she prepares to show off her terrifying new capabilities. A pack of trash-tier force trolls charges forward, their red eyes fixed on their next meal. The scout from the Infinite Lotus identifies them, knowing these beasts are famous for their insane regeneration. He expresses his doubt, fearing that a freshly reanimated girl like Heaven will surely struggle against them. Carlene just watches with a smirk, noting that the Patriarch has always managed to pull off the impossible. While Walter and Pullen cheer, the little dark being grumbles about Leon being too cheap to buy him peanuts. Leon asks even if she is ready, and she responds with a bubbly and terrifyingly eager devotion. The trolls close the distance, completely unaware that they are about to become a very messy combat demonstrate. Our boy opens his grimoire, his eyes glowing as he prepares to pump mana into his new servant. He even manifests a massive, glowing mace, looking far more dangerous than any ordinary nun ever should. The heavy weapon connects with a satisfying thud, instantly turning the lead troll's face into a total mess. He even swings her mace with terrifying force, making it clear she isn't just some fragile undead puppet. The Lotus member is completely dumbfounded, while the little dark being warns him that female undead are a different breed. Another heavy strike crushes a troll's skull, proving that the supreme potential translates perfectly into raw, brutal violence. The remaining trash-tier monsters start to hesitate, realizing their numbers mean nothing against this holy-looking executioner. She looks back at Leon with a blush, clearly seeking her master's approval after the messy display. Our boy remains stoic, internally noting that she is fairly usable for the dangerous road ahead. He decides to push her further, flooding her soul with mana to see the full extent of her power. Her eyes flare with an intense light as the surge of energy stabilizes within her reanimated vessel. She pulls a dark chain from her chest, feeling an ecstatic rush at the chance to finally be useful. With a predatory glare, she prepares to wipe out the rest of the pack in her master's name. He even lashes out with her newly summoned chains, turning the battlefield into a playground of special destruction. The trash-tier trolls don't stand a chance as the heavy metal links wrap around their thick, ugly necks. Her eyes glow with a sinister light, showing that the mana Leon provided is fueling something truly terrifying. With a single violent swing, she detonates a burst of energy that sends monster guts flying everywhere. She finishes the job by driving her heel straight through a troll's skull, ending its miserable existence. The reanimated nun then asks the dying beast if it will sacrifice itself for her love with Leon. Our boy and his crew stand there completely dumbfounded, wondering if they've accidentally created a total psychopath. Even the ancient dark being can't help but shake his head, muttering that Leon has recruited some crazy followers. With the trial finally over, the group approaches the massive stone gates of their next destination. Leon gazes at the familiar skyline, quietly noting that they have finally returned to where it all began. The ancient dark being grumbles that the trip wasn't a total waste since they snagged some decent intel. Our boy Leon agrees, feeling like his skills as a necromancer have leveled up significantly during this mess. Falter looks a bit bummed out, realizing that their temporary allies are heading out before them. Leon bids farewell to the school representative, glad a new talent is joining their prestigious ranks. Carlene quickly kills the mood by reminding Leon that he still owes her a mountain of cold hard cash. As Pullen watches on, Leon prepares to seal the deal with a final firm handshake. They lock hands, confirming their departure as the business at the school finally comes to a close. Carlene gets a predatory glint in her eyes, already planning her next debt collection while the dark being watches. She then turns her attention to Walter, asking if he is even aware of how much potential he is hiding. Carly notes that while Leon is a monster, Walter's own talent would leave even their captain completely stunned. The school rep nervously hopes our boy never has to cross blades with the lunatic syndicate's terrifying captain. Leon's eyes glow with a cold curiosity, wondering what kind of freak could make a pro look this rattled. Turns out, Lily is a literal monster whose reputation alone is enough to send chills down any spine. While Carlian remains stoic, the rep warns that their leader specializes in hunting down high-tier dark being for sport. Shifting gears, he admits that Valter's raw talent is undeniable and could lead him to the very top. Our Beastman boy gets all flustered, clearly not used to receiving genuine praise from anyone outside his circle. Leon confidently asserts that his new recruit is destined to become an elite vassal under his own leadership, has determined to push Walter past his limits, ensuring the boy evolves into a warrior that exceeds expectations. Impressed by that lordly swagger, the rep laughs and suggests they part ways with hopes for their reunion. As Poland stands by, Leona agrees that a clean break is best while they prepare. As Poland stands by, Leon agrees that a clean break is best while they prepare for the journey. The Infinite Lotus representative prepares to depart, reminding Leon that his debt needs to be settled promptly. Our boy just stares back with a look that says he's heard this trash tier lecture 1,000 times. The rep laughs it off, teasing Leon for being such a mood killer on a perfectly good day. Carlian isn't playing around though, instantly drawing her weapon to show that disrespecting her master has consequences. Despite the tension, the rep gets uncomfortably close, joking that having a chatterbox around is probably a nightmare. She offers a parting wish, hoping the young patriarch grows even stronger before their paths inevitably cross again. Leon simply nods, acknowledging the challenge while keeping his true intentions locked behind those cold, calculating eyes. As the mysterious group fades into the distance, our boy finally turns his focus back to his own territory. Returning home, Leon, Pollen, and Walter are met with a sight that leaves them momentarily dumbfounded. The commoners erupt in cheers, overwhelmed with relief that the ruler hasn't abandoned them to a cruel fate. Leon stands there completely lost, wondering what kind of chaos he just walked into upon his return. Suddenly, Poland comes charging in like a madman, tears of joy streaming down his face at the sight. Our boy is just dumbfounded, barely processing why his loyal vassal is acting like he's seen a ghost. Before he can even react, a sharp blow catches him off guard, sending his senses into a tailspin. A familiar voice screams his name, demanding to know why he'd dare leave his family behind like that. The legendary patriarch is reduced to a cowering mess, instinctively shielding himself from the incoming verbal assault. It turns out the culprit is Diana, a powerhouse from the Baricha family who clearly doesn't fear Leon. Walter and Poland immediately swarm him, panicking as they check if their master survived the unexpected encounter. Deciding that a tactical retreat indoors is the best move, Leon tries to regain his composure. The little dark being starts piecing it together. Realizing this noble woman has been bossing Leon around since childhood, the whole crew gathers around the table as our boy tries to explain this. The sudden arrival of his childhood boss. Leon admits that Diana is actually a top-tier elementalist, who has been his secret weapon for a long time. Crow can't help but tease his master, clearly impressed that he managed to recruit such a stunning lady. The mood shifts instantly when Diana reveals her true nature, casually dropping the fact that she is actually a dark being. Even the ancient familiar looks skeptical as she questions why a legendary entity would bother following someone like Leon. Pullin and the fluffy lion just shrug it off, accepting that their master's life is just one big chaotic mess. Carlian joins in the apology tour, basically telling the newcomer that logic doesn't really apply to their group anymore. Diana just sighs in exasperation, realizing that our boy has a natural talent for finding himself in ridiculous trouble. She doesn't let him off easy though, demanding to know why he ditched his family to play mercenary alone. Leon finally offers a sincere apology to his big sis, thanking her for keeping the house from falling apart. Diana admits she felt bad for Pullin and spent her time waiting for our boy to finally return. Leon stays cold as ice, bluntly asking if she actually has a reason for bothering him right now. She stares him down, clearly not amused by his lack of manners after being gone for so long. Taking a deep breath, she prepares to drop some heavy news that he definitely isn't going to like. She warns him that time is ticking, leaving Leon completely dumbfounded about what deadline he supposedly missed. Diana gestures for him to lean in, acting like she is about to share a top-secret family mystery. Instead, she flicks his forehead as a gritty reminder that the head of the house shouldn't be forgetful. Leon rubs his head in shock, realizing that his big sis is dead serious about this upcoming disaster. She explains the exchange meeting is coming, a massive gathering where every trash-tier noble family will collide. As she keeps talking, Leon realizes his quiet life as a mercenary is officially over for now. Diana demands he be her dance partner, insisting they are a team, regardless of the rules. Back at the Grand Estate, the weight of his noble responsibilities starts to settle in. Our boy wakes up to a servant calling him young master, feeling the exhaustion of his double life. The butler informs him that the big noble gathering is right around the corner. Leon wonders why he is being dragged along when his brothers could easily handle the spotlight instead. It turns out this isn't just any party, but a meeting of the three great dark mage families. The butler adds that this is the perfect chance to fix his reputation as the family's problem child. He sits up with a heavy sigh, realizing there is no escaping this high society trap. Leon grumbles about how everything is getting way more complicated and troublesome than he planned. Pullin helps him get dressed, preparing the patriarch to face the trash-tier nobles waiting for him. Leon stares off into the distance, already dreading the social nightmare waiting for him at the gathering. The mood shifts when Diana Beretia appears, radiating an aura of authority that demands immediate respect. She is the future head of her house, and, more importantly, our boy's very own fiancé. Our boy looks totally drained, asking if he really has to show up to this event at all. His undead non-servant finds the drama. Amusing, jokingly questioning his loyalty to his future wife. Diana gets aggressive and grabs his collar, bluntly stating she wants a man who acts more mature. Leon is left completely dumbfounded by her sudden outburst, unsure how to even respond to her temper. The small dark being Lion and his spiritual enforcer both start laughing at his total lack of composure. Pullin just wipes away sweat and laughs awkwardly, trying his best to keep the peace. The loyal vassal realizes this constant bickering is just a sign of how close their families truly are. Leon awkwardly asks his fiancée to release his collar since things are getting a bit too intense. Diana scoffs and lets go, complaining that even as a family head, he is still the same. She gets even more fired up, frustrated that he still struggles to speak his mind properly. Diana demands he at least try to comfort the people, regardless of his father's messy history. Suddenly, she stops mid-sentence as a heavy realization hits her regarding the weight he is carrying. A dark memory of our boy standing alone in the pouring rain flashes through her mind. She remembers the brutal, blood-soaked path he walked just to reclaim his family's stolen legacy. Feeling a wave of guilt, the fiery noble woman actually offers a rare, quiet apology for her outburst. Leon remains stoic, noting that neither he nor his father would ever regret their difficult choices. He stands firm, explaining that his father simply did what was necessary to protect his family. Diana feels a cold sweat as she finally realizes the sheer weight of the burden Leon carries alone. She insists that despite his hatred for these social forces, he can't afford to miss this specific event. Reclaiming the Marbus Ducatum requires more than just winning wars. He needs to dominate the official political stage. Pullin trembles with anxiety, knowing that every trash-tier noble family is currently watching their every move for weakness. Our boy remains unfazed, deciding that any sacrifice is worth it, if it ensures his family's ultimate protection. Walter and Crow are absolutely hyped, thrilled that their master is finally stepping up to claim his rightful recognition. Donning his formal gear, the young patriarch prepares to walk straight into the den of his political enemies. The grand ballroom is filled with high society vultures who once celebrated the bloody downfall of his entire lineage. These arrogant nobles sip their wine, completely oblivious that the man they fear is standing right among them. They laugh and gossip about the shifting tides, treating the return of House Marbles like a mere evening's entertainment. The trash-tier nobles sip their wine, completely unaware that the political landscape is about to shift forever. One of them whispers in shock, questioning if the rumors about the Sylvester family's total defeat are actually true. Another arrogant the ruler scoffs, demanding to know exactly who could have possibly brought down such a powerful house. The first noble trembles as he reveals that the supposedly dead Marbus family was the one behind the slaughter. A skeptical noble dismisses the claim as a baseless rumor, refusing to believe a collapsing house found such power. Suddenly, a finger points toward the entrance, silencing the room as the atmosphere turns heavy with sudden realization. Our boy Leon strides in with Diana, looking every bit the powerful patriarch these vultures once tried to bury. He internally grumbles about how much he hates these stuffy parties, feeling completely out of place among the fake. To keep up appearances and steady his nerves, he firmly takes Diana's hand as they face the judgmental crowd. Diana is caught off guard by the sudden contact, her heart racing as she realizes the weight of their partnership. Diana plays it cool, claiming she only puts up with this nonsense because a family head must handle things. Our boy Leon just offers a smirk and thanks his big sister for the backup. Diana realizes he's changed. The kid she once knew is now diving headfirst into his responsibilities. Leon wonders if his crew can handle themselves while he's stuck in this den of snakes. Turns out Walter and Pullin are doing just fine, looking more than ready to handle any trash-tier trouble. Diana can't help but be impressed, noting that he carries himself like a veteran despite being only 14. He reminds her that he's the one in charge now, leaving her completely dumbfounded by his newfound confidence. Just then, a shady noble creeps up, questioning if this kid is really the head of House Marbus. This new challenger looks down on him with a predatory grin, clearly underestimating the monster standing before him. Leon doesn't even blink, coldly asking the man exactly what kind of business he thinks he has. The smug noble laughs off the idea that a kid like Leon could actually take down a powerhouse like Alan. He thinks the rumors are just trashed-tier exaggerations meant to scare off the weak-willed and the gullible. Our boy doesn't even flinch, simply confirming that the rumors are actually the cold, hard truth. Suddenly, the noble feels a chill down his spine as he realizes Leon's gaze isn't that of a child. Diana watches the exchange, wondering why this arrogant man is suddenly acting so awkward and tense. Trying to save face, the noble nervously laughs and asks how exactly the territorial war was won. Leon stares him down with those glowing eyes, bluntly stating that his enemy simply died. The noble is completely dumbfounded, his predatory grin replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated terror. Leon leans in, making it clear he personally ended Alan to reclaim the Marbus family's bloody legacy. As the man turns pale, Leon casually mentions that showing him the process wouldn't be very easy. Leon issues a final, bone-chilling warning, hinting that the noble might face a similar fate if he stays an enemy. Diana stands there completely dumbfounded, witnessing a level of cold-blooded intensity she never expected from her childhood friend. Having said his piece, our boy simply turns his back, leaving the trembling man behind without a second thought. Even the ancient dark being Marbus can't help but comment on how much of a crazy villain his master is. The fluffy familiar seems both annoyed and impressed, realizing that Leon truly plays by his own dark rules. The noble is left paralyzed with terror, his previous smugness replaced by a cold sweat and a shattered ego. Leon walks away with a chillingly calm expression, his sharp gaze already scanning for the next move. While the crowd remains oblivious, a mysterious blonde man watches the pair from the shadows with predatory interest. He casually picks up a glass of wine, his eyes locked onto the boy who just dominated the room. This new observer smirks, thinking to himself that a very interesting player has finally arrived at the party. The surrounding trash-tier nobles start whispering, wondering if the young head of House Marbus is looking for trouble. They dismiss our boy's family as powerless, completely unaware of the monster walking right past their table. Leon keeps moving, his fluffy familiar perched on his shoulder while the atmosphere in the room remains heavy. The ancient dark being finds the whole display amusing, teasing Leon for throwing such a public tantrum. Our boy doesn't care about the gossip, his glowing eyes fixed on leaving this boring party behind. Just as he tries to exit, a persistent noble blocks his path, refusing to let the matter drop. The man grabs Lyok's shoulder, calling him ridiculous for trying to walk away after such a scene. He warns that ignoring the Varela family has consequences and demands that Leon take full responsibility. Leon just looks back with a chillingly calm expression, questioning why defending his family's honor is considered wrong. The noble gets right in his face, accusing Leon of threatening a preemptive strike against his house. Diana steps in, coolly suggesting that this trash-tier noble should finally start acting with a bit of decorum. She reminds the ruler reverend that barking at a ducalier is way above his pathetic pay grade. With a sharp smirk, she asks if he's truly ready to face the fallout of this blatant rebellion. Reva's face contorts in pure rage, his pride taking a massive hit from her public humiliation. He glares at our boy, warning him that a single fluke victory doesn't mean he's won the game. Turning his venom on Diana, the noble claims the lady of the Beretia family is just as delusional. Diana just scoffs, knowing she's far too powerful to be intimidated by a small-time noble's empty threats. Rive completely loses his cool, his mind reeling from the absolute lack of respect he's receiving. Suddenly, a purple-eyed noble cuts in, bluntly telling the man that his noisy tantrum is ruining the vibe. The noble snaps his head around, wondering who else is brave enough to mess with him tonight. Reverend is absolutely shook, his previous bravado vanishing his cold sweats. His previous bravado vanishing as cold sweat starts to pour down his face. His hand trembles uncontrollably, showing just how much this sudden shift in power has rattled his core. Even standing near our boy feels like a death sentence now, as the trash-tier noble's body completely betrays him. Leon watches the pathetic display with cold indifference, while his fluffy demonic companion keeps a sharp eye out. The purple-eyed noble remains perfectly composed, swirling his wine like he's just watching a boring play. He leans in and mockingly asks Reva if he really has no idea who he's dealing with right now. Suddenly, the little lion dark being whispers a warning to Leon, sensing that this newcomer is a genuine threat. Without a hint of hesitation, the mysterious noble seizes Reverend by the collar to silence his annoying stuttering. His eyes flare with a predatory purple light, silently asking if he really needs to spell out his dominance. Outside the Grand Hall, the night remains still as the power dynamics within the Empire shift once again. Carlene wonders if our boy and Lady Diana can actually handle the heat of this high-stakes noble meeting. Pull-in is clearly out of his element, his nerves getting the better of him at such a grand event. Carly notices his shaking hands and realizes that even the most loyal vassals have their breaking points. The tension in the air is thick enough to choke them both as they wait for the inevitable fallout. Pull-in lets out a heavy sigh, trying to steady his heart before it beats right out of his chest. He finally admits that Leon is way too free-spirited, making their jobs as handlers a total living nightmare. Despite the Imperial Knights watching, Carline knows they have no choice but to trust the Marbus family head. Pull-in finds a bit of comfort knowing Diana is there, hoping her legendary composer saves the day. Carlene shifts the topic, curious about the rumors regarding Diana being the future bride of the Marbus house. Pullen struggles to explain that calling Diana our boy's fiancée is actually a bit of a stretch. He clarifies that she's basically an older sister figure, with a massive age gap between them. Carlene finally understands that their bond is built on deep family-like care rather than some spicy romance. Pullen shift gears, warning her that a dangerous air similar to the lunatic is lurking at this meeting. Carlene is visibly stunned, knowing that having such a loose cannon around usually means nothing but pure chaos. Pullen breaks it down, describing this air as a ticking time bomb that every sane noble tries to avoid. This monster comes from the Reinhauer family, a powerhouse that makes the current Marbus house look like trash tier. Before anyone can react, a confrontation explodes, as someone gets snatched up by their collar in a heartbeat. Knox von Reinhauer makes his entrance, putting a trash tier noble in his place while demanding some respect. Knox leans in close, warning the trash tier noble to back off before he gets dragged into a mess. The man immediately folds, begging for mercy once he realizes he's facing the terrifying heir of House Reinhaver. But Knox is interested in apologies, and the noble soon finds himself drenched in a humiliating display. As the wine drips down, Knox just scoffs at how pathetic and stingy this so-called noble truly is. He mockingly pours the entire glass over the man's head, pretending to worry about the mess he's made. Knox breaks into a wild, unhinged laugh, clearly relishing the absolute terror he's instilled in his victim. Even Diana is left completely dumbfounded, watching the scene unfold with a cold sweat as the tension peaks. Watching from the shadows, the little dark being familiar finds the entire chaotic spectacle to be top-tier entertainment. Arboyle Leon remains perfectly calm, observing the Reinhaver's madness while his fluffy companion rests on his shoulder.